On July the 1st, 1903, the Tour de France set off from Paris, and apart from a couple of world wars and the occasional French labour dispute, it hasn't stopped since. So to mark the historic milestone of the Tour's centenary, the organisers decided to make life miserable for Parisian motorists twice in 1 month by starting as well as finishing the race in the French capital. Great for the fans and great for the riders, all 198 of whom could say that they've made it to Paris, even if it was only for the start. While the Tour was celebrating its centenary, though, Lance Armstrong had other anniversaries on his mind. After all, it was the 4th anniversary of his first Tour win and the first of his 4th, which in plain English means that he came into this race with a chance to join the exclusive club of riders who'd won 5.
When everybody talks about victory and what's going to happen and what are you going to do, it gives me a bad feeling. But I have to stay realistic and understand that, you know, nothing is given in this sport and anybody can win. Well, not anybody, but a lot of guys can win. I think the race has everything. I think it has difficulty, it has joy, it has excitement, it even has death, which I've seen up close. But to me, it's an event that I wasn't born with and I wasn't raised with, but I've learned to love.
I think Armstrong is head and shoulders above the rest, but this year there are a lot of challengers who really feel they can put the American into difficulty. And in fact, if you put them man against man, I don't think anybody is as strong as Lance, but there are so many possibilities of a combine out on the course that may well be where the threat comes from.
Indeed, this is a great field. As we will see over the next 3 weeks of racing, we are going to be treated to, I think, a very memorable race indeed. And so it should be in the centenary year. Paris is on holiday. They're ready now to see the prologue time trial. Now, the prologue time trial, just about 5 miles, and that's not much when you're talking of a race of 2,100 over the next 3 weeks. But there are so many possibilities. Lance Armstrong, we think, will start favourite in the prologue, but there are others who can beat him.
Well, you've got to think about the Australians. It could be an English-speaking top 3 in today's stage, because in fact Brad McGee, a former world champion at the Pursuit, is a hot favourite to take the title. David Miller of Scotland, really a former winner of a prologue time trial. He too will be looking for the win. And of course the man who's been on fire this year on the European circuit, Michael Rogers.
And this for Michael. He's only a young man. It's his very first Tour de France. He wants to pull on the first yellow jersey of the Tour. And remember, this year especially, it bears the initials HD for Onny de Grange, the man who started it all. Let's go to the route.
Before tomorrow's official start at the Café, there'll be a 90-minute lap of honour around Paris, which is handy for those riders who'll be in no fit state to do it in 3 weeks' time. Then the race heads northeast to menace the Belgian border with some traditional first-week sprint finishes. The matching skin suits will be out for the team time trial on stage 4. Then the collective foot goes back down as the race rushes south to pay its respects to the Tour's first ever stage finish town. In 1903, it took the winner, Maurice Garin, 17 hours to ride the 476 kilometres from Paris to Lyon. This year, the pack takes the scenic route, 1,000 kilometres in 7 days. From Lyon, the race heads into the Alps, a greatest hits package of classic climbs from Tour history, where Lance Armstrong's status as favourite will be underlined or undermined. The high points will be the Izoard, the Galibier and Alpe d'Huez. The second of the Tour's 1903 stage finishes was the port city of Marseille. On this year's itinerary, it's stage 10. And after a day's shore leave in Narbonne, there's more historical sightseeing in Toulouse. The Tour's first individual time trial comes on stage 12 to Cap Découverte. Then it's another 3 days of gradients and grimacing in the Pyrenees, culminating in the climb up to Luzardiden, where Jan Ullrich conceded the race to Armstrong 2 years ago. Bordeaux has hosted the Tour more times than any town outside Paris. This year, as always, it'll be a classic sprinter stage, for those sprinters still left in the race. Heading north, the second individual time trial will finish in the last of the Tour's original 1903 stage towns, Nantes, before the historical circle is completed on the sacred cobbles of the Champs-Élysées. Now, though, it's time to get out onto the roads of Paris for the prologue. Here's a look at the course, flat as a puncture and extremely fast. Starting at the foot of the Eiffel Tower, it crosses the Seine, rounds the gardens of the Trocadero, and follows the river almost to the foot of the Champs-Élysées, where the race will arrive in 3 weeks' time, before crossing back over the river and finishing at the other end of the Eiffel Tower Gardens. Well, that's a look at the route, and here's the state of the race so far. Aymar Zubeldia of the Euskaltel Euskadi team leads. He's in with a time of 7 minutes and 28 seconds. Behind him, both 9 seconds back, are Germany's Michael Rich and George Hincapie, Lance Armstrong's teammate. Let's get out on the road now and join Phil and Paul.
Tyler Hamilton is the man that the United States wants to see finish high in the overall classification, and many people really do believe that he can finish in the top 3.
Well, Tyler Hamilton is underway, and he's having, without a shadow of a doubt, his finest ever cycling season. Despite the fact he left the side of Lance Armstrong, they remain great friends, these two, but they're going to be a bitter rivalry between them over the next 3 weeks. Keep up with that camera, sir, because you've just seen a white tornado go by. This is the 7th Tour, Paul, for Tyler Hamilton. In his first Tour back in 1997, he finished as 69th, while he's had a great finish of 13th in 99, and he promised a lot last year with 15th. Here's the arrival of Rick Verbrugge.
Well, Verbrugge rode a time trial at 58.8 kilometres an hour in the Giro d'Italia. He's put in a very fine performance here, but he too is going to slip outside of the top 10 and maybe slip outside of the top 20 as he hits the line here for 27th place. The times, I think, Phil, will start to change right now, because as we look at Jan Ullrich here, this is the first time we've seen a time so close to 6.5 minutes, and I think we could see the fastest time now go to Jan Ullrich.
Well, the one man in the world, Lance Armstrong has always said he respects and fears, is this man. He is the classiest bike rider in the world, but there are times when he lets himself down. If he's come back, then hats off to him. Jan Ullrich is receiving the applause of the crowd now. I think he's got the best time. It is not far to the line. The big man is back. Ullrich has had 4th place finishes in the prologue. He's going to slot in #1 at the moment. Listen to the crowd. 7:28.6. That is a real beating of Zubeldia. Just
beating.
1/5 of a second.
Unbelievable.
No, that's not quite
Jan
a real
Ullrich,
beating, really, is it?
It
No.
really isn't a big beating of Zubeldia, but look at the face of Jan Ullrich. Look at the legs, Phil. There's absolute power in those thighs of the big German rider here right now, and that is a surprise to many people. But this is a good ride by Richard Viron, the darling of France, the man who will lighten up, I should expect, the mountain stages, is coming in with a pretty respectable time for a man who doesn't like riding on his own.
But again, you see, once they get into the realms of a couple of seconds in those places, it drops rather quickly, as he's now being counted down towards the top 100 finishers. As he approaches the 8-minute marker, he's gone over 8:01. So Richard Viron is in. Never was a great time trial, so though when he was battling with the yellow jersey in his early tours, he had to produce a very good time trial then. Well, everybody waiting now to see what Bradley McGee can do. At the moment here, we're looking at Tyler Hamilton, though, and this is another man we're waiting desperately to see him at the first check. He has done big time trials, big prologues, and he is looking for a big result today. As we switch to the finish now, McGee is going to topple Jan Ullrich as well, as Bradley McGee takes the lead. 7:26.16. Now he's going to have to wait and see what David Miller can do.
Well, Bradley, don't salute the crowd so soon, because there are still some very big names to come, and Miller is 5 seconds faster than Brad McGee at 3.2 kilometres.
Lance Armstrong, as cool as you like, he is just looking there. He knows what everybody has done who have reached the finish house. He will know that his friend David Miller, the British rider on a rival team, has also turned in the best time at 3.2 kilometres by a full 5 seconds. The countdown. Lance Armstrong launches his bid for the 5th Tour de France.
Lance Armstrong right now is the last man to start here on the roads of Paris. He's wearing the yellow jersey from the winner of last year, and he in fact has said that he would wear that yellow jersey in honour of the organiser Henri Desgrange. The fastest time at half distance is that of the Scottish rider David Miller, 3 minutes 41 seconds. And we look now at Tyler Hamilton coming into the finishing straight. He's not going to go best time, but it's going to be a very good ride by Tyler Hamilton. He's the best best of the Americans so far. 5th place for him. Tyler has started well. Problem for David Miller on the course, though. What is this problem here? His chain has come off, Phil. He had the fastest time, and that has blown it, I would say, for David Miller. He was 5 seconds up at half distance, and he will absolutely be crying with that, but he's trying to get back into his rhythm.
Well, he could have lost 5 seconds there. This is going to be the ride of his life, whatever the problem was. He is still driving for best time. Bradley McGee has got it. He's finished. 7 minutes and 26 seconds for the Sydney sider. Now David Miller into that last corner. It is going to be desperately tight. He needs to get out of that saddle as fast as possible and kick for the line. It is going to be a countdown. That little fault could cost him as Miller drives for home now. A huge effort by David Miller. He is going to be so close to the line as we hit 7:26. He's going to do it. 7:26.24. He hasn't. That has cost him the victory, whatever was wrong.
He has gone outside the win by 0.08 of a second, and he will rue the moment that chain came off, Phil. He lost that. He was trying to flick the chain back on in complete and utter desperation. That was a very sad moment. Look at his face here. I think he knows it. He's sprinting for the line. He knows he had to beat the time of Brad McGee. It was unbelievable right now.
McGee will be on tenterhooks here now as the rider who finished second in the Tour de France last year. Belocchi hits the line. He is 7th.
That's a great ride by Belocchi. He'll be pleased with that, just losing 9 seconds to a specialist like Brad McGee. McGee now, Phil, will be on tenterhooks because he knows there's only one man left to come to the finishing line. His name is Lance Armstrong. He wears number 1. He's won the Tour de France on 4 occasions, and this year he's dreaming of winning it for a 5th. McGee is not too very far away from us here right now. A storming ride by the man who was the World Pursuit Champion. He'll be looking at this clock. I think it's going to be rather close on the line, but I'd have to give right now the advantage to McGee. But Armstrong will sprint with his heart in his hand.
He will indeed, because he comes off that final bend where David Miller saw his time tick over by fractions of a second. There's 6 seconds, 5, 4 as Armstrong races to the line. Is this going to be a perfect opening? No, it is not. Bradley McGee has won for Australia, but Armstrong has made it perfectly clear he is very much in for a 5th win in this year's Tour de France. He crosses the line in, well, the clock continues to count, so I can't tell you, but about 6th or 7th.
Well, it was 7th, not the most authoritative start to Armstrong's title defence. In fact, he wasn't even the top-placed US postal rider, coming in 1 second and 2 places behind his teammate Victor Hugo Peña. The win and the first yellow jersey of the race, though, went to Australia's Brad McGee. 0.08 of a second and a slip chain ahead of Britain's David Miller. Aimar Zubeldia of Spain was an impressive 3rd. And 4th place for Jan Ullrich was an early indication that he might be back to something like his best. With the prologue done, the overall contenders slipped back into the pack for the next few stages to make way for the sprinters. The first road stages are always flat, always fast, and the Centenary Tour, as you'd expect, stuck with tradition, starting with stage 1 to Mo.
Into the 1 kilometre to go. This is a win-all sprint here for about 10 men.
Well, Pataki's got his men there right now. 1st, 2nd, 3rd position. This is the ideal lead-out. He'll be in 3rd. Somebody's gone down there. There you can see Bettini on the right-hand side of the road. Champion of Italy. Won that title in a sprint just over 7 days ago. Again, confusion. Nobody's got the power. McEwen, Phil, is up into 3rd place.
McEwen is holding. Bettini also trying to get there on the back wheel of Eric Zabel. I think Stuart O'Grady has moved too far back. And there's been a mass pile-up there. I think his towel went down as the peloton completely crashes on the line. It's put forward now about 15 men here, and once again Pataki has missed it. McEwen has missed it. McEwen is still poised for the best sprint here now. It's Robbie Hunter who's launched on the left of our picture, but out there in the centre is still McEwen. Pataki is going Zabel. Here comes Robbie McEwen now, but he's been pushed out of it. Alessandro Pataki is coming back. Here comes McEwen and Zabel. I think it's going to be Pataki on the line. Probably Bettini, Zabel, McEwen, they were right there as well. But again, Paul, a crash, and look at this. The peloton are at a standstill. Now, just to quickly tell you the rules, everybody will be given the time of the winner because they are inside the final kilometre.
Yeah, but the one or two riders, they're seriously injured on the ground there. Now, if Lance Armstrong is in this group at the moment, the referees tonight will give all of the riders who are in the main field at the 1 kilometre to go banner exactly the same time. There should be no change at all. Let's just have a look here and see how that crash went down. It was the big Kelme rider. His foot came out. He went immediately down onto the ground, and then it was pandemonium behind. You can just see over on the left-hand side there, Ulrich was caught out behind the crash as well. But all of the riders behind the crash field today will be given the same time. Now, there's US Postal. There's a lot of confusion there. I wonder whether or not Lance Armstrong was involved in that crash.
Well, let's certainly hope he was not, but I think the rider that went down was Towler of the Kelme squad, first to go, and then a massive pileup. Now, overall, the shoulders, there he is, and he was obviously involved there, Brad McGee. But he won't lose his yellow jersey. He's inside the last kilometre. This rule was brought in many years ago because of situations like this in the last kilometre. So they don't lose time. The clock stops at the kilometre to go for all of the riders who are together in the event of a fall. McGee quite clearly has fallen, but he'll still keep his yellow jersey.
Well, what a crash that was towards the end, and that's all it takes when you're full on at 65 kilometres an hour. You just do not have time to get out of the way. The majority of the main field is starting to come in right now, and I'm not sure whether or not Lance Armstrong was just stopped at the side of the road. There are one or two riders there, Phil, who have been seriously injured by that crash. They will get the same time as the winner at the end of the day. But I tell you one thing, this looks as if this could very well be Jimmy Casper, who's been caught up with a fairly nasty crash there. He will have taken a lot of risks to be towards the front.
Well, a look at the replay actually shows there was nothing Jimmy Casper could have done to avoid his injury. It's the man in green on the extreme right of the picture, Kelme's Jose Enrique Gutierrez, who causes all the mayhem, pulling his foot out of his pedal as he sweeps wide around the corner. Casper in white is right next to him and has no time whatever to react or protect himself as he goes down. Lance Armstrong himself went down in the aftermath of the crash, surrounded at the top of the screen here by his US Postal teammates, and he finished the stage on the bike of his teammate Chechu Rubiera, complaining of back pain. And for 5 minutes or so after the crash, the walking wounded and the damaged machinery continued to cross the line, followed finally by the man who caused it all, Jose Enrique Gutierrez, looking a lot better off than many of the men he brought down. Thankfully, David Miller had avoided all the trouble and spoke to Ned Boulting as he came across the line.
Well, I didn't see anything. I was just chilling at the back. I knew it was going to crash, just knew it. So I was just sitting just behind all the favourites, just keeping it safe. I think every single favourite went down. It was pretty impressive. I was just behind, just watching them go down one by one. It was like...
In the midst of all the chaos, of course, there was actually a stage result, and it belonged to Alessandro Patacchi of the Italian Fassa Bortolo team, who took the sprint ahead of Australia's Robbie McEwen and Eric Zabel of Germany. He's having a fantastic season, Alessandro Patacchi. 6 stage wins in the Giro d'Italia this year, and now his first ever in the Tour de France. No change at the very top of the overall standings, except that Brad McGee now has 4 whole seconds over David Miller, rather than the 800ths he had before, thanks to his second place at the intermediate sprint today.
As they line up now for the finish, there'll be no complaints about this finishing line. It is dead straight, and it's the Brioche team now trying to lead their sprinters to the line. There's only one of them left. That's Damien. Hey, here goes McGee. McGee has broken early, but he is a pursuiter. He has terrific speed in those legs. Nazon is chasing him.
The lime green jersey, there's Freddie Rodriguez. He's well up there for the Vinnie Calderolo team, up into 3rd place. You can see all over the front of this main field is Eric Zabel. McGee has led them out, but he's not going to win the stage right now. There's a moment of hesitation. Bettini's in the middle. Oscar Freire is starting down the right-hand side. This is going to be a bolt for the finishing line. In fact, there's some confusion moving up there right now. You can see Eric Zabel in the middle.
Zabel is in the middle, but Jan Kirsipuu is also breaking in the centre now. So too is Jean-Patrick Nazan. They're all getting in on the act here. A final dash for the line now is Jean-Patrick Nazon, who's launched himself, and I think that's Kirsipuu challenging on the right, and on the left now comes the sprinters too from, and he's got it, and I'm trying...
Cook, Baden Cook.
It's Baden Cook. I completely forgot about Baden Cook, and he continues the happy saga of the Française des Jeux.com team, because with Baden Cook getting the win, then his teammate McGee will keep, we think, the yellow jersey. It has to go to the seconds on the calculation, but what an unbelievable finish. And just when I thought Jan Kirsipuu had got it, up came Cookie and took it off him. Here's the finish. Baden Cook is too far away. He gets 20 seconds for the win. He'll move to within 4 seconds of yellow. He'll be second tonight with David Miller. What a terrific race.
Terrific for the Aussies and for FDJ.com. Baden Cook with his first Tour de France stage win ahead of Jean-Patrick Nazon and Jan Kirsipuu, with Eric Zabel edged into 4th and Robbie McEwen never really in contention, placing 6th. Behind the big sprint, all the contenders finished safely. Lance Armstrong, David Miller and the injured Tyler Hamilton among them. 10 minutes later, though, rolling in on his own with just his neck brace for company, was Jimmy Casper, looking extremely uncomfortable but conceding nothing. So in his second tour, Baden Cook bags his first stage win and keeps his mate Brad McGee in the yellow jersey as an added bonus. Or was it the other way round? Whichever it was, he was delighted, and afterwards he spoke to Ned.
What a race, Baden. You timed your attack perfectly on the line there.
Oh, so many times I always misjudge the sprints and I go too early and I get past in the line, and today it was me coming from behind. I just stayed so calm and left it to the last minute, and it paid off. It's like the jackpot.
An enormous amount of teamwork there for you to get that stage win and for Bradley to keep the yellow shirt.
Yeah, well, normally I should have been on Brad's wheel, but coming into the corner I got swamped and lost the wheel. And so he just pulled the sprint to keep it lined out anyway. And the last minute I went to move up and someone moved, so I got on the wheel and I just worked out like clockwork. Just came through right at the right time and hit out, and it was unbelievable.
Now, as well as preserving the race lead for his teammate, Baden Cook's stage win moves him up to 3rd place overall, just behind David Miller. And Jean-Patrick Nazon's 2nd place on the stage installs him in the top 6. No change in the time gaps for Tyler Hamilton, Lance Armstrong and company, while Robbie McEwen is still within stage-winning distance of the yellow jersey, just 16 seconds back.
Into the last 1,000 metres to go.
Last 1,000 metres to go, and there's going to be a long sweeping bend. These riders will move all the way across the road. Vinny Calderola on the front end. They'll be looking after their man, Freddie Rodriguez. They've got a big, nice, long line. It's nice and organised for them. Moving up, Leon Van Bon is there for Team Lotto, but I can't see Robbie McEwen. I can see Stuart O'Grady, though.
Well, as we come off that bend now, Vina Calderola still trying to work it out, and it looks to me as though CSC are even getting involved in this. This could be a good lead out, though, for Fred Rodriguez, but Pataki is not far away either. And now as they come into the last 500 metres, it looks as though O'Grady has fallen away from it here, and so too the yellow jersey of McGee. Eric Zabel on the left. Zabel it's a good finish for Zabel, this one. He's trying to pick up Pataki's wheel as the Feinsteins comes through as well. Now comes round, there's been a crash again, right on the side of the road, as once more out of the field comes Pataki, and I don't think anybody will get it right on the line. Pataki has just taken it. Zabel was there, but there is a rather nasty looking fall as another rider hits the grate, and on the road there, the rider down is Rennie Hasselbacher. A very nasty fall. And let's see if we see it on this picture here. Vina Calderola looked as though they were doing it well, but watch there. In fact, Hasselbacher bumps into McEwen. There's a big sandwich out there. Oh, a very nasty fall by Rennie Hasselbacher.
Well, it was, and it also ended any chance Robbie McEwen or Baden Cook had of contesting the sprint. When Hasselbacher eventually trundled over the line trying to keep the cameras out of the rip in his shorts, he wasn't able to shed much light on the crash.
Do you have a clear idea what happened in that crash?
Not really. I think the one guy in front of me was on the brake, and I was the first who was lying on the ground.
For second and third opinions, we asked the Aussies. Hasselbacher almost brought down.
I was right in the wheel of Pataki, and then on the right came Hasselbacher, on the left came Cook, and Hasselbacher's just come up, ridden into a gap that wasn't even there, and dropped himself. And you know, that's when it all started. And I lost the wheel from there, and could only come back and see what I could still do in the finish. But the first guys were gone, so that's what made it dangerous. I mean, it's stupid because Hasselbacher does that a bit.
I saw a gap with about 300 or 400 to go. I jumped past on the left. Then Robbie went to repass and hit my handlebars, and that's when my foot clicked out, and that was the end of that. I'm pretty lucky I didn't fall off. I was grinding along the barrier with one foot out, so I think the guy behind me fell off. So I'm not I'm not in the mood to fall off, so that's one thing.
There's confirmation of the result. Pataki ahead of Romans Weinsteins and Oscar Freire, with Eric Zabel 4th and Robbie McEwen 5th. Brad McGee was in the main bunch, and right behind him was Jean-Patrick Nazon, the man who'd overtaken him on the road in the overall standings. All the other main players finished on the same time, which meant France had finally retaken control of its national sporting treasure from the Australians. Jean-Patrick Nazon, the first home rider to wear the yellow jersey since Francois Simon in 2001. So there are the standings. Nazon now leads the race from Bradley McGee by 8 seconds, which shunts David Miller down into third. Robbie McEwen and Jan Kirsipuu have sprinted themselves up into the top 10, with Lance Armstrong dropping out of it to 12th. However, the general classification should be unrecognisable by the end of stage 4. For the first few stages, Lance Armstrong hadn't been so much even a face in the crowd, with just another helmet in the helicopter shot. He was overdue some face time, and stage 4 was going to make sure that when it came, he'd be gritting his teeth for a lot of it. It was the team time trial, 69 kilometres of serial suffering, as the 9-man teams set off at 5-minute intervals to power their way around the course. And after 3 years of trying and failing to win it, US Postal were as motivated as they'd ever been. CSC's Tyler Hamilton, of course, used to be part of the Postal machine and knows what it takes to win a team time trial.
You know, you can have 9 of the strongest riders in the peloton, but if you don't work well and if you're not disciplined and you don't work very efficiently, you're not going to win the race and you're not going to ride fast. The most important thing is working in a cohesive unit, with a good flow. You know, the weaker riders take shorter pulls and the stronger riders take longer pulls. But that's about it. If you're not disciplined and the stronger riders are surging too much, it can really disrupt the flow of the team. And also when there's some crosswind, you have to be a little bit more careful and leave a little bit more room, because with a disc wheel on the back, the bike is not so stable. There's very little talking with the teammates, but Bjarne Riis is behind in the car, speaking with us, telling us what to do. But you don't really have the time or the energy to talk yourself to the other riders. And, it's pretty much Bjarne Riis is leading the way.
And although this is a team event, it often has a big impact on the individual standings. In 1994, Chris Boardman's GAN team lost him the yellow jersey with a disastrous team time trial performance the day before he was due to carry it across the Channel to Great Britain. A couple of years earlier, Stephen Roach was eliminated from the race when he missed his start time, and the rest of his team set off without him. And 2 years ago, Christian van der Velde clipped a teammate's wheel and came off, forcing the team to wait and costing Lance Armstrong and US Postal the stage win. Well, this is what's to come, a 69-kilometre ride from Joinville to Saint-Dizier, with what looks like a nasty little climb at the start, so no chance for teams to ease their way into an early rhythm. Now, here's how things stand going into the stage. Jean-Patrick Nazon is in yellow, but it'll take the ride of their lives for Jean de la Tour to keep him there. David Miller would be well poised to take yellow if Cofidis could only generate some sense of team unity, but Jan Ullrich's Bianchi team look better equipped to move him up from 6th place. As you can see, Victor Hugo Peña is 9th at the moment, 3 places up on his team leader. So if US Postal win the time trial, he'll be the one in yellow, not Lance Armstrong. Right behind Armstrong is Joseba Belocchi, whose ONCE team won this time trial last year. And Santiago Botero now riding for Telecom, of course, and they should be pretty strong too.
So ONCE arrive at the 44.5 kilometre point. They're sprinting now to top the leaderboard and bring back the reputation. They are the experts at the team time trial. I'm not so sure they're going to get there in the next 10 seconds. Yes, they've gone through just inside 51 minutes. 50.59. ONCE now setting the trend. So we swung to the finish to see the arrival now of CSC. They were a little bit off the best time at the previous checks. I don't think we can expect a great ride now by this team, but they brought them injured team leader to the finish today. There's no point in this rider going clear of the field because the clock won't stop until the 5th man crosses the line. So they may as well wait. That's why the riders are fanned out and on the line. 1:20.12, not bad. 5th at the moment after that. And here comes Française des Jeux The little rainbow colours on the far jersey there is of a world champion, Bradley McGee, now back in his normal strip, having handed his yellow jersey over to Jean-Patrick Nazon. Now they've completely thrown this one away, Paul. They've kept the team together, but look at the time, 18th now and slipping away.
Well, I think this is a tactic they've decided. They've had a brilliant start to the Tour de France. They know they're not going to rival the big teams. They did not want to eliminate their partner, Jimmy Casper, who had a dramatic crash on the first day. He's battled to stay in the bike race. So I think maybe they said, well, OK, that's the end of our challenge in the overall race right now. Let's keep ourselves together. There's a lot of good fighting days to come.
As we're now looking at the US Postal Service squad, still heading out. Bianchi then will be the next team through at 44 kilometers, and then will come US Postal. Here comes Bianchi, they'll be the next team through, and then this will give us some indication. They were running 2 seconds slower than US Postal at the first check, so this will be interesting, Paul.
It's going to be very interesting indeed, because the time to beat is that of Once, 50.59, and in fact Team Bianchi are threatening to come through there very close to the time of Once, but they're not going to do it this time. But they still have a lot of strong bike riders, and there's a big possibility that they could accelerate towards the end. Second place for Team Bianchi, in fact dropping down to third there. It's a long way to the clock stops at this intermediary time point. There's Jan Ullrich just on the left-hand side. What a picture of concentration. This man surrounded by his team, the team that he hopes will, in the next 2.5 weeks of bike racing, make him a challenger to Lance Armstrong's superiority.
They are coming in to set the new mark here. Now, the only team who has improved quite as much as they have is US Postal, up to second fastest behind Once at 44 kilometers. This is the 69-kilometer checkpoint now for Once, as they continue to run best time at all of these checkpoints out on the course. They just need the confirmation now. As they get through to the finish, it will be a new best time, because they were 18 seconds quicker than Iban Esto at the last time check of the day, 6 miles back. So I think that Manolo Sainz has really done the trick again with these boys. Only US Postal, it seems now, have got the power that might topple Once, the arch rivals in the team time trial. Once, these last 3 years, have either won or finished second, and I think they're going to do the same again now. On the line, Paul, yes, 1:18.57. Now, look at this. We've just gone through in 1:7.27, Paul. It is the best time over Once by 17 seconds. Now, we never saw that time check until then.
Well, that really is remarkable. That will go straight into the earpieces of the US Postal Service team. You can imagine Johan Brunel must be going absolutely ballistic right now, because he has just heard that his team has gone through the 59-kilometer checkpoint with the fastest time so far. They are closing in on Jan Ullrich's team, Team Bianchi, who look good themselves, but it could well be all for one, one for all towards the end, because US Postal still have their 9 men, and Ullrich, I think, has just got that information himself. He's gone to the front. He is the captain of the ship. He's picking up the pace. He'll do long turns towards the end now. He will do everything he can to keep the team in with the chance of winning this stage. But what a comeback for Jan Ullrich, and what a great comeback to the top of the sport for Team Bianchi. But these are the boys at the moment waving the flag. They still dare not panic, though, because they've still got around about 10 kilometers to go. That's 6 miles. Should take them not very much more than 12 minutes. Victor Hugo Peña, well, that's a name that, if they do stay in front, will become the first name from Colombia to have a yellow jersey on his shoulders. And I'll tell you one thing, the first man who is going to congratulate him will be the man who wears number 1, Lance Armstrong, his teammate for this year. Here is Team Bianchi now getting towards the finish. This is the time they need to beat. This is the big battle now, starting to set up the battle that we predicted before the start of the Tour. It could very well go down to an Armstrong-Ullrich battle against in the big mountain passes.
Well, the big man is back anyway. He's come from deep in the depths at the first check now to challenge for the lead here. Team Bianchi to Bianchi. They won't get to the Once time, but they might well arrive with second best till US Postal finishes it off. And as they come off that final bend, it's so nice to see this colour, which used to be on the shoulders of the great Fausto Coppi. Now it's on the shoulders of the great Jan Ullrich. There he is, on the front, powering away. He knows he's running close to the leaderboard. Second place for the moment. 52 kilometres now, 1:19.10. Postal could well be sitting in first. They're aiming for 1 hour, 18 minutes and anything less than 57 seconds.
Well, the time right now on the finish line clock is 1 hour, 16 minutes and 58 seconds. And these boys are absolutely hammering. They know what the time to beat is. They will, in fact, have it in their helmets right now. It will come from their man in the team car, Johan Bruneel, the winner at one stage of the fastest ever road stage of the Tour de France, a brilliant tactician. And I think he's the man who went to the boys this morning and said, take it easy over the first few kilometres. But there's now just 1 kilometre to go, 1,000 metres.
And these riders should accomplish that between 59 and 61 seconds, and that will give them an emphatic victory margin. They might even shed 1 or 2 riders here, but I've got a feeling this team has got a pack going. They're all going to come home together, even though the clock will seek out the 5th man for when it stops.
There's the time they want to beat, 1:18:57, Yaroslav Ekinov, nicknamed Slava on the front.
They're almost smiling, they know.
They've got it. This is remarkable. Landis, Phil, I didn't think he'd be at the Tour de France this year, but he's still with the boys.
This is an exhibition. They've come from the back, built up their speed all the way. There is Lance Armstrong up into 2nd place in the Tour de France tonight. He'll be the first off his bike to congratulate Victor Hugo Peña, because he overnight is the highest place to this team. He will be the next yellow jersey in this Tour. He is Colombian, and no Colombian has ever led this race in 100 years. As they come to the line now, watch the clock. It's the best time. Hincapie's mixing it at the front. He waves. There you go. 1:18:27. That was a superb demonstration.
Absolutely remarkable, Phil. That is incredible. They've really done the superb time that they wanted to do. They've dreamed about this since back in the year 2000 when they finished 2nd. Big Pavel Padronos on the front here. He was brought into the team specifically for the team time trial, specifically for the flat stages. Roberto Heras, I would think, cannot believe this. And Ekimov, hand in the air, the winner of the Olympic Games in 2000, now with the team, the winner of the team time trial here at the Tour de France. And with that, a brand new yellow jersey.
So there's the result. US Postal with a clear half-minute on the next quickest finishers, Joseba Belocchi's Once team, with Jan Ullrich and Bianchi another 13 seconds behind them. David Miller's Cofidis teammates held him back. He and they finished over 2 minutes down. Well, Victor Hugo Peña may be the best placed US Postal rider in the classification, but not on the podium. Lance Armstrong wasn't conceding the top step for the stage win presentation, although he did sound genuinely pleased afterwards when he spoke to Ned.
Congratulations, you're coming to the fore. Great team performance.
I said so. I mean, the team was, we started with 9, we finished with 9. Everybody really did their job. I mean, we designated 5 guys to sort of carry the team, and they did that, and 2 guys that were sort of our wild cards who really came through, and Manuel and Roberto, you know, they never missed a pull. So for our 2 climbers, it was special as well, so perfect.
And how does it feel for the US Posties to be top of the tree, but for you not to be in the yellow jersey for a change?
Oh, you know, that's not a problem at all. I mean, it's we wanted to win, and we felt like we deserved to win. We felt like we had the best team, and we felt like we've you know, sort of not ridden our best the last few years. So to win is a real satisfying feeling.
And it said, as you crossed the line, it looked like you said to Victor Hugo, "Go on, you enjoy it."
I mean, the whole day, the whole ride, I kept telling him, you know, because sometimes people have bad patches, and I just say, "Hey, Victor, you know, which jersey do you want at the finish line?" And he was super.
Well, other Colombians have won stages and the King of the Mountains competition, but none of them has ever worn the yellow jersey. Victor Hugo Peña has now, and he told Matt Randall how it felt.
Víctor Hugo, llegando a la línea, Lance te dijo algo.
Desde 20 kilómetros antes me decía que necesitaba lo máximo de mí porque quería verme de amarillo y quería finalmente ver el equipo ganando una crono por equipos.
Qué felicidad, ¿cómo puedes calificar este momento?
Quisiera estar en mi país ahora mirando, siendo parte de aquellos que se paraban en las vitrinas a mirar televisión para ver a Lucho Herrera, a Fabio Parra anteriormente, y que ahora pues espero que me hayan estado mirando a mí también.
Aquí hay otros colombianos que de pronto pueden luchar para un lugar entre los primeros 10. ¿Usted no?
Yo estoy para luchar para que el mejor ciclista del mundo finalmente consiga su 5º título del Tour.
So the standings tonight are radically altered, as they always are after team time trials. The top 8 places all taken by US Postal Riders. The first non-postie is Joseba Beloki in 9th, with Jan Ullrich now 12th, 38 seconds behind Lance Armstrong. Santiago Botero now a minute and a half down, with Tyler Hamilton at 1:45 and David Miller 2 minutes back in 56th. After his team's poor ride, this morning's yellow jersey, Jean-Patrick Nazon, is 112th, over 3 minutes down. Between the team time trial and the Alps, there were 2 more flat stages, which meant 2 more chances for the rest of the sprinters in the race to see if anyone could handle the finishing speed of Alessandro Petacchi.
The whole pack now are massing at the front again. A little tumble might have disrupted the positions of some of the riders.
Well, they're all over the front. In fact, it's Lotto Domo. This is Leon Van Bon. He'll be thinking about his man, Robbie McEwen. McEwen is right in there. There's the green jersey, McEwen. There are Aussies all over the place right now because Baden Cook is in 3rd position. Jan Kursipuu is on the left-hand side. Zabel is right in with the mix too.
And there is McEwen in 5th place. Bradley McGee was first round, the big lead-out man who can turn up the speed towards the finish. But Stuart O'Grady's got himself in a good place. We've got Baden Cook 2nd wheel, O'Grady 3rd wheel, Zabel 4th wheel. These are the big sprinters, and the Aussies are in it again this time. Here comes the lead-out from the leader of the Tour for the first 3 days. Bradley McGee trying to launch Baden Cook for his 2nd stage win. But Stuart O'Grady this time, I think, might have other ideas. Baden Cook on the left. As Baden Cook breaks on the left now, Alexander Petacchi comes down. He's so fast. Petacchi has got it. 3 in a row, well, not quite in a row, but 3 wins for Petacchi. As he points at me in the commentary box, that was an amazing sprint. He is so fast.
I think we're seeing the birth here of the new Mario Cipollini from Italy, but he's called Alessandro Petacchi. He was a long way back when that sprint started. He came from a long way, maybe 6th or 7th place. He's a brilliant sprinter, win number 3. He is now the new sprinter on the block.
This has been his year of turnaround. He never won a stage of the Tour of Italy until this year. He's won 6 this year. He'd never won a stage of the Tour de France in this opening week. He has now won 3. Unbelievable. The speed as he came through that field, just as it looked as though Baden Cook might have got himself another win.
And poor old Jan Kursipuu was looking for the win, as he has done the last couple of years after the team time trial. He's going to have to settle for 2nd place. He's right on the wheel there of Alessandro Petacchi. Sweeps around Robbie McEwen there, but he just doesn't have the big gear ability to come by a flying Italian, because look at that, Petacchi there, Phil, showing everybody a clean pair of wheels.
Incredible result as he comes to the line with a fantastic turn of speed.
There's the result. Petacchi ahead of Jan Kursipuu and Baden Cook, with Erik Zabel 4th and Robbie McEwen out of it again in 5th. Behind them, all the big names finished safely in the pack, except for Oncé's Angel Vicioso, came over the line after his crash, nursing his arm in what looks suspiciously like the broken collarbone position.
3 kilometers to go and 25 seconds advantage for these guys. When they get to the end of this small avenue, they will take a right-hand turn, and then it's the 2.1 kilometer finishing straight. They dare not look back right now, Phil, as the time check comes to 20 seconds advantage over the main field. The sprinters are going to have their day. They will catch these guys, I would expect, right under the Flamme Rouge.
It looked, and there's another crash. There's another rider gone down. 2 riders on the side of the road. They are so desperate to reach the leaders on these bends. They are falling off. Let's have another look again. Overshot the corner. Happened in the center of the pack near the front again. And they look okay, but they will again have disrupted the chase.
This is all because of the fatigue. This has been a tough day in the saddle here. We've had 230 kilometers of racing in temperatures soaring up to 90 degrees Fahrenheit. There is the corner. When they turn around this corner to the right, they will see if they've got good eyesight in the distance, the finishing banner. They are still holding on to 18 seconds advantage over the main field. These crashes might go to the advantage of the breakaway.
Well, we're almost, sounds like we're wishing it will, aren't we? Well, why shouldn't we? Because if they lead to the line, they've been in the front for 200 kilometers. At the moment, they've been in the front for exactly 198 kilometers. The longest escape we have had and they are 2 kilometres from the line. The gap is about 12 seconds. It can't be done.
12 seconds is all they've got. That correlates to around about 120 metres advantage. It's the FDJ.com team on the front, getting the organisation right now, right up there in third position. You can see Bradley McGee, former, reigning champion of the world at the individual pursuit. The Italian champion is there in the red, white and green jersey, Paolo Bettini. He's looking for the win as well.
It's so hard when your Australian mates are on rival teams and they have to chase you down, but that's what's happening. McGee trying to counter now the move here by Stuart O'Grady. Our camera pan didn't take long, did it? These two riders have become the heroes of the day. Everybody outside of our comedy position is willing them on, but I think it cannot happen. They are just behind them now, and I think they might even get picked up at the side 1 kilometre to go. But there is always a psychological moment when sprinters look at one another, and they only need a 2-second hesitation. But it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen today. It's a long finishing straight. They've not quite got to the 1,000 kilometre banner right now. Rabobank on the front, trying to sort it out for Oscar Freire, who's moved up into 4th position. These guys will only have 50 metres left, 50 metres advantage over the main field. They're not going to do it right now because the sprinters are really picking up the pace.
Oh, Jeslan's looked over his shoulder. O'Grady has. The sweep up is coming in sight of the banner. How cruel is life as a pro bike rider as the sprinters now look to reassess, and Bettini launches the attack. And look at that, O'Grady and Jeslan try again to mix it at the front. They're not going to have their day taken away. Bettini, I think, has made the move too soon. Bradley McGee on the left of the picture here as well, as they try now to go. This comes Thor Hushovd, is trying to finish it off with a good result for O'Grady's team. Here he comes. Petacchi is making the move. Win number 4, but on the right it is Bradley McGee. Win number 4, though it is. Baden Cook, sorry, is second, but he can't believe it. It wasn't his victory 1 kilometre out.
Unbelievable. Sad day for Stuart O'Grady and Jeslan, but what a move again by Alessandro Petacchi. It really has been a tough day in the Saddlefield for these bike riders. It's one that will leave severe traces on the body for tomorrow's first incursion into the mountains. Look at this acceleration here from Alessandro Petacchi. Baden Cook thought he had the wheel there, but all of a sudden this man, he likes to sprint right down the middle of the road. He looks back to see what the other guys are doing in the race. He's got enough time to cruise here at the finish line. Win number 4. What a remarkable Giro and a remarkable Tour de France for Alessandro Petacchi.
And once he decides to go, nobody can go with him. There's the result. Alessandro Petacchi winning comfortably ahead of Baden Cook, with Fabrizio Guidi a tyres width ahead of Thor Hushovd in 3rd. After 199.5 kilometres out front, Stuart O'Grady and Anthony Jeslan ended up 20th and 59th respectively, while the rest of the big names finished safely. Well, actually, not all of the big names. Eric Zabel and Robbie McEwen weren't even there to be beaten in the sprint, and here's why. If you watch the rider in white here on the helicopter shot, it's Eric Zabel who just seems to lose it on the corner, bringing down Robbie McEwen as well as one of his own teammates. Well, McEwen came in a minute 17 down in what remained of his green jersey, knowing that it's the last one he's going to wear for a while. Knowing you've lost, it's one thing though. Sharing it with the world just after it's happened is another.
Do you have a clear idea what happened there, Robbie?
Zabel was even further back, 7:08 to be precise, escorted in by his teammate Giuseppe Guerini. So Petacchi wins his 4th stage of the Tour and the first in the special centenary competition for victories in the 1903 original stage towns. He got a trophy for that. The next one on offer will be in Marseille. And if he can survive the mountains, don't bet against him winning 5 and hanging on to the green jersey that he took off McEwen with today's win. The Alps, spectacular to look at, spectacularly uncomfortable to climb. The opening day in the mountains had been decisive in each of Lance Armstrong's 4 previous Tour wins, and it usually followed a brutal but effective script. First, he had his henchmen soften up the opposition with a relentless tempo that no one but the hardest of the hard men could live with. Then, having escorted him to the foot of the final climb, the bodyguards would back off to crack their knuckles in a corner, while the boss personally took care of anyone who was left. Stage 7 featured 5 climbs on the way to a downhill finish in Morzine, and with the US Postal threshing machine setting the pace from the start, all sorts of big names were in danger of getting caught in the blades and spat out of the back. Alessandro Petacchi, though, never actually got close enough, weaving like a drunk on the Col de Port before putting the finishing touches to his Mario Cipollini Rise the Tour impersonation by doing his only serious climbing of the race, climbing off his bike and into the team car. 4 stage wins before abandoning on the first day in the mountains. Cipo couldn't have done it better himself. He wasn't the only struggling sprinter. Jan Kuursepu was doing the same climb in slow motion. And it wasn't only the sprinters who were struggling. Kelme's Jesus Manzano collapsed with heat exhaustion, while his teammate Anthony Tauler took out his frustration on the team car after coming off in a crash. Up at the front, the last man to win at Morzine was looking like the next man to win at Morzine. Richard Virenque rode away from his rivals on the biggest climb of the day, the Col de la Ramaz, and was threatening to take the yellow jersey along with the stage.
1 kilometre to go, and this is going to feel a marvellous moment for Richard Virenque. He won in Morzine in 2000. You might hear the public applauding outside of our commentary box. This is a great victory for him. Then the clock will tell us, Paul, if he's got yellow.
Well, he's got yellow, Phil. There's no problem at all about that, because at 5 kilometres to go, the group containing Lance Armstrong and all of the other favourites in the Tour de France were still 4 minutes behind. He's gone round those corners in an absolutely ballistic manner. He's inside the area now where he can see the meters ticking by. He's been up this finishing straight before, and he's just going to give it everything, but he will enjoy this victory. He won't salute until the final minute, because he knows he needs every second possible.
The crowd are cheering along the barriers all the way. The moment every Frenchman dreams of, very few have it. He'll be only the 82nd Frenchman ever to pull on the maillot jaune. As he races up towards the line now, he looks at the crowd. He gives them a smile, he gives them a grit of his teeth. He's still looking for that banner. When is it going to come? This is rather a nasty little hill up to the line, the way they come in these days. It wasn't the way he came in when he won in the year 2000. Now's the moment. Almost exactly the same salute he gave when he arrived here in 2000. Richard Virenque takes stage 7 of the Tour de France. The clock starts now, and he is looking for yellow.
This is Sylvain Chavanel. He's just jumped away from the group of Lance Armstrong, trying to get himself a little bit of last-minute glory, but in the main field behind, they're not too worried about Sylvain Chavanel. They've lost themselves an awful lot of time on a certain Frenchman by the name of Richard Virenque. Still in the middle of nowhere. Let's not forget the man who's going to cross the line in second place is Rolf Aldag. He's about 2.5 minutes behind, but it's an emotional finish here for this man, Richard Virenque. He's come back to the top of the sport. He's put in an unbelievable escapade today. He's garnered everything he wanted to get, but most importantly, he's got himself the yellow jersey.
Here, for me, has been one of the heroes of the day. If ever you're a cyclist at this level, you suffer like Aldag has suffered, you are left behind, you go back to the man, you are left behind again, you hang on. This has got to be his finest ride in the Tour de France.
This man is a true professional right now. He'd hoped to try and stay in contact with Richard Virenque. He loses 2.5 minutes after 6 hours in the saddle, but this is one of the stages he can write home about. I think Benoit Poivel, the man from Crédit Agricole, Phil, has been brought back into the fold, and third man out on the road is Sylvain Chavanel of Brioche-La Boulangère. The main field are not too far behind, only about 30 seconds.
Well, this will be a celebration in memory of Fabrice Salençon, their teammate, who died of a heart attack just before the start of the Tour of Germany. For that reason, the team pulled out of competition. They've come back in for the Tour de France, and now they will remember him, because this rider here was thought to be the star of the future, along with Salençon, who died of a heart attack and had many postmortems, and it was a death by natural causes. A great tragedy, and I'm sure that Sylvain Chavanel will be thinking of that as he comes up the home straight here. He's going to take third place. He's got away from the big bunch. Nobody's chased him down. He looks over his shoulder. He's learning to be a good professional, making sure nobody is coming back. Look at the time gap, Paul. It is still quite big here.
Time gap is huge. It's still around about 3 minutes and 50 seconds back to the main field, so there is a new leader of the bike race this afternoon. As Chavanel gets the cheers of the French crowd, the main field cannot be very far back. 3:50, that's the time since Richard Virenque crossed the line right now, so he's the new leader of the bike race, he's the new king of the mountains, and of course the winner of the stage. This is Rogers.
Well, is this Michael Rogers from Australia? That is the ride of your life, the first man ever in the Tour de France, and that's a superb result for Rogers as he crosses the line there. Then comes the rest of the group as they're led in there. Stefano Garzelli, very, very close indeed, but Michael Rogers done an incredible ride there for Australia. And the gap has counted out on 4 minutes plus there. Now, yes, maybe Armstrong did allow it to go, and maybe Richard Virenque is tired, but a 4-minute gap is big, and it's going to take some pulling back.
Yep, 4:06 on the stage between Virenque and the chasing group, with Rolf Aldag, Sylvain Chavanel and Michael Rogers spanning the gap. David Miller right up there too in 8th place. In the same group as David were most, but certainly not all, of the big names. Lance Armstrong was 15th, Jan Ullrich 21st, and Joseba Beloki 32nd, all on the same time. As David Miller came in, Ned Boulting was waiting for him.
Well done, David. You stuck with the pace. How did you feel?
Oh, terrible. I blew up at the top of the climb, seeing stars. Unfortunately, I had some food in my pockets, otherwise I'd have been dead. But yeah, I was feeling good apart from that. I just blew completely at the top. So anyway.
Nonetheless, to do what you've done on a day in this heat, you must be reasonably happy with your day's work.
Yeah, no, it's good. I'm happy.
Okay, that's good.
Considering how I was feeling at the end.
Well, however he was feeling, it can't have been as bad as Santiago Botero. Touted as a challenger to Armstrong, but sadly for him, his customary bad day in the mountains coming on the first day in the mountains. He came in 10:21 behind the winning time, and his Tour challenge is over. The Autobus, the big group that gathers at the back, came through almost 25 minutes down, and somewhere in there was the yellow jersey of Victor Hugo Peña. Well, we said he was desperate to make his mark on the Centenary Tour, and he has. The most popular rider in France, except for an office complex in the Paris suburbs where the Tour organisation is based. Richard Virenque takes the stage, the King of the Mountains jersey, and the yellow jersey as race leader. There's the confirmation. Armstrong remains second, but by 2 minutes 37, as opposed to the single second he trailed by this morning. Jan Ullrich lost no time on Armstrong today. He's 9th, and David Miller moves up to 23rd. But the big losers are Santiago Botero, who's now 68th, Giro winner Gilberto Simoni, 74th, and this morning's yellow jersey Victor Hugo Peña, now 103rd. Matt Rendell spoke to the man who took it off him.
Il faut oser dans la vie, et j'ai osé aujourd'hui. C'était un peu risqué parce que je partais de loin et j'avais peur que ça rentre, mais avec Paolo Bettini, il m'a attendu, et après l'échappée a continué longtemps, et les 5 derniers kilomètres, je savais que c'était gagné, c'était magique.
Well, he must have had an inkling a bit earlier than 5 kilometres, because he'd shipped the family in today to the VIP area. Perhaps he'd had a premonition. The celebration was certainly well rehearsed, a carbon copy of the one he used here 3 years ago, the last time the Tour finished in Morzine.
So the first day in the Alps is behind the riders. Lance Armstrong didn't live by his own tradition. He did not attack anybody. He just looked at the group around him, and he allowed Richard Virenque a grand moment in this year's Tour de France. Now of going to Alpe d'Huez, the 22nd time the race will have come here since Fausto Coppi first won in 1952. Will Lance Armstrong attack? Bernard Hinault says he won't. I think he will, because, you know, he likes to win here. He won last time we were here in the year 2001. Virenque, though, can he go with him? He won't have to worry about Aito Gonzalez. He's failed to take the start. Simoni, again, is in trouble, so he only has to look out now for 1 or 2 riders.
Well, at the foot of the final climb up to Alpe d'Huez, the French champion Didier Rousse and Spain's Mikel Astarloza were out front together with a lead of 2.5 minutes. Behind them, though, US Postal were upping the tempo.
Just looking at the face here of Mikel Astarloza, he's made a brave move away from the giant Col de Galibier. He's got to the slopes with Didier Rousse, but here comes the cavalry. The US Postal boys are heading the race now. They've got 6 men down there, and the 5 men are working for 1. They want to launch Lance Armstrong into the attack. 2 years ago, Lance Armstrong wasted no time before the attack.
They're putting the pressure on right now. Armstrong has sent his men to the front. This is Roberto Heras. He's been kept in arrears all day, Phil. He's been sitting behind Armstrong. He's been taking the pace from his leader, Armstrong, and right now they want to do something special. At the back, these boys have done the job. This man has disappeared. Georgie Hincapie has set an unbelievable pace. He's out of it right now. He's just going to cruise to the summit. They've hit him hard in the first kilometre.
But this is such a typical move by the rider from US Postal. He's told his boys, flat out, peel off and get out of my way. Armstrong sitting third wheel here and just waiting for the move. Richard Virenque, the man who won yesterday, rapidly losing ground. If he loses 2.5 minutes, Armstrong will be in the lead.
Armstrong has got 3 very good climbers around him. Manuel Beltran, Roberto Heras and his old teammate Chechu Rubiera. The race is blowing apart. Rubiera looks like he's taking over the pacemaking now. Armstrong, cool as a cucumber, right on his shoulder there. Alexander Vinokourov. This is the damage that's being done at the back.
Well, David Miller got into this group after a great descent of the Col de Galibier. He's just ahead of his teammate here. Number 66 is David Moncoutier. Miller just ahead of him, but already under pressure. Alexander Vinokourov there in the centre of our picture is defying the attack here by Rubiera and Lance Armstrong. Richard Virenque trying to recover here from the early acceleration. The big 2 men we have yet to identify, and that is Joshiba Boloki and Jan Ullrich, but they will have been shocked by this move.
They will have been surprised by the viciousness of the attack in the first kilometre of the ascent. Look at that, though, Phil, not too far behind. The man who has been riding this broken collarbone throughout the Tour de France, Tyler Hamilton, is not far off the lead.
I cannot believe that Tyler Hamilton, who crashed on stage 1, he fractured his collarbone in 2 places. The doctors keep taking x-rays to make sure he's not doing long-term damage. He's right there at the head of this race. It is totally incredible. Now, Jan Ullrich, he's just gone through our picture to the right, but that wasn't him, I don't think. I think that was probably Aitor Garmendia who just went down there. We're looking now for the number of the yellow jersey. There he is, Richard Virenque. It'll take a while for our motorbikes with the cameras to get to the leaders. There is 500,000 people on the roads of Alpe d'Huez today.
Armstrong has got his faithful lieutenants around him. Chechu Rubiera is the man on the front right now, still in arrears there. To the right-hand side was Roberto Heras. Christophe Moreau is there in the green and white jersey of France. And again, they kick deep. They're looking for something special. Jan Ullrich is not anywhere there, Phil. Tyler Hamilton accelerates to get onto the wheel of Armstrong's train, but I haven't seen Jan Ullrich yet, and that's why they've gone hard. Armstrong is not really worried about Richard Virenque. He's got a 2-minute 37-second advantage in the overall classification, but Armstrong knows this man is not a long-term threat. The man he's worried about, the man he wants to put time between himself and today, is Jan Ullrich. Now, the team of Lance Armstrong turned up the screws on that final climb there to the summit of the Col du Galibier. It was because they wanted to make the race difficult for the final ascent of the day. We're now looking here at number 28, riding for Team Telecom, Alexander Vinokourov. He, a few moments ago, was with Lance Armstrong. Armstrong must be just around the corner. The 2 leaders, I don't know how they're doing it, but they are surviving. Their advantage over the group, being led by Armstrong and Mayo, is now less than 1 minute. He's still got a teammate up there alongside him, and this time it's going to be Boloki has gone. Boloki has come back from nowhere, and he's now launched the attack. He said he would attack Armstrong in the Alpine passes, and this is quite remarkable to see that he's doing just what he said he would do.
Well, Paul, now it's up to Lance Armstrong. Heras was the man who started all the work at the bottom of the climb.
Well,
there's
Heras
the attack.
Heras is there, and Armstrong has seen the attack coming from Joshiba Boloki. The Once riders have been sitting in the wings all day. They've been sitting there in great numbers. They've been waiting to come up with this attack, and right now Joshiba Boloki has gone. Put the hammer down. Armstrong is going to ask a lot of Roberto Heras this afternoon, but Roberto Heras has been sitting in the wings, just waiting to try and turn up the screws when he could. This is a great and brave move by Joshiba Boloki, second in the Tour de France last year. Hamilton is in this group, and the 2 riders from Euskaltel-Euskadi are also a major threat.
Joshiba Boloki said this morning he's ridden the Tour 3 times, he's finished third twice. Last year he finished second to Lance Armstrong. He says, if I can't win it this year, I shall reassess my chances in the future, and I may never ride the race again. So this is a big attack for him.
It's a huge attack. He wants to attack Armstrong anywhere that he can, but the damage of the attack is incredible. He's caught the 2 leaders. He's number 1 on the road right now.
This is a superb attack by Joshiba Boloki, the man who could haunt Lance Armstrong. second to him last year. If he wins this stage, if he drops Lance Armstrong, he'll be one of the first men to do that for a few years.
He will be one of the first men to put Armstrong into difficulty. Armstrong didn't look like he was panicking there right now. He'd allowed the attack to develop. He was using his teammate Roberto Heras to the maximum of his advantage. He's got Heras up there alongside him. Iban Mayo is very comfortable. Tyler Hamilton is looking great. This man is going to ride high into the overall classification at the end of today. Armstrong is just sitting and waiting.
Well, look at the face to the right of Armstrong. Tyler Hamilton here. He's pulling out the performance of a lifetime on Alpe d'Huez. Where is the best place to do that in the Tour de France? It is right here. We're climbing it now for the 23rd time in this race. It has never failed to produce a dramatic finish. This rider here has said he doesn't want to ever finish second again in the Tour de France. He wants to win it. We didn't believe he had the legs to attack Armstrong. He has proved us wrong.
At 10 kilometers to go, Richard Virenque has already lost 2 minutes on the group containing Lance Armstrong. He's only got 37 seconds left to keep himself in the yellow jersey. He's going to lose it. I thought he'd keep hold of it. He's on the eve of Bastille Day, the 14 Juillet. The yellow jersey of Richard Virenque has popped, but right now Armstrong is being put under threat by Yoshiba Bolocki. He needs to pull him back before the summit.
Let's not forget too, our camera's staying with the likely projected final winner of the Tour de France, but there are still 2 riders leading the day in Astaloza and Didier Roos. Oh, sorry, they've already been passed by. It's all happening so fast on this climb. We're looking at Armstrong. I am beginning to think, Paul, I don't believe Armstrong is going as well as we thought, because this man is too proud to allow an attack.
He's too proud to allow an attack from Yoshiba Bolocki. He's always reacted to them in the past. This is the leader of the bike race. This is Richard Virenque. He's way down the course right now. He's being joined there by one of Jan Ullrich's teammates who's coming up alongside him. This, in fact, is Felix Garcia Casas. But Bolocki has now got a 12-second advantage over Armstrong. That is not a major panic. And in fact, Armstrong himself, Race Radio is telling me, Phil, has taken up the pacemaking himself.
He's got no choice now. He's used all of his teammates up. They're all due to fall behind. But look at Tyler Hamilton hanging on to the coattail of Armstrong as he continues with his broken collarbone. If he jumps out of the saddle, you'll see his face wince with pain. The doctors take him away at night. They examine him and tell him if he is doing any long-term damage. And he comes out of those examinations smiling.
Comes out of his examination smiling. He's got a joke for everybody. He's raised the morale of the team. I cannot believe the way he's sitting here on the shoulder of Lance Armstrong. And if you get a glimpse of his jersey there, which is open to try and keep him cool, he's got a bandage right across his broken clavicule, which is quite remarkable. Further down the road, though, this is Roberto Heras. He will try and ride himself back up to Armstrong to help him. But I think your question here, Phil, has been answered. Armstrong is slowly pulling himself back to the attack here of Yoshiba Bolocki.
Well, Yoshiba Bolocki is on the attack, and it's up to the others and Armstrong now to bring him back.
Yoshiba Bolocki now is being chased all the way to the line by Lance Armstrong, but what a remarkable performance by Tyler Hamilton. The man crashed. Bolocki is now 7 kilometers from the summit, and these people at the side of the road will support anybody. Armstrong is slowly but surely tickling away at the pedals. He's come closer to Yoshiba Bolocki. Bolocki had opened up an advantage of 12 seconds over Lance Armstrong, but Armstrong didn't worry at all. He used his teammates. He is such a master tactician. He allowed them to set the pace for as long as he could, and once they were no longer able to lift it to the pace that he wanted, he closed the race down completely. He has brought it all back together. The race now is made up of 4 riders. It's all together.
Paul, this is unbelievable. Armstrong won't remember this before, as the catch and comes the attack. Iban Mayo. Well, the great cyclist Pedro Delgado, who won the Tour de France in 1988, said to us yesterday, Mayo, he won't win the Tour de France. He might try for a stage win. I think he's found his legs. We've always talked about this man as a star of the future.
He's a star of the future, that's for certain. Armstrong is not too worried about him.
He won't react to Mayo just yet.
Not a problem. Mayo is a long way down in the overall classification, Phil. He's 6 minutes and 11 seconds down on Lance Armstrong. Armstrong was more worried about the tack coming from Yoshiba Bolocki. But what really amazes me is Tyler Hamilton. This boy is doing an unbelievable job. He's staying there in contact with the big guns of the Tour de France. And there's another move by Bolocki. Bolocki Beloki is trying again to get rid of Armstrong. Armstrong will react to this one, though. Now he has to react to every move that comes. Look at the time gap. This is the gap now between Iban Mayo and Armstrong. It's 10 seconds. It's 2 minutes and 22 seconds back to the group of Richard Virenque, and he does not... Oh, Hamilton's
I don't
gone.
believe it. Hamilton has gone this time. He's attacking Lance Armstrong. It hasn't worked. Armstrong's reacted. But Lockie also going. Once you have one attack, you have another. We've never seen a climb like this before.
We've never seen anybody attacking the leader quite as repetitively as this.
They believe he's vulnerable. They
do.
Actually believe Armstrong can be beaten.
The only way he can be beaten is if several riders attack him consistently over and over again. And that's what they've decided to do. That's what the big leaders of the Tour de France say that they will do to try and dislodge Armstrong from the top. You don't catch him out like that, though.
They are building from behind. We've never seen that before either, because by now Armstrong has finished off the opposition. It must be an indication that Lance is not in the condition of the previous years. And there's no doubt now, the riders around him, as somebody is going to... That's Vinokurov, I think. Alexander Vinokurov has had a move from the front. You see, they're sensing there is a chance to beat Armstrong.
They are going at him like an automatic rifle. It's bang, bang, bang. As soon as they feel they're slowing down, somebody else goes off the front end of the main group here with all of the challenges at the Tour de France. Alexander Vinokurov had felt that the tempo was slowing down a bit. This crowd is the most monumental crowd we've seen here at the Tour de France, at least since I've been coming anyway. They're all over the place, and they're encouraging everybody in this 100th anniversary of the Tour de France. Armstrong has been attacked today more than he's ever been attacked before. He's ridden a very defensive race so far in the Tour de France, and it may well be that he's not in one of his great days and he'll have to save it for the Pyrenees. But Iban Mayo is revealing to us that he is a star of the future. He has ripped up this climb right now. His legs are ticking over as if there is absolutely no effort. But Armstrong has been challenged by his men, by his rivals. Vinokurov is weaving his way through this huge tunnel of people and noise.
Iban Mayo, in his first Tour de France last year, finished a rather indistinct 88th place overall, but we know he's worth a lot more than that. This year, I think he's going to come of age. He won't take the lead today, but with 2 weeks to go, who knows? Because Armstrong is not the man of the last 4 years at the moment, and the riders will have searched that out better than any television commentator. This is now Roberto Laiseca, twice a stage winner of this race, and looking to weaken, but not chase down his teammate, who is running away to the victory just now. Go, Lance, go, says the clown on the left. Well, he's going, but not as well as he normally does.
He certainly is. And the one thing that Armstrong did over the summit of the Col du Galibier was put the pressure on, had his team set a very hard tempo. The reason they did that was to get rid of Jan Ullrich, but they've not got rid of Yoshiba Beloki. Beloki feels today may well be the big day for him to try and put Armstrong into difficulty. They've pulled back Tyler Hamilton in third position there in the red and white jersey. Hamilton has got a double fracture of the clavicule, but he's still hanging good in the front end of the Tour de France, which is absolutely remarkable. We're inside of 4 kilometers right now for Alexander Vinokurov. The race was toughened up by US Postal Service to see how the challenge were going to be to Lance Armstrong, but maybe Lance Armstrong himself is actually paying for all of the work that has been done by his team.
Further down the slopes, the new young Australian on the left in his first Tour de France, now told to look after the fallen race leader here in Richard Virenque. Michael Rogers from Canberra on the left is beginning to look like Australia's first ever future winner of the Tour de France. Now, yesterday we finished the stage in Morzine, and if we'd have realised what it really did tell us, because only a month ago to the day yesterday, he won a stage of a race here in France, beating Lance Armstrong. Now, a day after that, here he is running with the stage. He's got it surely, 3 kilometres from the line.
Inside of 3 kilometres to the line, he's got a massive advantage over Lance Armstrong. He's given us a serious demonstration on how to go rapidly up the Alpe d'Huez this afternoon, but this man has showed his courage too. He's had a great season this year. Let's not forget, he won Paris-Nice in the month of March, he won the Tour of Switzerland, and now he's trying to dethrone Lance Armstrong.
Yoshiba Beloki, who really set the rot in for the other riders on this climb when he launched an audacious attack on Lance Armstrong. Armstrong has controlled him, but the writing there, I think, is for all to see. As Ivan Basso has tagged on to the back, the tall, thin man in orange, teammate of the rider out front, that's Robert Laiseca, and Tyler Hamilton. I cannot believe that Hamilton is still there.
Hamilton is doing an absolutely phenomenal ride. He really has done well to stay in that group. Again, there's another attack coming, I think, at the front end of the group here. have a feeling that Lyseca has actually been dropped from this group and he's been replaced by Jaimar Zubeldia on the left-hand side. They're also dropped from this group is Francisco Mancebo.
Mancebo went about 500 meters ago from the tail. These 5 men now have come down to a little bit of sanity. I think Armstrong knows he's got what he sees as his main rival on his right shoulder there, Joshiba Boloki in the pink. He's lost another man he feared, Jan Ullrich. Ullrich has not come up with the goods today. He's found this mountain too difficult. This rider is absolutely flying away to the summit now, Iban Mayo. He's going to not take the lead yet, but if he could increase his lead as the race goes on, he would be a very popular man in the Pyrenees on the borders with northern Spain, which is where he lives.
Well, it's going to be a big festival down there, I think, when this team Euskaltel-Euskadi came. They've very often been brought into the Tour de France as a wild card, and the reason they're a wild card is because they will go out on the attack. The man recovering right now, Jan Ullrich, has ridden an unbelievable race here, Phil. He's trying to ride himself back up to the wheel of Lance Armstrong. Well, this is remarkable. The man at the front of the race, Iban Mayo, now has a 1-minute 45-second advantage over Alexander Vinokourov, who's almost a minute in front of Lance Armstrong. He started the day a minute 58 behind Armstrong. Armstrong's going to have to turn the gas up over the last 2 Ks.
Hamilton tried, just nudged a little then. Armstrong was on him straight away. Look at the face here. Jan Ullrich has never finished worse than second. Here goes Boloki. Another desperate move. Armstrong not a sign on his face of any effort. He's out of the saddle and he's straight onto the slipstream of Boloki.
And Hamilton's gone. Hamilton's been put in difficulty this time by that acceleration, but he's been brave, he's attacked. But right now, he will ride himself back up to Lance Armstrong if he can, as we go to 2 kilometers from the summit. This man is going through the part where the crowd is at its wildest. They're encouraging a man from Spain, from Euskaltel-Euskadi, to get himself the victory. Iban Mayo is the new kid on the block this year. He had hardly any wins when he went to the Tour of Pays Basqueville, and then he really opened up his account.
Here is Jan Ullrich, still struggling to limit his losses, but at 3 minutes 17, he'll have to think of a likely possible 3rd or 4th in Paris. He won't get much better than that now.
We're inside of Huez now, and very shortly this man will be able to see the final kilometre. He's picking up the pace all of the time. He has shown not 1 ounce of fatigue.
Up amongst the chalets of Alpe d'Huez now. The first time we came here, 1952, when the great Italian legend Fausto Coppi won. This has been one of the most magnificent climbs today. The riders have hit each other at every opportunity. These 4 have survived, and Lance Armstrong has been frankly magnificent. If he is having a bad day, well, he's made a pretty good job of it.
A bit further down the road here, you can just see Francisco Mancebo and, of course, Roberto Lyseca. The French hero, Christophe Moreau, he's a long way back, but battling to stay in contention. He's pulling himself up to the rear end of the cars, and I think he's about to make contact with Jan Ullrich. Ullrich just around the corner there, really today trying to keep himself in contact at the front end of the Tour de France. But what a glorious sight for a man who lives to climb. Iban Mayo sees the sign indicating he's at the final kilometre of the Alpe d'Huez.
1 kilometre, 1,000 meters, and it doesn't get much easier. There's a slight plateau, and then you climb gently up to the finish. There's a sharp left-hand turn just before the line. This has been a superb climb by this man. He's made it look so easy. He possibly knew that Armstrong, being hit by the other riders, would not counter his move, because so far he's lost just a little bit too much time, but he's gaining time now, and from tomorrow his number will be on Lance Armstrong's handlebars as a marked man.
He will be a marked man. He's always been a marked man. He lost all of his time in the team time trial. Well, his team did not really perform. They finished a long way down the overall classification, but this is a phenomenal performance. He's going to run out more than 2 minutes ahead of Lance Armstrong, and as a true professional, he's going to do up the jersey before he gets into the finishing straight. This will lose him a couple of seconds, but gain him a lot of publicity.
It's a big win for this team from the Basque-speaking area of northern Spain. This is the wonderful moment when you come alone to the summit of Alpe d'Huez. He's not the first Spanish rider to win here, but he's going to make sure everybody sees him. Time at this minute is not important when you're winning at the stage at Alpe d'Huez. It's all about the success. The 23rd time that the race has come to this mountain, and now we have this man, Iban Mayo, making the victory. The first Spaniard was Echeverri, and that was a few years ago. So up to the line now, nearly 6 hours today in the saddle. He's going to make the most of this. It always seems a long way to the finish. The other riders, though, are going to have to sprint it out. But the Spanish will enjoy this moment, and in particularly those who come from the Basque Country. They love their sport of cycling. This man now is an absolute hero back home.
An absolute hero. The man who's attacking, though, here further down the slopes is Alexander Vinokourov. He's inside the last kilometre as well, but I tell you one thing, he's not got very much more than about 20 seconds advantage over the group containing Armstrong, Beloki, Zubeldia and Tyler Hamilton. But it's been a glorious day for Euskaltel Euskadi. They have done what they wanted to do at the Tour de France, shine in the mountains. One day in the future, though, Phil, Iban Mayo is going to come back here to the Tour de France and think about overall victory. The group of Lance Armstrong has swelled over the last few kilometres. Mancebo has come back, so has Ivan Basso, number 81 on the right-hand side. And just getting onto the back end of the group there is the man Roberto Leisecker. What a great ride by him, and Zubeldia is there too.
Alexander Vinokourov started off with his second win in the first big race of the year from Paris down to Nice. He scored in the World Cup Classic Amstel Gold Race in Holland. That's their biggest one-day race, and now he's coming home in second place here. This is a good ride by Alexander Vinokourov. He could yet be a man for a place in Paris in 2 weeks. Looks very, very determined. Waited till they'd all attacked one another, chose his moment and went for it. He'd left it too late to catch Mayo, but look at the clock too. These are big time gaps. Mayo is moving up the overall classification tonight. Vinokourov heading up as the clock counts him down.
Well, it's a good move by Vinokourov. He's got himself an advantage over Armstrong. He's not done enough to get himself into the yellow jersey this evening because he started the day 1 minute and 58 seconds behind Lance Armstrong. And in fact, we're getting news that the yellow jersey is 8 minutes behind the leading riders. Armstrong and Yoshiba Beloki are in the finishing straight right now. Armstrong lining himself up in second place.
6 riders aren't supposed to come together on a climb like this, and Armstrong is determined now to take the 3rd place, and this is for the yellow jersey as well. He may have been beaten on the climb, but he will be the leader of the Tour de France. The American, and that's a matter of honour, I think, has taken 3rd place at about 2 minutes and 13 seconds.
And here are the hard facts of a dramatic final climb. Iban Mayo putting 1 minute 45 between himself and Alexander Vinokourov on Alpe d'Huez, and climbing at a full 2 minutes 12 faster than Lance Armstrong and the chasing group, which included Joseba Beloki and the heroic Tyler Hamilton. Another 1:24 behind Armstrong's group was Jan Ullrich. Not a terrible day for him, but certainly not a good one. David Miller came in 22nd, 6:09 behind Mayo. Once he caught his breath, he spoke to Ned Boulton.
David, yesterday you told us you had nearly died and you saw stars in your eyes and all that sort of thing. Same again today?
Yeah, today was probably worse, actually. No, I think it was really hard for everybody. Went hard from the gun, and just a long day, you know. And after yesterday as well, with the heat and the length of the stage, and those are the mountains don't get any bigger than they do today. So today was probably one of the hardest days for me. So I'm kind of, it's the first time I've gone up Alpe d'Huez, so I'm kind of happy it's done now.
Well, what is that like? I mean, it's unimaginable for those from the outside, but I mean, on the inside, what does it look like?
It's horrible. It's, I mean, it was good because there's so many people, you know, there's hundreds of thousands of people coming up Alpe d'Huez, but Christ, it's so much, it hurts so much. Really horrible.
9.5 minutes behind the winner was this morning's yellow jersey. Richard Virenque admitting that he knew it was pointless trying to match the pace of the front group today. But he was far from the worst off on the stage. Gilberto Simoni lost nearly 13 minutes. Santiago Botero, who's clearly now lost the leadership of the Telecom team to Alexander Vinokourov, was a colossal 42 minutes 19 seconds down. Iban Mayo, though, confirmed his status as a future Tour challenger. The future may be sooner than he thinks. He spoke to Matt Rendell.
Pero ha dejado la crema del ciclismo mundial detrás de usted.
Sí, eso sí, ¿no? Esto es un día para recordar y la verdad que para mí es un día muy grande y la verdad que estoy muy contento.
Pero Iban, ¿ahora qué?
A disfrutar esto y lo que venga, bienvenido será.
As Iban was led away to the tune of Que Sera Sera, Lance Armstrong was taking one of the less triumphant yellow jerseys of his Tour career. Ned spoke to him as he came off the podium.
Lance, you're wearing the yellow jersey, but that did look tough. You had to respond on several occasions.
Yeah, that was tough, that's for sure. Tougher than I expected, so I don't know. If it keeps going like that, it's going to be a long tour. But I think, you know, the first true day in the mountains is sometimes strange, and definitely didn't have it today, but I'll get better.
Now, Eben Mayo got away, but they were substantial challenges. It was enthralling to watch between Beloki there and Tyler Hamilton. Can you describe that battle from the inside?
Yeah, you know, I don't know really honestly what they're racing for, because, you know, letting a guy like Mayo just continue to go up the road, it endangers their chances for the classification as well. So if is the objective to ride the Tour de France, or is the objective to race against me? So in the future, you know, we need they have to be aware that you give a guy 2 or 3 minutes, it counts. And so, well, we'll see the later stages.
Whether that was the sound of a rattled man, we'll see over the next few days. As things stand, though, Armstrong has an advantage of 40 seconds over Joseba Beloki, with Mayo now up into third at 1 minute 10, and Vinokourov another 7 seconds back in fourth. Francisco Mancebo is fifth. Tyler Hamilton, attacking with a broken collarbone, is a phenomenal seventh, with Jan Ullrich now 2 minutes 10 adrift. This morning's race leader, Richard Virenque, is down to 18th now, with David Miller 22nd. The Giro winner, Gilberto Simoni, is now over 20 minutes in arrears, down in 47th, but the biggest bust of the race to date is Santiago Botero, over 48 minutes down and barely in the top 100 riders. By the way, after 2 days in the mountains, we are now down to 179 riders from the 198 who started. One final piece of ceremony before the day was filed in the Tour archives, a group shot of Alpe d'Huez winners up to and including today's. July the 14th, of course, is a day of national pride for the French, and understandably, they like to see that reflected in their national race. Unfortunately for them, their man Richard Virenque lost the yellow jersey yesterday to a rider from the non-French-speaking part of Texas. However, the big news wasn't Lance Armstrong taking the race lead. It was the relentless pressure he was put under on one of the great days in Alpe d'Huez history. There's the route, 184.5 kilometres, and the main feature of it is the massive Col du Izoard. One of 4 climbs on the route the Izoard is, but no uphill finish today. It's on the flat down here in Gap.
Just 15 seconds, the man from Kazakhstan has advantage over the group of Lance Armstrong, and today Armstrong has shown that he has no friends in this peloton. Nobody else has come to the front of the main field to help him out. 5 kilometers to go, around about 6.5 minutes at this speed, because we are touching speeds of 65 kilometers an hour. This is the lone leader of the Tour de France, the winner of the Amstel Gold Race in the early part of this season, but probably more impressively in March, the winner of Paris-Nice, and of course just a month ago the winner of the Tour of Switzerland. 1-0, 10 seconds is the advantage of Alexander Vinokourov. Unbelievable day. Nobody expected all of the big attacks to come on the small climbs towards the end. We've had 2 huge climbs in the early part of the race today. The Col de Lauterre, 38 kilometers of climbing, followed by the Col d'Izoard, 15 kilometers of climbing, but the 2 small climbs towards the end are where all of the action appears to have happened. Ooh, and he nearly lost his front wheel there going around the corner. A little twitch of the front wheel. He's taking a lot of risks here. He's only leading by 10 seconds. The difficult thing on a day like this is, in fact, the toe, and Beloki's near. Beloki's gone down. Armstrong's off the road as well. Armstrong, complete control there. He's into the field, but what a great bike rider. He's gone across. This is unbelievable. I've never seen this before. Armstrong went across the field there. He's back on the road at 4 kilometers to go. What great reflexes from the man from Texas. Tyler Hamilton coming along there, touching him on the shoulder. This is unbelievable. That man was in complete control there. Watch this again. This is Joseba Beloki locking up the back wheel. His tyre has come off. Armstrong has gone across. Alexander Vinokourov, I think, has gone down as well. This is unbelievable. Armstrong riding across the apex of... Oh, this is incredible. Armstrong is such a star. The yellow jersey of the Tour de France at 4 kilometers to go has in fact shown us that he's an unbelievable bike handler. Let's calm down. Beloki's down. Beloki's injured. He does not look good at all. Paul, sorry, Paul. Oh, he's down, he is hurt. I think he could very well be out of the Tour de France. What happened there, Phil, was he locked up his back wheel,
He had no
and as
chance.
he went sideways, the tyre popped off, and then he just couldn't control it. He was sliding on the metal.
It was
he
the
went
hot tar.
off the road. But what about Armstrong? Armstrong was unbelievable. He saw there was only one thing to do. There was only one place to go. I hope the judges don't penalise him for taking a shortcut.
The thought did cross my mind, but this is a very, very sad sight. We have been watching the greatest Tour de France for years, and here Vinokurov is racing now, probably towards the stage win, and they're closing in. He's certainly up to second place overall. Bolocki, because I was telling you seconds before it happened how dangerous the loose bitumen with the sun melting the tar was, and then he was out of control. But I have a feeling that Bolocki has either broken his collarbone or his pelvis. He fell very, very badly.
But that chaos has given the advantage now to Alexander Vinokurov. He is 30 seconds ahead of the group of Armstrong, and now Armstrong has found a few allies because the other challengers now have decided to come forward, set the pace making. Tyler Hamilton, Iban Mayo, Haimar Zubeldia on the far side in the lime jersey there, but at the back, further back, I think it's the end of Yoshiba Bolocki. Started the day in second. He's not going to finish the Tour de France.
Jose Azevedo there is asking, shall I go on? What shall I do? He's waiting here to pass Georgiatsk as well with him. The man of the here of the day staying. He can't believe what he's seeing. As we move forward now, it looks as though Yoshiba Bolocki is out of the Tour de France. That, for us, is a terrible, terrible shame, not to mention what it means to Bolocki, because it was the fault of the melting tar on the road. Lance Armstrong took the journey of a lifetime. I cannot believe what he did there to get across, but he's back in the race.
It just goes to show it does a lot of good riding cyclocross, which Armstrong does in the winter, and of course riding mountain bikes as well, because that decision was unbelievable. He never panicked. He knew exactly what he had to do. He looked at the road in front of him and thought, I can go there, and he did.
And he
this
didn't
man
even
now
get a flat
inside
tyre.
the last kilometre.
Well,
let's get back to the race.
Indeed, indeed. 1 kilometre to go. Alexander Vinokurov is looking where they all are, and the answer is they're in a rather, to say the least, big trouble now, as Vinokurov is running down here to win the stage and to move into second place. It is touch and go whether indeed he will take the leader's yellow jersey. This is a man riding his 4th Tour de France. He's never finished lower than 35th overall, but he's never won a stage until today. Now, whatever happened behind him wasn't his fault. This is a well-deserved stage win. He worked so hard for it as he comes to the line.
He won't take the yellow jersey because the yellow jersey group of Lance Armstrong is under the Flamme Rouge already themselves. They can't be very much more than 30 seconds behind. What's important for Vinokurov, though, Phil, is the stage victory. He's digging deep right now. He'll move up in the overall classification to second place. But what a dramatic stage.
He raced right to the line there as he waves and swings the baby, but Alexander Vinokurov takes the stage with a brilliant late attack. But here comes the sprint now for second place, and Yoshiba Bolocki is not in it, and that is a terrible, terrible shame. Now the seconds are ticking away. Nearly 20 have passed by. He gets 20 for the win. They've got to finish it off inside 30 seconds. Otherwise, here comes Paolo Bettini. In this sort of a group, they'll never get near the champion of Italy. Bettini, Lance Armstrong knows the bonus may prove extra special here. As Bettini goes for third place, he gets it on the line. The third place will be taken by Iban Mayo, and he gets the bonus. About 40 seconds was the gap, Paul, and a 20-second win bonus. He will keep his yellow jersey, but we are talking of a few seconds now.
Well, while Armstrong was preserving his race lead, the man who'd started the stage in second place was still being helped to his feet and into the ambulance that would take him out of the Tour. Georgi Aksa and Jose Azevedo, the teammates who'd stopped to pace their leader back into the race, had been forced to leave him, still coming to terms with the fact as they crossed the line.
Jörg, did you get a clear view of the accident?
No, didn't see.
You stopped for Joseba to give him a hand. Did you say anything to him?
No. He was on the floor. He was on the street and crying. So better don't say anything.
As we see the crash again, it seems as though it's perhaps the sticky road surface half melted in the heat that catches Bolocki out. He comes agonisingly close to righting himself before finally going down. And then Armstrong, with nowhere else to go, is riding on reflex and muscle memory from cyclocross. Now, at a certain point, he obviously could have stopped and turned back, but he continues through the farmer's field, which could so easily, of course, have been a dense wood or a steep drop, and cuts the corner. Now, technically, that's a breach of the rules, but it didn't take the race commissaires long to look at it and reach a verdict.
They say you always have to follow the right course, but of course he couldn't do anything for that, and we don't do anything on this point because it was not his fault. He couldn't do anything for that. It was the crash of Belocchi, and there was only one possibility for him, it was to go down, and then he followed the race, also no problem.
First of all, the incident from our point of view is extraordinarily dramatic. How did it look from where you were?
Well, it was dramatic for me being on the bike. I didn't expect that to happen, and you can't train for that, so it's just a reaction, and you get off. When you see something like that happening, the first thing you do is you say, okay, where am I going to go? And I couldn't make it to the right. I couldn't go over him, and so I could only go left. And so when I went left, I was looking left, and then I found a little path there into the field and just continued on.
Presumably at the time you had no idea what had happened to Joseba Belocchi, and now that we know the injuries are quite serious, how does that make you feel?
No, it's like I said a minute ago. I mean, he was racing the race and racing aggressively. I mean, we were both he and I were both riding on the front to bring back Vino. It was at 20 seconds at the top. We got it down to 15 and then down to 10. So we were, looked like we were going to bring him back. So you hate to see a guy who's out there, doing his best and a real threat for the race to go down like that.
Is Vino now a real threat for the race?
He's appearing to be.
As a former mountain biker, did it bring back memories?
I don't know. Maybe as a former farmer, it brought back memories.
Thanks very much.
Of course, overshadowed in all the drama and sadness of Belocchi's fall was a brilliant stage win by Alexander Vinokourov. The Kazakh has had a brilliant season so far, and there's every sign of it getting better as the Tour goes on. He put 36 seconds between himself and the rest with that late attack and picked up a 20-second bonus for winning the stage. Lance Armstrong was edged out of the sprint for the third-place bonus, so Vinokourov's win was worth the best part of a minute. Jan Ullrich lost no more time today, finishing with that lead group. David Miller, after his excursion off the front, came in a minute 47 down.
Yeah, I slightly misread the profile. I thought it went up that climb, descended, then went up the next one. I didn't realise I had so much flat and headwind. So, a bit of a tactical error.
Well, despite his mistake, David moves up 3 places to 19th tonight in the general classification, but the big move is Alexander Vinokourov's. He took time off Armstrong on Alpe d'Huez, he's taken more today, and as a result, he's in second place now, 21 seconds behind the leader. Ivan Mayo, Francisco Mancebo, Tyler Hamilton and Jan Ullrich round out the top 6. So yesterday, Lance Armstrong took the yellow jersey on a day of high drama in the Tour. Today, he keeps the yellow jersey on a day just as dramatic. After the Alps, there was the relative calm of 2 days on the flat, both finishing in cities that had hosted stages of the first race in 1903, Marseille and Toulouse. And with a special prize on offer for the most consistent finisher in the original Tour towns, the breakaways were coming thick and fast.
Now looking at the home straight, in the distance is the kilometre, a bit further on is the finish. This would have been a wonderful finish for the likes of Baden, Cook and Robbie McEwen, but they are 20-odd minutes back in the main pack. It is just 2 men on this wide open boulevard. That was a nice gesture.
Brilliant. That just goes to show the solidarity of these professional bike riders.
The fact they've done that, they might go side by side and have a pure sprint.
Well, you don't see that very often.
Just look at this again.
That is quite remarkable. That's what men did in the old days of cycling. They would work together until the finish, and then they will drag strip and not try and outmaneuver each other. And it's going to be a great finish. And one man, unfortunately, after a 125-mile breakaway, has to lose.
Well, I've never seen that before, apart from the infamous one a couple of years ago when Lance Armstrong shook hands with Jan Ullrich at the top of Luz Ardiden. The mountains were behind them, and Ullrich was acknowledging Armstrong was going to go to Paris as the winner. But that was a really nice gesture from Sacchi to Jakob Piel. Now they're approaching the last 1,000 metres. Just look at the crowd here. All of France is watching the Tour de France this year, I think. And now I was just wondering if they were just going to go side by side and race it out, but it looks as though Sacchi is now waiting. And it looks as though Jakob Piel is having a quick word with his team manager there to know what to do. He's got a little race radio transmitter under his racing jersey.
What to do? That is so difficult in a situation like this. They've got plenty of time to play with. They don't actually have to worry about a return of the chasers. The last time check we got back to Bram de Groot was 1 minute and 7 seconds, and almost 2 minutes back to the remnants of the breakaway, which is still 5 riders, and 23 minutes back to the main field. On the front, it's Jakob Pyle. This is a nervous moment. He's right up against the barriers right now. He's making sure that the wind doesn't have any effect on the sprint towards the line. He's looking, he's waiting for the shadow. He's waiting for the sound of the whistle coming from the acceleration of the tyres of Fabio Sacchi in second position.
He's got to go sooner or later, and it's just like you're in a velodrome here, high on the banking, because the rider on the front is just turning his neck to wait for the move and hope he can beat him by a fraction of a second. But here it comes, and I don't think he's got a chance. He's gambling on a quick release as he comes up to his back wheel, a quick deep breath, and then can he take him? Fabio Sacchi is racing to what would certainly be the biggest result of his life, but watch out, Jakob Pyle is finding the legs to the line, and that is a tremendous result for Jakob Pyle. He did turn on the style, he led to the line, he forced Sacchi to make the move, and Jakob Pyle has got the win for Denmark and for the Tour de France winner of 1996, Bjarne Riis, because he manages the team.
Jakob, congratulations, mate. That was fantastically close, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
You've caught your breath now. What about that gesture 1.5 kilometers from the end where he offered you his hand?
Yeah, but that's because we sprint for it and we worked hard for it. Made the best man win.
You've done well to hold your own there. You saw him, he was on your tail for so long. That was close.
Yeah, but I felt I had the best leg in the end, so I was pretty confident.
In third place, it's going to go to Bram de Groot.
Bram de Groot of Holland, Rabobank team, of course, ripped apart from the very first road race stage with the loss of the American Levi Leipheimer and Mark Lotz with serious injuries in the race, and that mass pile-up out at Mo. Gaumont will go next. Watch Philippe Gaumont on the left here. He's really on the rivet, but he's having a go for anything he can get. A fourth place finish in the Tour will be great for him. But here comes Damian Nazon. He'll be kicking himself now, the fastest finisher of the group, a pure sprinter, this man, and he had a great chance at winning the stage. He's throwing it away. Hasselbacker's going to try and run him to the line, but no. Nazon, Hasselbacker, Philippe Gaumont as they come over the line.
So there's the result. Jakob Pyle winning on guile more than pure speed from Fabio Sacchi, with Bram de Groot 9 seconds behind them, and Damian Nazon comfortably winning the sprint for fourth from the survivors of the original breakaway group. But before Pyle could take the podium, he had a 20-minute wait for the rest of the field.
And you can see now the boys in white are trying to lead out. Baden Cook also trying to get involved is Freddy Rodriguez as well, his team. The green jersey, though, of Baden Cook is having to launch this one now. David Miller looks as though he's going to give a perfect lead out here to Bradley McGee as they head up towards the line now. It is David Miller of Britain doing the lead out, followed by Bradley McGee and followed by the green jersey of Baden Cook. Now Robin McEwen is going to have to profit from this. There is McEwen still dodging amongst the wheels, wanting to keep riders away from him. Eric Zabel is also there, and McGee looked to see who punched him. Then it was Eric Zabel who pushed him out the way. Zabel is still on the wheel of Freddy Rodriguez. This is going to be, in fact, I think that is Roman Weinstein who's got back there. But as they lead towards the line, 300 metres to go now. This is the final lead out for Baden Cook, and Zabel has got Baden Cook's wheel. And then comes McEwen is on the left. Cook is making determined finish, but look at Robbie McEwen as he puts it to the line. McEwen and Cook, and I don't know how they are going to split them.
Well, when they were split, the decision went to Baden Cook, who picked up the 16 points on offer for 10th place. Robbie McEwen got 15 for 11th, and he now trails Cook by 9 points in the race for the green jersey. All the big names, Armstrong included, finished in the bunch, along with the Tour's new freelance lead-out man, David Miller. Afterwards, we asked him what on earth he was playing at.
Well, Macca and Cookie are two of my best friends, so I thought, you know, why not?
So you'd work for someone else for the final few hundred metres?
I was holding 70 k's an hour on that straight. Probably one of the fastest lead-outs I've ever had. So with me and Macca, they don't come any faster. Me and Macca leading out guys, so yeah, it was good fun. I enjoyed it.
Well, with a bit of luck, some of David's excess energy will find its outlet in a stage win before the end of the Tour. Today, though, was Jakob Pyl's day, although right up until the last 100 metres, just about everybody at the finish had their money on Fabio Sacchi. Afterwards, he spoke to Matt Wrenn.
Fabio, a 1500 metri dalla linea avete toccato mani, perché?
Ma è un gesto che io ho voluto fare di ringraziamento anche a Phil, che siamo andati d'accordo fino all'arrivo e per dimostrare a tutto il mondo che il ciclismo è un vero sport di amicizia e non solo di quello che parlano male, e con questo penso di aver rimasto tanto.
E non sei troppo deluso, quindi?
La delusione sono altre cose nella vita. Ciao.
Well, that might have been Saki's only chance to win a stage, and just for the record, this man has yet to win one himself. He's leading the race though, and looking forward to the time trial on Friday to open his account. A classic away day in the Tour then, one that has absolutely no impact on the overall standings. It's still Armstrong from Vinokourov by 21 seconds, then Iban Mayo, Francisco Mancebo, Tyler Hamilton and Jan Ullrich. David Miller remains 19th, while Jakob Peel's day out moves him up 30 spots into a menacing 103rd place, an hour and 12 minutes behind Armstrong.
This man has 1,000 metres to go for what will not only be his biggest victory, but probably the biggest surprise for the Iban Esto team. It is a superb result here for Juan Antonio Flecha.
Still looking very good. You see him just looking underneath his arm there. He was looking to see if there were any shadows behind him. The red car is the referee's car. He looks back. He's a true professional. He wants to make sure that nobody's going to make a surprise comeback, and he's still got a lot of power in those legs, but he is worried about the return of the rest of the group behind him. He's still got 15 seconds advantage over Nozal, the Spanish chaser.
When is 1,000 metres longer than 1,000 metres? When you're riding the Tour de France and winning your own, but the peloton chasing you down, or the bunch of riders in this case, he is checking, because he's got no more speed left in those legs, and that banner, will it ever come towards him here? Because he wants a long time to enjoy himself. I feel pretty sure of that. This is a wonderful victory for Spain and for Juan Antonio Flecha. There's the bunch behind, they're still coming at him, but he's starting to smile. That is still Nozal, who's coming up behind there. I think he's going to hang on, but he still needs to do it. It is going to be a very, very difficult finish, as this is the moment of celebration, the biggest win of his life. He turned professional in the year 2000. Look at that. Straight as an arrow as Bram de Groot comes clear, third into Marseille, he's getting closer, second into Toulouse, ahead of Nozal, and then comes the race. Then comes the race for fourth. This will be the Cofidis rider, who is finishing Inigo Cuesta. He's normally a climber as well. There's the pack coming at them. Da Cruz finishes off, taking on O'Grady. He's beat him every day, and it makes no difference. He's beat him again at the line. Now the lead-out men here, the boys in green, but here comes the white jersey of Bradley McGee. Now we're looking for the green jersey of, and it's on the far right of Baden Cook. He wants the 9th place finish for the big points, shoulder to shoulder with McEwen. These two riders, and McEwen got it this time. Revenge is sweet for Robbie McEwen. He pips him on the line, the big three, Paul, because Zabel was right behind him, and they're in the pack, safe and sound. All of his 21 seconds now will go to the time trial tomorrow with Lance Armstrong, still the leader of the Tour.
Juan Antonio Flecha, though, is the winner of the stage, ahead of Bram de Groot and Isidro Nozal, with Stuart O'Grady a disappointing 6th on a day he must have fancied his chances. Flecha, as the linguists among you all know, is Spanish raro, and if he hadn't been concentrating on getting his celebration right, his winning margin would have been comfortably more than 4 seconds. The archery demonstration also meant that the main pack were only 42 seconds behind him in the end, with Robbie McEwen edging out Baden Cook for the 9th place and trimming Cook's lead in the green jersey competition by 1 point to 8. The most disappointed man of the day was Toulouse resident Stuart O'Grady, who seemed to be the victim of a conspiracy in the break, and his defeat capped a miserable day for Crédit Agricole, who lost 2 riders as well as the stage. Jens Voigt we saw abandon out on the road, while Stéphane Ogier came in outside the time limit, along with Matthew Wilson of FDJ.com. Tobias Steinhauser of Bianchi also abandoned to bring the day's casualty list to 4. It was a big day for Spain, though, 2 days ahead of schedule. The Spanish flags will be out in the Pyrenees, and possibly now a couple of giant inflatable arrows. After he came off the podium, Juan Antonio Flecha stopped for a word.
Et je dédie ma victoire à toute mon équipe, parce que ça c'est mon première victoire du Iban Esto dans cette équipe, et je dédie ça à tout le monde de mon équipe, à Massajo, à tous. C'est incroyable parce que mon copine travaille ici, à Toulouse, et bon, c'est la victoire plus belle de ma vie. C'est ma marque pour les victoires. J'ai fait 2 fois, ça c'est la 3e. Et je crois que pour le Tour du Centenaire, je devrais faire ça.
What a nice thought. Certainly Lance Armstrong will have appreciated Juan Antonio taking the strain for a day as he and the other contenders rested their legs for tomorrow's time trial, because his win leaves the top of the classification completely untouched. So, coming into stage 12, Lance was leading the race without actually having won a stage, and you could argue that he owed the yellow jersey pretty much entirely to the strength of his US postal team. His advantage over Alexander Vinokourov, remember, was just 21 seconds, with Spain's Iban Mayo third, just over a minute back, and Francisco Mancebo and Tyler Hamilton rounding out the top 5, both within 2 minutes of the race lead. However, take away the result of the team time trial on stage 4, and things would look substantially different. Iban Mayo would be leading the race thanks to his heroics on Alpe d'Huez. Vinokourov, who also took time from Armstrong in the Alps, would be second, and the man himself would be third, 2 minutes 20 off the pace. Now, of course, all that's hypothetical, because if the team time trial hadn't been ridden, then perhaps Armstrong would have behaved very differently in the mountains. However, it makes fascinating reading, and we should have a fascinating stage today. Armstrong, as leader, will go off last, so he'll have all his rivals' split times in his earpiece, and among those rivals may well be Britain's David Miller. Well, this is the course he'll have to win over if he's going to do it. 47 hilly kilometres from Gaillac to Cap Découverte. Well, the best early time, and it was early, was set by Uwe Peschel of Gerolsteiner. He was the 16th man to go and came in with a time of 1 hour, 1 minute and 58 seconds.
Well, the battle is still between the men at the end of the start house today. Alexander Vinokourov was second overall, still is second overall, but he could concede that to Jan Ullrich. We're waiting now for the arrival at Ullrich at 33.5 kilometres. And Alexander Vinokourov is holding off, remember, fancy starting and having a rider like Lance Armstrong chasing you just 2 minutes back. It's a sobering thought. Here is Ullrich now heading up to the check at 33.5 kilometres. Zubeldia has set the best time here at the moment of 42 minutes and 20 seconds.
Yeah, but Jan Ullrich was 26 seconds faster at the first time check, just 13 kilometres into the race. Ullrich started a minute 59 seconds behind Vinokourov in second place and 2 minutes 10 seconds behind Lance Armstrong. And look at this as he comes up there. The time to beat is 42.20. Well, he's a long way inside that.
Ouch. This is going to be very difficult. Zubeldia is done 42.20. Armstrong has eaten him on the road here. Unbelievable. This is an incredible performance by, I beg your pardon, Jan Ullrich has eaten him, and he goes through with a new standard set there, Paul. 40.28. Unbelievable ride there for Jan Ullrich. Now, has Lance Armstrong kept up a similar tempo? So it looks to me as though Vinokourov is catching Iban Mayo here, and that's Mayo just ahead of him. That's going to give him an incentive.
There's a great incentive. That's the important thing about an individual time trial. If you can bridge the gap to your minute man, or in the Tour de France, it's your 2 minute man, it's almost like having a carrot in front of a donkey. You can just dig that little bit deeper into your reserves, and he will be very pleased with his performance here to have come across to this man who many see as a great rival for a top 3 position. But today, he is losing 2 minutes already before we get to the finishing line to Alexander Vinokourov.
Lance Armstrong is losing to Jan Ullrich as he comes through the checkpoint here at 33.5 kilometres. Armstrong is going to go through in second best time for sure. Now, how wise was he, Paul, to get rid of Ullrich on Alpe d'Huez? Because it could mean the difference today between seeing his yellow jersey go to the German and not. Armstrong coming up to the line. The time of Vinokourov is 41.30. Lance is going to beat that. 41.08.
48.8 kilometres an hour. He's lost 39 seconds over Jan Ullrich at the moment. And we discussed the tactics on the day to the Alpe d'Huez when Armstrong used his team to take up the pace on the slopes of the Col du Galibier and then accelerated rapidly at the start of the Alpe d'Huez. The reason was, one, to get rid of this man. This was the man he's feared more than anybody else in the Tour de France. Jan Ullrich is an unbelievable individual time trialist. He might be a bit limited in the mountains, but he'll gain confidence with this ride. He's still riding up to the line. It's an awful long way when you come into that final corner. He will be able to see on the finishing line the digital clock indicating the time that he has to beat. The one underneath is his own time, and he will realize that he's put in a sterling performance today. New best time for Haimar Zubeldia, 1:01:12.31.
Hamilton losing a bit of ground there, by the way, to Zubeldia. Was ahead of him, has now slipped 2 seconds behind him, but this is the big finish now of Jan Ullrich. And now, have we got a man who can take on Lance Armstrong in the Pyrenees? He's certainly done it in the time trial. This is an absolutely incredible ride. We have ridden 47 kilometers, almost 30 miles, and over terrain that you really wouldn't ride without getting out of the saddle. And this man is going to break the hour. Jan Ullrich comes to the line inside 1 hour for 47 kilometers. Look at his face. This has been a special day out for Jan Ullrich. He's won 4 time trial stages of the Tour de France in his career. This could be his 5th. Ullrich drives up the straight here now. He's going to beat the hour. 58:32.92. Now, Lance, it's all up to you.
Here's Tyler Hamilton right now, 4th at the final time check out on the road, but right now he's looking to keep himself well up in the top 10, and he's finished very fast as well. He's going to be outside the hour though, but still this is a great ride by the man from the United States.
It certainly is, because he was yo-yoing with Zubeldia, and he might well have taken him here with a fine effort. 2 seconds behind him at the last check. It's been a tough ride up and down with Zubeldia, but Hamilton putting in a big ride for home here. He's risen to the occasion, that's for sure. He's got 3rd place. He's just slipped behind at the last minute, 1:01.15.
These times are remarkable, but look at the speeds as well. 46 kilometers an hour for Tyler Hamilton. This man said he wanted to stay in the Tour de France to help his teammate Carlos Sastre, but right now he's #1 on the team. But he's not #1 in the overall standings, because that, at the end of the day, is almost certainly going to remain on the shoulders of Lance Armstrong. But what a great ride and what a great return to the top by Jan Ullrich. Armstrong has gone through there, Phil, and a remarkable time gap already. He's 1 minute and 9 seconds behind Jan Ullrich at 41.5 kilometers covered.
Well, we better start looking at the overall situation now, because let us not forget that Jan Ullrich was 2 minutes and 10 seconds behind, and Lance Armstrong has now lost 1 minute and 9. It's going to be very, very close. And, you know, the 21-second that Vinokurov had at the start, there could be still a 21-second gap, and it could be Jan Ullrich there now. We have to remember that less than 40 seconds is all that Lance Armstrong has recovered from Alexander Vinokurov. And that tells us that Lance isn't riding as well as he usually does. Here is the rider of Mancebo coming in. He's still right up there in single figures for the ride for the day. And this is a good climber, remember, as we go into the Pyrenees. These aren't the usual Pyrenees on this year's Tour de France. We are there for 4 days. These are real tough climbs ahead. For strong men, they will have a field day in the Tour de France. This has been an incredible race this year, thanks to the riding of about 6 riders.
It's been an incredible race, and it will continue to be an incredible race, because we're facing up now to 4 very difficult days in the mountains. The Spanish will go ballistic when we get down to the Pyrenees, because it is right on the border of their country, and this man will be fairly pleased with this ride. But look at the time that he's lost. That's almost 5 minutes on the line for Francisco Mancebo.
Swinging in towards the finishing straight, he was closing in all the time on Mancebo. And remember that Vinokurov also caught the rider who went off ahead of him, Iban Mayo. And this is really a tight finish for Alexander Vinokurov. He has had one of the rides of his life here. He's not going to win. He probably is just going to sneak into top 3 if he can sprint. At the moment, in 3rd place is Hamilton with 1:1:15, and he's going to beat that. This has been an outstanding ride here by Alexander Vinokurov. He is going to stay a challenger in the Tour de France. Hats off to him. To have Armstrong behind you and the crowd looking at you in 2nd place, he has pulled off one of the greatest time trials he's ever done, and it's going to stay 2nd at the moment and will probably be good enough to take 3rd on the day. Listen to the crowd, look at his face, 1:00:38.
We're now looking at Iban Mayo coming up to the line. Let's not forget Iban Mayo started ahead of Alexander Vinokurov. He is losing quite a fair amount of time on the roads of this 47-kilometer time trial today, but he will be pleased tomorrow, because we're going into the big mountains, the mountains of the Pyrenees, which this team will certainly adopt as their own.
Iban Mayo comes up to the line now. He's conceding time almost, well, just on 3 minutes he's conceding to Vinokurov. Remember, the Vinokurov caught him for 2, and he's now conceding almost another 1.5 here as he races up to the line. So, Mayo, not noted as a time trialist, but he is great in the mountains, and he crosses the line 11th.
Good ride here is Armstrong right now. He was on the tailcoats of Iban Mayo. He's accelerated towards the finishing line. He's not going to beat Jan Ullrich. Look at the time, 58.32. Armstrong is well outside of that. But you know what, Phil? This is not a man who is weak. This is not a man who is giving up, but he's actually fighting to keep himself in the yellow jersey. He will do that without too much of a problem. But Jan Ullrich is going to be within 1 minute of Lance Armstrong in the overall classification tonight.
But nobody has broken the hour except Jan Ullrich for the ride today. Armstrong has made a race of this. It's been a huge struggle for him. 1 hour and 8 seconds as Lance Armstrong crosses the line. He will keep his leader's yellow jersey, but he is yet again reminded he is in the toughest scrap of any Tour de France he has ever won.
Not to mention the most exciting that many of us have ever seen. Only Lance Armstrong's second defeat in 8 long time trials. The other was by 11 seconds. Today, Jan Ullrich was a minute 36 faster than the defending champion, with Alexander Vinokurov turning in a brilliant ride himself to place 3rd, ahead of Aymar Zubeldia, Tyler Hamilton, the early leader Uwe Peschel, and David Miller. Well, he's beaten Armstrong to the first stage win of this year's Tour. Can he use that as a springboard to beat him overall? Afterwards, Jan Ullrich was weighing his words.
Ein Sieg ist immer gut, und ich bin hergekommen, um eine gute Tour zu fahren, und jetzt habe ich meinen Etappensieg, und ich habe im Zeitfahren noch nie Lance Armstrong geschlagen bei der Tour, und jetzt in meinem Comeback-Jahr, wo ich eigentlich als Vorbereitung machen wollte für nächstes Jahr, gelingt es mir, und das war einfach, also ich bin sprachlos. Morgen fangen die Pyrenäen an. Ich denke mal, Pyrenäen ist das Highlight der Tour, weil es einfach so schwer ist. 4 Tage, ganz schwer. Und jetzt genieße ich erstmal heute, denke noch gar nicht an morgen, weil ja, es ist alles möglich. Dieses Jahr ist alles möglich.
So here's what today has done to the overall standings. Ullrich up into second place, 34 seconds behind Armstrong. Vinokurov fighting his bike to the finish to limit his losses, 51 seconds down. Then it's Tyler Hamilton, now 4th with a broken collarbone, and Aymar Zubeldia tied with his teammate Iban Mayo at 4 minutes 29 off the race lead, just ahead of another Spanish climber, Francisco Mancebo.
Well, what we are witnessing is one of the greatest tours for many, many years. When we lost Joshiba Bolocki on the road to Gap, we thought we'd lost a big slice of the interest in this year's tour. And the opposite has been true. This really is a great race. Now, the next question is, can Jan Ullrich take away those 15 seconds and become the next leader of the tour? The race now continues in the Pyrenees.
It's stage 13, the first of 4 very nasty days climbing in the Pyrenees, and it finishes up here at the ski station of Aix-les-Trois-Domaines. Now, just to underline the importance of yesterday's time trial win by Jan Ullrich, let's have a before and after look at the standings. Going into that stage, he was 6th, 2 minutes 10 seconds behind Armstrong. Coming out of it, he was up to 2nd and trailing by only 34 seconds. Now, of course, Ullrich isn't the only man that Armstrong has to worry about on that leaderboard. There's Alexander Vinokurov in 3rd place, who attacked him effectively in the Alps, Tyler Hamilton in 4th, and then a trio of very dangerous Spaniards, Aymar Zubeldia, Iban Mayo and Francisco Mancebo, all of whom can climb well and all of whom should have massive support up here in the Pyrenees on the Spanish border. However, the reason that Armstrong needs to worry most about Ullrich is simple. There's another big individual time trial coming up a week today, and he simply can't afford to go into it with a lead of just 34 seconds. If he does, there's every chance that Ullrich will take the yellow jersey off him the day before Paris, leaving Armstrong no time to take it back. And Lance will have a bit of time to think about it on today's stage, because there's a fair old ride from Toulouse before the riders hit the climbs. Having driven it, I can tell you they'll be able to see the Pyrenees, though, looming from a long way away. There are a couple of sprints before they get there, then 2 first category climbs, the Port de Paillere, 1 metre over the 2,000 mark, and after the descent into Aix-les-Thermes, the final climb up to Aix-Trois-Domaines.
Massive crowd now cheering through the first three riders on today's stage of the Tour de France. Rubiera, Sastre and Mercado. But there's going to be an enormous cheer when the yellow jersey of Lance Armstrong and Jan Ullrich comes through, and Alexander Vinokourov. All of the leaders, Hamilton, Zubeldia, Mayo, Mancebo, Basso, Menchov, Murrow, Heras, Tocznik, Beltran, they are all in the group behind, every one of them. And don't forget, Laurent Dufaux is still trying to bridge the gap. The last time check, 36 seconds, but he's going to have to bridge now on the climb because the three leaders have just started.
2 minutes and 5 seconds back to the yellow jersey group, containing nearly all of the pre-race favourites. This man too getting rid of the helmet. He's got a hard chase to try and pull himself back up to the three leaders, and the three leaders are no slouches at all when it comes to climbing, because Rubiera, Mercado and Sastre are amongst some of the best climbers the world has to offer. Rubiera, by the way, has won a couple of stages in the Giro d'Italia, so he's not a bad climber. To get so high up in the overall classification just goes to show that you are a man capable of rivaling anybody in the mountains. And in fact, a couple of years ago he finished 8th overall in the Giro and backed that up with an 11th overall finish in the Vuelta a España.
Now, will they push it hard at the bottom, because it gets hard pretty quickly, this climb? And you've seen that Dufaux now, helmetless too, is now starting to ride very quickly a bit lower down. A very talented climber. Surely Rubiera is exhausted by now. Here we are over the river down below, the 14 just men, and two riders now from US Postal, Heras and Beltran, have got themselves back into position. As off come the helmets to the helpers. It must be pretty good to catch three at the same time, as they now begin their assault of the climb.
Well, this group has swelled quite a bit after the last few kilometres of that climb. In fact, the pressure was turned off somewhat when the big leaders like Armstrong, Vinokourov and Ullrich saw that they were not getting the time gaps between their challengers. So I think they just slowed the tempo and waited for a showdown on this first big mountaintop finish on the slopes of the Pyrenees. That is Christophe Moreau, the best Frenchman at the back, and there's the summit indicated at 9 kilometres from here. That's 5.5 miles uphill, and it's around about an average gradient of 7.8%. At the back here, this is Patrice Algon, and he's the leader of the Jean de la Tour team. Beltran now picking up the pacemaking.
Heras going, sorry Paul, Heras is starting to go here. Now, he's been hovering off the back. This has got to be 100% effort and then move over.
This is not. This is 110% for Roberto Heras. He's had an unbelievably difficult time this afternoon. He's been off the back on several occasions, and Armstrong has asked him to come forward. He will give everything that he can. This man is lying in 11th place in the overall classification, and the first acceleration has said goodbye to Georg Tocznik, the Austrian champion. It's also said goodbye to the two Jean de la Tour riders. That's Patrice Algon going out at the back there, and the other rider is Stéphane Hubert. Also, the champion of France has popped because of the pressure.
Well, that was a cruel acceleration, and it looks to me as though Heras might have gone. No, it's Beltran.
It's Beltran.
Beltran has gone, but well, it's bad news, but surely he couldn't have had any more strength left. He was so good on the last climb. But again, the team has tried their best, and it has not worked here. Armstrong has still got all of the men he hoped to get rid of sitting right behind him.
Mancebo on the left-hand side there. Richard Virenque is just out of the saddle in that strange gangly style of his, trying to stay in contact with this group. Beltran has done a sterling job this afternoon for Lance Armstrong, and now all he can do is just ride to the summit as best as you can. There you are. Well done. Thank you very much. Now it's all up to you just to stay in the bike race.
I always amaze at how these boys get to the finish when they've done what they have done in the terms of helping their team leader, and he's still got to ride home himself. His legs are going to ache all the way up the mountain, and it's going to take him 45 minutes or more. Now, Lance Armstrong still on the wheel of Heras. Ullrich, look at his face on Ullrich. He is waiting. He knows he's under pressure. He knows he's under attack. Armstrong may still believe, in fact, that he's got a problem there as Sastre goes here. So Rubiera has a problem further up.
Well, Sastre has really dug in deep. The man trying to get across him is Mancebo from Ibanesto.com. These guys are looking at 8 kilometers to go to the summit. In fact, the official time difference is 6.9, which is a bit of a surprise. They've gone up 2 kilometers very quickly indeed. Rubiera right now just riding his tempo, but as soon as he gets caught by the yellow jersey of Lance Armstrong and Roberto Heras, he will find a new lease of life. He will dig deep to try and help his teammate. It's looking like an all-Spanish finale today.
And it looks as though Laurent Dufaux may have cracked too. He's gone back to almost a minute here with the accelerations of the leading group. Sastre has really looked good today. He came across to the leaders so well, did most of the work, and now he's put them both in trouble behind. So Mercado is being dropped as well, and Carlos Sastre doing the team lead here. The world of good, because if he wins the stage, they're going to move up nicely in the team. Now another attack, and this time it's coming from, I think it's Patrice Algon.
Well, I can't believe that. He was dropped a few moments ago, and as soon as he saw the slowing down of the yellow jersey group, he came straight by them.
Well, you never know. These boys just will not give up. They reach the limit of their ability. They lose contact. They find the field slows down. They rejoin, and they don't say, oh, thank heavens, I'm back with the leaders. They go and hit them and attack.
You should never give up in a bike race like the Tour de France, and this man has come straight by the yellow jersey group of Lance Armstrong. They're getting all of the motorbikes out of the gap right now, but this is where the race is happening. This is where the big challenges are going to come, and in fact, it looks as if Denis Menchov, the leader of the white jersey competition, is also going off the back of the yellow jersey group. The white jersey, by the way, is the race for the best young rider, a rider who is less than 26 years old at the start of the season. This is a surprise too, Mancebo there, Phil. In fact, this is Mancebo at the back, and that is a surprise to see him because he's the leader of Ibanesto.com.
But the whole tour's a surprise, Paul. Everything has gone the way we never expected. It's been a magnificent race. These riders all sense they can do something in the Tour de France, and they're keeping on trying to ferret it out and see what it might be. Carlos Sastre, for example, this is the rider that Tyler Hamilton said he was staying in the Tour for with his fractured clavicule, because he wanted to repay Sastre for the work Sastre had done for Tyler Hamilton in other big races this year. And now Sastre has come big today.
He's come huge today. He's a great bike rider. In fact, Tyler Hamilton, when he was involved in that crash, said he wanted to stay in the Tour de France to help this man. Well, Hamilton is in front of him in the overall classification, but this is all about team tactics right now. This man is moving up the overall standings. At the end of today, he will move a lot higher than his 16th place at the start of the day.
Well, Carlos Sastre, no wins at all, but he had a very good 6th place in the Tour of Romandy. He's now 28 years of age, but a very, very strong all-round bike rider. But he doesn't win many races. He only won one, in fact, in his career. But I think now he might be heading to what will be a glowing victory, because it looks to me as though Mercado here has now found the pressure just a little bit too much. The big select group of 14, sorry, Mancebo, I think I said Mercado, looking at this little group here, it is thinning out. But you know, Richard Virenque at the back, who was in trouble on the past climb, is now seemingly okay on this climb.
I'm pretty impressed with Richard Virenque because he's done well to stay with this group. He's a man in the latter part of his career. He's the leader of the King of the Mountains competition. He really dug deep to get himself points on the summit there of the Côte de Paillere, and right now he's in with the top men in the Tour de France. It looks like Algon is about to get picked up, and it's amazing how Roberto Heras has dug deep. He's found something very special here to just keep setting the pace-making for his team leader, Lance Armstrong. Algon is back in the fold, and he will pretty soon get ejected from the rear of this very select group. Richard Virenque, I think, giving up the ghost here right now, but what a courageous bike rider. He's trying to win the King of the Mountains. Oh, there's a problem there. Heras.
Oh, those legs have gone. Those legs have gone. Oh, Roberto Heras, his legs suddenly said, ouch, the cramps have come. This is Algon climbing past him now. Heras takes a good look at him. He's just going to have to struggle home now. The engine's gone.
It just goes to show you how far into their reserves these guys can push themselves for their leader. When the lights go out, there is absolutely no light at all and no sound, and there's nothing able to come into the body from the engine room.
Now, you saw the race referee through the roof of the car there. He is making sure those vehicles stay behind now, don't form artificial leapfrog stepping stones back up. This is Richard Virenque now. His day is done as well as he now tries to get up there. Mancebo is just up the road in front of Virenque. They're calling through neutral service cars now just to go up to the leaders. And this is now when the legs crack. You see the referees allow no cars around the riders.
Tyler Hamilton is in difficulty at the back of the group there with Lance Armstrong. That's coming through on the race radio, as is also Christophe Moreau, the Frenchman. We're not too far away from the group right now. This is Carlos Sastre at the front of the bike race, while his teammate Tyler Hamilton is going off the back end of the group of the yellow jersey of Lance Armstrong. But I still have to say, Armstrong's team today, Phil, have done a superb job in looking after this man who everybody feels has got a problem. But let's not forget, he's still leading the bike race.
Absolutely. No, Lance is fighting like a real champion this year. And if he does win this Tour, he'll have won his best Tour de France. Look at this now. 6 riders are left, 7 just peeping in. And they're the 2 important riders from Euskaltel Euskadi, Zubeldia and Mayo. That is Christophe Moreau, I beg your pardon, going off the back with Tyler Hamilton. Oh, he's got that deadpan pace, but he's concentrating, but he is going off the back now. 6 of the best, right, going past Laurent Dufaux. Well, I take my hat off to the tactics of US Postal. They put Rubiera up front. He has been their last post down here, the last man to hold Armstrong, and he's been out front since the 22nd kilometre.
Well, if he's their last post, he's stamping his authority on the front end of this group. He really is doing a great job for Lance Armstrong. But look at this, mano a mano, side by side. Lance Armstrong in the yellow and the blue jersey of Jan Ullrich. The 2 former winners of the Tour de France ride shoulder to shoulder on this final climb of the day.
And Ivan Basso in that white jersey there as well. He is also looking for a nudge up the overall classification. Could be 7th or 6th tonight. But these are the cheers for the man who's battled to conquer the climb of Banask tonight. And this is Carlos Sastre here. It's hard now, it is so steep just before the end, and it's only 9 kilometres, but it must seem like 100 right now. He's around about 4 kilometres to go.
In between, there's still Mercado. This is a return now. Iban Mayo went through a very difficult moment. The race has levelled off slightly. It's easy to say it's levelled off sitting here in a commentary position, but the tempo has slowed down somewhat. Armstrong is keeping a very close eye on Jan Ullrich. Ullrich moving across to the left-hand side of the road there, wants to see what the faces are like on the other riders in the group.
Fit man there, that steer on the left-hand side there, flying the flag for the Texan, Armstrong, who has had, I think, a very tough day, but he's been up to it. He has marshalled his troops. He has had a brilliant day in the Alps. They've tried to attack him, and they have not been able to. At 4 kilometres to go, Chechu Rubiera, and again Armstrong, the first person he's going to thank will be Beltran, and then he will thank Rubiera because they've ridden so well today. This is still the man hanging on, but I'm not sure how far ahead he is. I don't think he is that far, Paul. Any time checks? No. The computer just gives us a question mark when we want to know the answers. But Carlos Sastre is now heading up to the finish, but I think the field, that select little group of 7 men, is probably around a minute and a half back.
They're a long way down. This man, if he doesn't crack, he should ride away with the win. But this man, Mercado, is around about 35 seconds in arrears, and he's losing a lot of his impetus right now. Sastre is going to walk away with the victory at the summit of this climb, because behind, the big challengers are still watching each other. I'm surprised to see that the attack hasn't come from Vinokourov. He's probably pretty happy with the way the race is opening out for him just now. Everybody, Phil, is worried about tomorrow's stage with 4 big mountaintop finishes.
Well, this man's worried about winning the stage now. He's made all the right moves. There's another banner. It'll be 3 kilometres to go for him now. The boys behind are inside 4, so they're inside the last 1,000 metres behind him. It is going to be a desperate finish. I reckon they're about 1:15 back of Carlos Sastre at the moment. And this is the hard approach to the line now. We're coming right up to the 3 ski stations up here. And Sastre is trying to get the win, while behind his team leader, Tyler Hamilton, is in a little bit of trouble and is probably going to lose his 4th place. Now an attack, and this is an attack by Zubeldia this time. Zubeldia has now got a reaction from Ullrich. Now where is Armstrong? He's got to shut his eyes, suffer and grab that wheel, because Armstrong is only separated by 34 seconds from Ullrich. And remember, there's a bonus for the first 3 riders. Here comes Armstrong. Vinokourov is first across. Lance, without his team, has crossed the gap. This is a marvellous race.
A marvellous race. He's coming up alongside Vinokourov there. It just takes him on the inside. That's a brave move. A rather dangerous move as well, but he's straight onto the wheel of Ullrich.
Desperate move. And this other rider, the new sensation of the Tour de France, Jaime Zubeldia, had started it. Ullrich was up to it. Now Armstrong again has mastered the occasion. Vinokurov still just about getting on. Might be struggling a bit now, Alexander.
He may well be just in a spot of bother right now, but he's ridden so well so far in the Tour de France, and we've still got 3 more days of Pyrenean mountains to go. Ullrich now is controlling. This is the way he rode when he rode to victory in the Tour de France. He's looking down to see if he can see the shadow of Armstrong. Well, yes, Mr. Armstrong is still there. Iban Mayo has been put into a certain amount of difficulty too because of these accelerations and the acceleration that came from his own teammate, Jaime Zubeldia.
I was sorry about that, but that guy almost took our camera out, and I was afraid he was going to take out Mayo there, and that was, he really shouldn't be in such a situation. There's a massive crowd up here. We knew there would be. Carlos Sastre is still clear, looking for 2 to go. The gap is now, we're saying, at 1 minute 40 seconds. I'm pretty sure it's less than that. But here comes a big high-tempo attack by Jan Ullrich. Armstrong still controlling it. He's never spent so long on the defence in all the years he's won the Tour, but he's up to it. And again, another attack now coming from Zubeldia. Lance has got a bit of breathing room on Zubeldia. He doesn't have to answer him yet, but Vinokurov is going to hang on. And if he gets away, then Lance could well find he's back in trouble.
Let's not forget that we've got to look at a third-place sprint as well, and there's still a time bonus for the third-place rider across the line. There are 2 riders in front of the Armstrong group. Carlos Sastre about 45 seconds behind Juan Miguel Mercado, and at 1 minute 40 seconds, the group of the yellow jersey. He is going to have to sprint it out at the end of the day to try and get himself. It might only be 8 seconds, but the end of this race, it could be a very important 8 seconds too.
I can't believe we're talking a seconds, Paul. Remember, in the first week of our commentary, we talked a second, saying, don't worry, next week we'll be talking of minutes. We are still talking of seconds. 51 across the top 3 riders of this year's Tour de France. It will be virtually the same or even closer by the time we cross the finishing line. This is an amazing Tour. And there's another attack by Vinokurov. Here it comes. Now, this is where he looks for seconds. He needs 51. And if he can afford to get less if he wins the stage, because he gets 20 for the win. Alexander Vinokurov said he would attack in the mountains. He's waited all day, and this is his move.
This is a great move. This is the move that will get him a few seconds. But look at the power of Jan Ullrich. Armstrong in second position. Ivan Basso just hanging on to 4th place in the line, and the gap is opening. Armstrong is being put into difficulty there. He's lost the wheel of Ullrich. Ullrich has closed the gap to Vinokurov. Armstrong is having a terrible day.
Well, you say it is a terrible day, but it is a great day because he is holding on. Now Ullrich has taken over, and there's a huge cheer gone up here when they've seen Jan Ullrich attack in the finishing zone. And Lance Armstrong is in trouble. He wants that wheel of Ivan Basso. He needs that wheel of Basso. Armstrong in the last kilometres of the climb is now very much on the defensive. The yellow jersey is up for grabs. There is a vacancy for the leader of the Tour de France. Armstrong is on the defensive. Jan Ullrich needs 34 seconds. Vinokurov needs 51. Less if they get in the first 3 because of the bonuses.
Armstrong is down, and he's on the wheel here of Ivan Basso. Now, if Jan Ullrich was to cross the line in 3rd place, Armstrong only has 26 seconds to play with. This man knows it. He's played in the Pyrenees before, and that was when he first won the Tour de France back in 1997. The big man from Germany is back, and everybody, including Zubeldia, is having a hard time staying on his wheel. Armstrong is out of the saddle now, and this is unbelievable. Armstrong would have expected in the Pyrenees to try and put time between himself and Jan Ullrich, but now he is completely and utterly on the defensive.
He has done everything right all day with his team, Lance Armstrong, but this year his legs haven't finished it off like they have in the last 4 years. Jan Ullrich has sensed it. Carlos Sastre, he's going to win now. He's in the last kilometre, but he'll only win the stage. Who will win the Tour de France? There is still a huge question mark over the race after this first day in the Pyrenees. It's the best result in the 28-year-old's career for CSC. Sastre deserves the victory. Second place on the road too. Mercado might hang on, but there is going to be one huge battle. That third, oh, look at this.
It's a battle for
it's
second.
all over, and now the second place bonus could decide the destiny of the yellow jersey here. I've never heard a crowd cheer so loud here. They are watching this battle of the mountains. There is 12 seconds bonus for second place, which means that Ullrich must only beat Lance Armstrong by 22 seconds to take the yellow jersey.
It's going to be a big battle for Armstrong, and you can see the acceleration, the determination on the face of Ullrich. That's not affecting the overall stage win today, because Carlos Sastre of Spain is going to get him the win for CSC. You know, Armstrong is beginning to recover. Race Radio saying he's starting to come back to the group of Jan Ullrich. He maybe didn't panic, but right now he's digging so deep to keep the yellow jersey on his shoulders behind the win for this man.
Well, we've overshadowed this man's victory by the incredible race behind, but let's give him his due accolade now. Carlos Sastre, only the second win of his career. He finished in 97, he put a dummy in his mouth, and he has finished with a great win here. Carlos Sastre gets the victory. Will this man get the yellow jersey? He thinks he will. He's clipping these corners like he's going down, just a little descent here. Armstrong has got back up here now with Mercado, but it doesn't matter, because this man, I think, is looking for seconds, and here comes Zubeldia as well, and Zubeldia is going to steal that second place bonus. That will help Lance Armstrong. This is unbelievable. Here comes, he digs deep now. Ullrich kicks again. The big man from Germany is looking for a bonus now of 12 seconds. Then we wait to see if 22 more tick by. If they do, we have a sixth leader of this year's Tour de France, and the record, by the way, stands at 8. Here comes Jan Ullrich to the line now. A final kick of determination has destroyed Zubeldia. Don't worry, the camera makes him look closer than he really is. As now Jan Ullrich comes to the line, and then the clock will start. Ullrich is second, Zubeldia gets a third, and now Lance Armstrong, you are brilliant. That is a recovery for you. He saves the day.
Oh, I was just working the calculations. He needed 1:23 to stay in the yellow jersey. The man did not panic. He did not throw it away. He's got time over Vinokourov and Ivan Basso. He could see the race disappearing in front of him, but Phil, he is a true champion. He's not going to throw away the yellow jersey like that. He battled all the way to the line. He saw Ullrich go. He didn't panic. He was going through a hard time, but he recovered and pulled himself back up. But this race is going to go right down to the wire.
Carlos Sastre with what amounts to a home win for Spain, ahead of Ullrich and Aimar Zubeldia. And look, Armstrong put 10 seconds worth of clean road between himself and Alexander Vinokourov over the final metres as he fought to limit the damage. Ivan Basso was 6th, ahead of Juan Miguel Mercado and Iban Mayo, who lost nearly a minute to Ullrich and 2 to the stage winner. Further down the mountain, the time gaps were bigger. Tyler Hamilton 2.5 minutes behind. Francisco Mancebo 3:09. King of the Mountains leader Richard Virenque 3 3/4 minutes. And Jose Luis Riviera, who was out front for so long, losing nearly 5 minutes after giving everything in the Armstrong cause. David Miller, fighting his bronchial problems, finished a respectable 30th, 9:38 behind the winner, and Baden Cook, the green jersey, came in 157th. Well, on any other day, Sastre would have taken the headlines for a great solo stage win. As it is, he was almost forgotten in the excitement going on behind him. A pity, because I'd be interested to know how long he's had that dummy in his jersey pocket on the off chance that he might win a stage. Anyway, as I say, poor old Sastre as a sidebar today. The lead story is the slicing of seconds that's going on at the front of the race. Jan Ullrich only beat Lance Armstrong by 7 of them on this stage, but he picked up another 12 seconds as a bonus for finishing second, and that means the American's cushion is now down to 15. He's actually gained time on Alexander Vinokourov, though. He's now just over a minute back, and it's a 3-minute jump until you get to the next man, Aimar Zubeldia, with Tyler Hamilton and Iban Mayo rounding out the top 6. Ivan Basso, last year's best young rider, is an impressive 7th, and thanks to his stage win, Carlos Sastre has ridden himself up from 16th into the top 10. David Miller is currently 20th, 18:04 off the lead. By stage 14, the Centenary Tour was starting to look like something from the archives. Turn down the colour, ignore the carbon fibre frames and the helmets, and it could be one of those epic head-to-head battles from the 40s or the 50s. After 2,293 kilometres of racing, Lance Armstrong led Jan Ullrich by just 15 seconds, and there were still 3 more days in the Pyrenees to go. Stage 14 didn't have the previous day's uphill finish, but it did have 6 giant climbs, the biggest of them, the Col du Peyresourde. Now, one of the races within the race is the race for the King of the Mountains competition. For the man who collects the most points for being first over the most mountain summits. Well, the Frenchman Richard Virenque started the day with a big lead in that competition, and he obviously went out with a mission today, leading a 17-man break over the first 4 mountain climbs and clinching that title on stage 14.
Wait now for Richard Virenque to make his move. He's allowing Gilberto Simoni to go up through this massive crowd of people. It's hard for us now to show you where the riders are, so concentrate, because somehow Virenque is going to have to fight his way out of this melee of people. Most of these people, by the way, are Spanish. They're looking for the Spanish colours. They are not just Spanish, they are from the Basque country, as they always remind us, and the Basque cyclists are Iban Mayo and Zubeldia. The crowd parts here for the man who won the Tour of Italy so well this year by almost double figures, Simoni. And this day, at last, he has put himself into a position to win a stage. He's not disgraced himself in the end in the Tour de France. He almost abandoned on the road to Marseille because he was disgusted at losing an hour and a half. Now Virenque comes up to the summit. Is he going to have a go, Paul, or allow him just to go over the line in first place?
I think he's pretty happy with the work that was done there by Gilberto Simoni, so he knew that second place was good enough for him to build up that massive advantage he's got in the overall classification. We're now looking here at Alexander Vinokourov with Iban Mayo sitting on his wheel. This is Steve Zampieri, who they've picked up and passed, but the crowd are going ballistic. Look at all the orange jerseys, the Basque flags. They are cheering for the man who's in second position there, Iban Mayo, but the man doing the job is the man in the pink jersey, Alexander Vinokourov. He is currently 6 seconds away from taking the lead away from Lance Armstrong, and of course the second position away from Jan Ullrich as well.
And this is Walter Benetton still riding to a 4th place. Incredible by this young French rider, and he descends like a stone. He'll get back to those 3 if he doesn't overdo it, and let's hope he doesn't do that. Come on, Walter. You can see the summit now, one big effort, and you're over the top, and you're less than a minute behind, and you descend better than those 3 men in front of you. If he won, that would be unbelievable.
Absolutely, because I don't think his teammate Jean-René Bernadotte ever got himself. This is Andrea Perron. He has done a great ride. This is brilliant. He was in the early breakaway as well, and he has managed to find his rhythm, and he too is in with a chance of pulling it all back together in the final 11.5 kilometers. Through the crowd, as the crowd opens there, this is the man who may well be the new yellow jersey at the end of the day. If they stopped the race at the top of the climb, he probably would be, but he's still got 11.5 kilometers downhill into the finish in Loudonvielle to keep hold of that 61-second advantage.
Armstrong is used now to losing his yellow jersey on the road and getting it back by the finishing line, and it could well be that way today. 1:41 to the leader over the top, who was Gilberto Simoni, who's not affecting the destiny in any way of Richard Virenque's King of the Mountains competition. He just made sure that Dufault was behind him, and that's given him an enormous lead overall. These are the riders now, and this is why the people love the Tour de France. They don't need barriers to hold the crowd back. They just go through a corridor of noise and the crowd pull away and the riders move on.
If it's 2 minutes and 42 seconds on the clock when this group gets to the summit of the climb, then we do have a new leader of the bike race at the moment with 11.5 kilometers to go. There is the clock ticking away on the left-hand side, 2:22, and these men are approaching the summit of the climb, and still Armstrong sits there, dances away. The time that we are looking for is 2:42, and as they come up to the line, it's Armstrong accelerating over the summit, and he's going to stop the clock, Phil, inside of 2:42. He's still the yellow jersey, but only by a fraction.
We're talking, I think, 5 seconds at the moment now. Which man is going to make the descent of his life here and lead the Tour de France by the end of this day? I wonder now.
Well, this is going to be a rapid descent right now as these riders charge off the summit of the Col de Peyresourde, and it will be a lot of risks taken by the man in the pink jersey, because over the summit of the Col de Peyresourde, I made him just 6 seconds off the overall lead of Lance Armstrong. Armstrong now taking up the pacemaking on the descent of the Col de Peyresourde, and you can see here that Jan Ullrich finally taking up position number 4.
Well, this is something special we're witnessing today. The storms that appeared to blow in blew out, at least as far as the weather was concerned. The storm is all down there on the highway today. These are the 3 men, the survivors of a breakaway of 17 that went after 12 kilometers. The 3 climbers conquered the mountains, and they're going to fight out the stage. They also carry the all-important small-time bonuses of no interest to these 3, but of vital interest to Vinokourov, Lance Armstrong and Jan Ullrich. And they are chasing chasing about 2 3/4 minutes behind.
These men should survive right now because we're facing inside of 11 kilometers to go to the finish, and they will be charging off this mountain at around about 45 miles an hour. This is the chase group of Vinokourov. He's chasing to try and get himself into the yellow jersey by the end of the day, and Armstrong getting some help here from Jan Ullrich himself. Ullrich must cast his mind back 2 years because it was on this very descent that he missed a corner and went off into a hayfield. He's down in a very low aerodynamic position. He's got the advantage over Vinokourov of being a slightly heavier bike rider. There is the gap between the chasers and the yellow jersey group, and this is quite remarkable because Armstrong is still in the yellow jersey. There's the rider who leads the white jersey competition for the best young rider. There is Tyler Hamilton. He started the day well up in the overall classification in 5th place, but he just could not hurt his body anymore this afternoon. He's been riding this Tour de France with a double fracture to his collarbone and still keeping in with the men at the top. The other rider on the right-hand side is Francisco Mancebo, the leader of the Spanish Ibernesto.com.
These are the 3 men who have shaped this day's racing for a great battle behind. The 35 seconds advantage that they have, by the way, is over Walter Benetton. He's already, Paul, knocked off 25 seconds on the descent.
He will be going absolutely ballistic.
Oh, we switched pictures.
No, this is Simone. This is Simone,
sorry.
Which is why
never look down when you're commentating.
They changed the colours of the jerseys before the Tour de France, Brioche Le Boulanger, because so often they were confused with Team Saeco of Gilberto Simone.
It's
now,
a dicey bend.
That's the corner right there when Jan Ullrich went off the road 2 years ago, 24 months ago, when he was trying to stay with Lance Armstrong on the descent, and it's Mayo taking all of the risks.
Well, we've got to see Jan Ullrich yet to go around that corner. Lance Armstrong saw him go and waited for him. He said, "You don't beat a man when he's down." Well, this is a very, very dicey corner. It is high speed, of course. These riders coming in at around 75. And don't forget, Jan Ullrich, when he went down that ditch, we feared for his life. But he came back up. Armstrong waited for him, and they continued. That was one of the most famous gestures of sportsmanship I think we can recall, Paul.
A dramatic moment in the sport of cycling. I remember on that day it was also Kevin Livingston who waited for his leader by the side of the road. Right now, the gap is down to just 40 seconds between Alexander Vinokourov and Lance Armstrong. The group of Ullrich Armstrong are really putting the hammer down on the descent. There you can see Ullrich. He did everything he could today to put Armstrong into difficulty, but Mr. Armstrong from Austin, Texas is still sitting pretty at the top of the leaderboard.
These two have got a ticking time bomb in their back pockets, and tomorrow on the Col de Tourmalet or the ride up to Les Ardennes, it is going to go off. They wanted an easier ride today, and despite the attack by Vinokourov, they have not reacted. Now they're chasing him down the mountain. They might well save the day. Lance may yet be starting tomorrow in yellow.
Well, these corners are treacherous on the descent of the Col de Peyresourde, but Armstrong is taking them to absolute perfection. He slowed down a fraction to come into that corner. He used all of the apex and accelerated right out to the left-hand side of the road, making sure that he did not lose too much impetus at all. 10 kilometers to go.
Well, that was for Vinokourov. That was 5 kilometers to go for Vinokourov as they come down the mountains. As we're now looking at the riders spread up on the descent here. This is the, I'm not sure, this is the second or the third group we're calling it on the road now.
This would be the third group on the road, right?
Zampieri.
Zampieri is in the group with Vinokourov. It's Iban Mayo who's really doing the work on the descent, trying to close the advantage. This is the yellow jersey group of Lance Armstrong. They are going down this hill absolutely ballistically. Ullrich is in second place. Ivan Basso is in third place. And right on the tail there is Aimar Zubeldia. They won't get any help at all from him because he's got a teammate off the front who is climbing slowly but surely up the overall classification. This now is the leading group of 3. They're off the slopes of the mountain, but they've still got a pretty hard ride to get themselves to the finishing line in Loudonvielle.
It is still possible to chase down these riders, not so much these riders. I might get pretty close because it's a nasty approach to the finish. Steadily uphill, a wide, dead straight road down in the Luron Valley here. This is not over this race, even this close to the finish. And you know, Lance Armstrong knows that Jan Ullrich cannot descend, so he's taken control of that descent himself, and the gap is holding. They could still bring back Alexander Vinokourov before they get to the finishing line, and then it will be just a big waste of energy for the rider from Kazakhstan.
Maybe that's Armstrong's plan at the end of the day. Allow all these guys to attack me. They'll use a lot of energy on the roads of the Tour de France with moves like this, especially the nervous energy which Vinokourov is actually using right now. This is the yellow jersey group. As we get to the straighter part of the course, even Jan Ullrich has come forward.
This is Heimar Zubeldia, who's come back. He must have got unhooked somewhere, but he's got back up to Lance Armstrong, who's accelerating. Jan just sits there, pumps those two big pistons he calls legs, and gets back on the wheel there of the yellow jersey. Heimar Zubeldia, something of a revelation of the Tour here, has got back on as the leaders are now approaching 3 kilometres to go.
I always think race organisers are very mean when they've had a long day in the saddle, 191 kilometres. They're inside 2 kilometres to go, and the organisation, just thank you very much, have thrown a nasty little climb in there to make the legs hurt that bit more.
But it could be a springboard for somebody like Simoni, but I think they've just about spent all their energy today. They have been in the lead since the 12th kilometre. That's a breakaway of 179 kilometres today.
This is the race for the yellow jersey right now. There is Iban Mayo getting help from Alexander Vinokourov. He was the man who attacked on the final kilometres of the Col de Peyresourde. They've got a man who has probably never seen the front in the big mountains before with them. So that's Steve Zampieri. This is the chase, though, from Jan Ullrich and Lance Armstrong, the two most talented men in the world of professional cycling. And Armstrong has got the power again to
I thought he was going to push it there. I thought he was going for the attack, but he's just to keep the pace high. They have been racing today for 5.5 hours as we speak. Another 5.5 hours of non-stop attacking and attacking. Just how much more can they take? 2 kilometres to go now for Vinokourov. Have you got Paul has started his watch now between him and Lance Armstrong. Vinokourov cannot ask help from anybody. It's down to his legs now. He's got to keep on racing. He'll finish last of those 3 when he gets to the line, but it's time that counts now. He's got to recover 61 seconds.
Well, the yellow jersey group is being led there by Armstrong and Ullrich. These are the 3 leaders. They're well inside the last 1.5 kilometres to go. Richard Virenque is so happy to be here. These guys now can play the tactical game. They know they're not going to get caught at all. This is the group. Armstrong's group is being led here by Ivan Basso. The clock is ticking by, but it's safe for Armstrong at the moment because I make it just 40 seconds up to Alexander Vinokourov.
40 seconds, he would still be in by 21 seconds, while Jan Ullrich...
Perron has caught the leaders. Andrea Perron has caught the leaders inside the final kilometre.
Well, that's an amazing result. Now, this could be the result of the day, as he's come from nowhere. Somehow, too, remember, he must have got mixed up with Walter Benito, and Benito hasn't come back, and we thought he was the descender. Perron was catching all the way up the Peyresourde. We ran out of cameras. We didn't know where he was. We knew he was up there somewhere. Now, with fresh legs and adrenaline pumping, can he do it?
Well, he's not a great sprinter. He's got a slight advantage. Virenque is in the best position right now. He's in second place. Gilberto Simone's in third. Dufault is up into fourth. Simone adjusting his glasses. Perron is leading it out. He needs to look over his shoulder. He does not have a gap. He hasn't got the gap, and Virenque is sitting pretty.
That is a mistake. Andre Perron could have got a nice double here, because here goes Richard Virenque. I think Simone's going to get this. Simone's not a bad sprinter. Brakes are on. Very tight bend. Now they're lining up for the finish now. Richard Virenque, can he make it too? 1 in the Alps, but here comes now Simone. He wants this win. It's a matter of prestige as Gilberto Simone clearly, neck and neck now. Virenque still managing, and here comes Dufault. Dufault, no, on the line. He's got it, and boy, am I relieved. Gilberto Simone has got it. Walter Benito in the distance there just couldn't hold that man Perron on the chase. Well, Gilberto Simone has won the day, a big relief to Seiko and him, but now the clock really starts, because this is the race for the yellow jersey. And now we have Alexander Vinokourov. His face a picture here. He's not leading the race like he was when he won the staging gap. That doesn't matter. Time is what matters in the Tour de France, and the clock will really start when he hits the line. He's going to finish here in 6th place on the line, maybe 7th, maybe 8th. He'll be challenged now by Mayo. Mayo comes on, no, and he did it as well. So the clock has started, and now we wait.
Needs to be 1:42 on the line if Armstrong is going to lose the lead in the yellow jersey competition. But they are in the streets of Loudonville right now, and they are pumping to the line. It's amazing how this man has controlled the race so far since it left Paris. He's always been there, always been in the action. He's hardly made a mistake so far. The only mistake he's made is letting Jan Ullrich beat him by 1 minute and 36 seconds in the individual time trial. But look at that clock. It's Armstrong on the front. He too is not worried about his position on the stage. He's worried about the clock as the clock ticks by. by. That's what is important for Armstrong. He's inside the final finishing straight right now, and he's kept it. It needs to be 1:42, and it stops at 1:23.
19 seconds, all unofficial, of course. He keeps that yellow jersey, but with Ulrich alongside him at 15 seconds, and Vinokurov at 19, I can't believe it. A blanket over all three as we go to the high climbs of the Pyrenees again tomorrow.
And the blanket's the last thing you want over you in the high climbs of the Pyrenees. There's the stage result. Gilberto Simoni winning ahead of Laurent Dufaux and Richard Virenque, with Alexander Vinokourov 6th and Iban Mayo 7th, both 41 seconds behind the winner. The group containing Armstrong, Ulrich, Aimar Zubeldia and Ivan Basso was another 3/4 of a minute back. Tyler Hamilton and Francisco Mancebo lost 3 minutes to the Armstrong group on the day, but the big loser on time was David Miller, fighting illness and coming in 148th, nearly 33 minutes after the winner.
How much did he suffer out there today?
I don't think there aren't words. My vocabulary isn't sufficient.
So it's getting worse rather than better?
Well, yeah, it's normal. The last 3 days have been horrible. Today was horrible again. It's just horrible.
So is your heart still in this tour? Are you going to make it to the end, do you think?
My heart's still in it. My lungs and the rest of my body don't seem to be. But
you'll soldier on? Start tomorrow?
Yep. Soldier on. Soldier on.
And with that, he soldiered off to dish out a few autographs, possibly signing them Ali G. All credit to him, though, for refusing to give in. 7 men did today, and that means there are now 155 riders left of the 198 who started the race. A few days ago, there were rumours that this man was going to be one of them, but he's hung on for a stage win, although it doesn't really make up for his failure to challenge Armstrong in this race the way he declared he would in advance. Lance, of course, has other things to worry about than Gilberto Simoni.
Lance, the GC is still very close, but that was a better day for you. You looked a lot stronger.
I felt better. I mean, as I said yesterday, it's hard to, you can't recover from a time trial like that with such severe dehydration in one day. So I was lucky yesterday to limit my losses to a few seconds, and today I felt better, and hopefully tomorrow it's another uptick.
Vinokurov's attack surprise you?
He's aggressive, but I'm worried about Ulrich, not Vino.
Well, maybe it's time he was. If people keep underestimating Vinokourov, they might underestimate him all the way into the race lead. He remains third, but he's closed the gap to 18 seconds on Armstrong, while Ulrich remains the same 15 seconds back that he was this morning. Iban Mayo's ride on Vinokourov's coattails takes him past Tyler Hamilton, who also drops below Ivan Basso to 7th. Richard Virenque has almost ridden himself into the top 10 with his performance in the mountains. Denis Menchov, leading the best young rider competition, is 12th. David Miller, though, drops to 29th after his long day in the saddle. Gilberto Simoni's stage win moves him up 19 places to 54th. Richard Virenque, by the way, cannot now be caught in the King of the Mountains competition. He has that won, as long as he makes to Paris, of course. When the Tour came to Luz-Ardiden in 2001, it marked the end of Jan Ullrich's challenge for overall victory. He'd stayed as close as he could to Lance Armstrong for as long as he could, and as the two crossed the line together here, he conceded the race with an outstretched hand to the American. However, this time, with only 15 seconds between Ulrich and Armstrong, and only another 3 between Ulrich and Alexander Vinokourov, no one was going to be conceding anything, at least not voluntarily. Top 3 in the Tour de France are now separated by 18 seconds. 15 between the defending champion and the German former champion, another 3 to the Kazakh challenger. Actually, Kazakh challenger sounds like a make a tank, doesn't it? Which is quite appropriate, really, because Vinokourov has rolled into the reckoning for overall victory in this race by means of relentless forward progress, regardless of terrain or climatic conditions. And he's clearly benefiting from the fact that Ulrich and Armstrong are more worried about each other than they are about him. Well, this is the route they'll be fighting it out over today, 159 kilometres, taking them over the Col d'Aspan, the Col du Tourmalet, and the final vicious switchback climb up to Lousardiden.
4:38 is the gap from Chavanel to these riders, and it's going to be tight. Chavanel has just 9 kilometres left to climb to the summit. He's holding his lead, really. They're not coming up on him just yet. Denis Menchov here, and there's been an attack by Mayo. There it is, as he makes his move, and look who goes, Armstrong, and look who follows, Jan Ullrich, but not as sprightly.
Not as sprightly. The big thing about Armstrong, he has the acceleration. When he wants to go on a climb, he can do it. He has now decided, I want to go. You can see the yellow jersey is opening up a slight advantage. Mayo now has to dig deep. Ullrich has got the big gear going. He's coming up to the wheel of the Basque rider, but Armstrong wants to go right now.
Armstrong was waiting for somebody to pull in the flag, and now it was even. Oh, what's happened here? What has happened there? It seemed quite a normal corner. He must have hit somebody in the audience. Mayo has gone. Now the situation. Remember the pair of sword when Ullrich crashed, Armstrong waited. But what? Let's have a look at this now. I still is unclear here exactly what happened.
I can't see. I think he just touched somebody with his handlebar there, but his chain is off. His chain is stuck, and it's a complete and utter chaos at the back end of the bike race. Can he recover? He's on his same bicycle. His teammate is there right now. He's changed up onto the gear to try and get himself. He's got a teammate there. There is Chechu Rubiera. Calm down. Don't panic, lads. He's saying, he's putting his hand down and saying, don't worry, we can get back into this.
The adrenaline will be pumping now like you will not believe here. He's got to control it, otherwise he'll take himself over the top. He's so lucky to have a teammate, and I think he's waiting.
Well, Ullrich is now in first place. I can't believe he will take advantage of this. He's looking over his shoulders. He knows there's a possibility of winning the Tour de France right now, but he's not sure what's happening. There is Vinokourov in front. There is Iban Mayo. He's the man who went down with Armstrong as well.
Oh, what is going on?
There's a problem with his pedals. He has a problem with his pedals.
This is what happened. I think his pedal may have broken. This happened. He didn't hit anybody.
Well,
it was the problem with his pedals.
It was very strange to see that. He's looking down. He now knows he's got a serious problem. Watch this now.
Well, this is awful.
Digging deep, and his foot has just come out, and I don't believe how he's managed to keep it upright there.
And how did Mayo must have panicked as well there. Well, what is this Tour de France going to end with? Every day is something different. Ullrich will be totally unaware and probably totally perplexed as to why Armstrong fell, but I think that was positive proof that it was nothing to do with the spectators.
He is not far behind. He's in the cars there, just behind Jan Ullrich.
Ullrich is not pushing it on. Hamilton here, speaking with Basso, saying, slow it down a bit.
This is unbelievable. They're waiting for the man in the yellow jersey, and he's come back. He's He's still going to have that mechanical problem. He's going to need to change his machine because his pedal has come out on 2 occasions. Look at the burn on his back there, where he went down very sharply indeed. As another move comes, this is Iban Mayo now, has seen the yellow jersey back in the group, and he puts the pressure on once more.
Well, twice now we have seen problems here for Lance Armstrong. Clearly his right pedal. We've seen pedal problems before in big races, but what a day and a place to have a pedal problem. Ullrich did not want to push his advantage. Hamilton spoke with the others, but really, it's nothing to do with them. They want to win the Tour.
Let me cast your mind back, and I can't remember exactly where it was, but there was on a mountain like this where Jan Ullrich had a flat tyre at the bottom of the climb. He was a challenger, I think, to Lance Armstrong at the time, and he actually waited. Armstrong waited for Jan Ullrich to get back into the race situation. You know, in the sport of professional cycling, there's always payback time. You can never burn your bridges. Don't ever make enemies.
Well, that's absolutely true, of course. Ullrich wants to win this Tour de France more than anybody else, and probably certainly as much as Lance Armstrong wants to win it. But how lucky was Armstrong to have Rubiera alongside him to help him out of that mess, and this drama enacting on one of the steepest climbs of the Tour de France. They are now climbing steadily. They've brought themselves in. They're composing. But Lance now will be feared to get out of the pedal. He won't be pushing down on that right leg too hard in case whatever is happening happens again. It must be his cleat somehow twisting out of the fitting.
But the faithful Chechu Rubiera is always there. Armstrong is out of the saddle again. He's jumping onto the tail here of Iban Mayo.
Here he goes again.
But you know, thinking back to that crash, I think and he's going again, he's accelerating again, Phil. This is amazing. This man has been on the ground. He almost lost his manhood on the crossbars a few moments ago, and he's decided he wants to go.
9 kilometres to go to the summit. The leader is just on 7.5 kilometres from the summit. Don't forget, Sylvain Chavanel is doing the ride of his life. But even though he's French, our French hosts with the cameras know that this is the battle for the winner of the Tour de France. And what a race this is. Lance Armstrong now, the adrenaline's still pumping from his double accident, and Ulrich has gone on the defensive completely. Here he comes.
This is fabulous. This is unbelievable. The man was on the ground. He's had problems with his pedal, and he's now decided to go out onto the attack and put Ulrich onto the defensive. Ulrich now has to try and get into a rhythm so he doesn't lose too much time on the yellow jersey of Armstrong. He wanted to do something very special this afternoon, and I wonder what the problem was with his pedal. It could just have been slight nervousness, because I think the crash was formed when he just clipped his arm on the right-hand side. There was a spectator looking the opposite way. Armstrong just touched him, and he went down, and the front wheel was taken from underneath him. Well, let's have a look at the picture tonight, because what's happening at the moment is the drama of Armstrong riding away with the bike race. There you can see, this is Alexander Vinokourov. He has got the pink jersey on his shoulders, but that is of Team Telecom, not as of leader of the Giro d'Italia. Right now, this man is trying to stay in a podium position for the moment. The drama, though, is at the front of the bike race. Look at the blood on Armstrong's left arm there. He went down very hard indeed. He didn't have time to even control that crash, because his front wheel just flicked around and he went right over the top. But he's bounced back, and he's put the big German into difficulty.
Well, it is unbelievable, but now Ulrich, who was on the attack on the Tourmalet, is now on the reverse here on Les Ardennes. Armstrong has just doubled his lead in the Tour de France. He was 15 seconds ahead overall. He's now 30. But Ulrich knows he's got to monitor that attack. This race is not going to end on Les Ardennes today, because Ulrich will go to the time trial, maybe with 30 or 40 seconds deficit. He can possibly reverse that in the last time trial in Paris. That's what he's thinking right now. Here is Lance Armstrong. Now, we have had the privilege of having a look at the slow-motion replay of the situation. It looks, Paul, as though Armstrong did hit the spectator, as you said, because the spectator's hat rested on his handlebars. What I think it was the tape of the handle of a musette, a little feeding bag, hooked onto his handlebars and snatched his bike away from him.
The face of Jan Ullrich, he's digging deep, he's looking for power, but there isn't enough power to respond to Armstrong on the slopes of this climb. He knows right now he's got to try and nail back the American as we bob up the slopes here to see Sylvain Chavanel, Phil. Wow. And he's just said, bridge to engine room, more power, and there isn't any.
No, well, we're getting fancier dresses every day. A bit of a haunting man on the climb there, because Lance Armstrong now, there's a flotilla of motorcycles just in front. It could well be. He's now seen the man who's led this race out from the beginning today, Sylvain Chavanel, and won everything. These boys are still making Jan Ullrich do all of the work, because they've not a lot to gain if they don't, and they keep looking at him. Ullrich isn't asking for help now. This is 1-on-1, and the gap has opened in the other way that everybody here thought it would. And in fact, when Ullrich attacked on the Col du Tourmalet, we did not expect to see a reversal like this on Les Ardennes.
He was worried about this climb of Les Ardennes, and he thought by attacking so far out he could put Armstrong into difficulty. Well, he did for a few moments, maybe about 300 or 400 meters, but Armstrong did not panic. He picked up his pace, rode back onto the wheel of the German, and since then they have dominated all of the pace-making at the front of this race. Looking down there at the wheels of Lance Armstrong, they're ticking by. He's using a fairly reasonable gear right now, but this is the face of the big game. He's definitely got the face that we've seen so many times in the past.
Minute and 5 seconds he's opened up now, so Ullrich is losing huge time here now. And this could well be the next few days, could be the victory of Lance Armstrong as he keeps his yellow jersey all the way to Paris. This is the big effort now. There is the catch. The first time anybody has seen this man for hours and hours today. He's won every prize on the road, but Lance Armstrong is going to have to deny him a win here, because he needs that win bonus of 20 seconds as well.
And of course he needs the pride, Phil, of winning a road stage of the Tour de France, because not very often do riders win the Tour de France without winning a road stage.
Only 4 times since the Tour,
I think
but
the last one I remember
won a stage.
was Greg LeMond.
There's 4 of them: Gaston Nencini, Lucien Aymar, the 2 I can remember at the moment. Roger Walkowiak was the other one. So those 4, nice pat on the back. Very sportsmanlike by Lance Armstrong. He's no choice but to go on. I think if it wasn't such a matter of time, he would have let this man continue.
What a gesture.
2 kilometres. It will seem like 20 miles now because it kicks all the way to the line. That's the difference between this climb and Alpe d'Huez. It doesn't stop until you're over the line, right? People will be caught waiting to catch the riders when they cross the line because there's no freewheel. It is staying uphill. And Jan Ullrich here, he looks to the right there to see if he can catch a glimpse in the crowd line of where exactly is Armstrong. He'll look for the helicopters too. He is still, Morrow is now dangling off the back as well.
Well, I'm not surprised because Jan Ullrich has pulled back a further 5 seconds on Lance Armstrong. It is now 45 seconds, the difference between Armstrong and the Ullrich group. And the time bonuses are going to be very important. Ullrich will have to try and get himself second place because there's a 12-second time bonus for the second man to cross the line.
Well, in real time at the moment, the difference is exactly 1 minute in the overall classification. At 2 kilometres to go now for Jan Ullrich, and he's still closing. You see the difference in the pedalling ratios here. Always fast cadence for Lance Armstrong. And if Ullrich can get a little bit of a faster cadence on his bike, and then of course he'll go quicker because he always pedals a higher gear. Jan Ullrich now, he has given everything that's left in his body to try and keep this man in his sights. He is convinced if he can keep him in his sights, he will win the Tour in the last time trial. Well, Armstrong might have other ideas about that. Look at the perspiration just running off his face. He's going to lose another 7 kilos today in body fluids, I think. But for this time, it's going to be a special thing. He's heading now to his 16th stage win of his Tours de France.
I don't think they'll ever make that mistake again, Phil. They will pay very much attention to temperatures out on the roads of the Tour de France, and I think next time they come, Lance Armstrong will probably have himself an air-conditioned warming-up room. Ullrich is going through all kinds of pain right now just to keep himself in with a chance of winning the Tour de France. Armstrong felt that even with a 15-second advantage going into the final time trial, he could still win it. He looks back at his old performance over the last few years, when in fact, out of the 8 Tour de France time trials he's ridden, he's won 6 of them. He's only been beaten by 2 men in the time trial. One was Santiago Botero, the other was Jan Ullrich. The gap is still now holding at 50 seconds, but this man's face is a picture of agony.
This must be the hardest kilometre in the life of Jan Ullrich. The same might be said for Tyler Hamilton here, who's still holding the Ullrich group in his sights. He too might move closer to the leaderboard tonight. This has been an exceptionally good day for him. But this is the man trying to write his name as equal only to Miguel Indurain with 5 straight wins in the Tour de France. He has gone a long way to doing that today, and he's done it in the most bizarre of circumstance, falling off when he was hooked off his bike by a spectator, and now he's gone away, and Ullrich slowed the group down to let him back in, so they started the climb again together, and then Armstrong went.
Inside 500 meters to go right now. He's still got to keep that cadence as high as possible. He has to make sure that he doesn't lose very much time over the last 250 meters, because this Tour de France is all going to be about seconds. Seconds will decide this bike race at the end of the day. But what a brilliant performance. And he's still, you know, Phil, this is an interminable climb. It's a beast of a climb, and it does not finish. Even after the finish line, it kicks up right towards the summit, towards Spain.
There's plenty of people waiting to catch the riders, I can promise you that, as they come through here. The mist has come over the top. What an incredible day this has been. For 15 days we have shadowboxed one of the greatest Tours de France. Any one of 3 men could win it. They knew this climb was going to prove who was the best man. Armstrong, I think, in a week's time, will look back as winner of his 5th Tour de France, but I think we'll still be talking about who will win it when we get to the time trial, because Ullrich is a superbly good time trial rider. The American flags are flying now, though. This is a matter of pride again for Armstrong. A massive round of applause. No victory salute from Lance Armstrong. It's who's going to get hold of me, because the clock has started.
The 2 riders from Euskaltel Euskadi are trying to get themselves the bonuses, and that's going to steal that away from Jan Ullrich. The 2 men, Iban Mayo and Zubeldia, in 2nd and 3rd position. But these men have closed down an unbelievable gap over the last few meters.
Well, they've done the dirty there on Jan Ullrich, because he's not going to get a time bonus, which might be the difference between winning and finishing 2nd in the Tour de France. They're all round the corner, but they feel they're obliged to do this to show their Basque friends and countrymen that they were there. And 4th place for Jan Ullrich, and I make it about 42 seconds. 40-42, it's not official. but that means Lance were 40, 55, 1 minute 15 approximately. Lance now leads the Tour de France. Surely that's enough.
Well, that remains to be seen. Armstrong's advantage over Alexander Vinokourov, though, certainly will be enough. He came in 2 minutes and 7 seconds down. Not quite Vino Collapso, but after days of attacking on sheer strength of will, the superiority of the two men in front of him finally told. So there's the stage result. Armstrong with his first stage win of the Tour, and Jan Ullrich's group closing to within 40 seconds at the finish. Ivan Mayo took second, Ullrich edged out Aimar Zubeldia for third, so while Armstrong picks up a 20-second bonus for winning, Ullrich limits that damage with 8 seconds for third. Sylvain Chavanel has to be content with a pat on the back from a passing race leader. After his long lone break, he came in 10th, nearly 3 minutes down. David Miller was 108th in the large group of riders that sticks together to avoid missing the time limit. So was the green jersey Baden Cook. They came in over 34 minutes behind the leader. Axel Merckx, though, struggled in another 20 minutes later. He was eliminated on time, and another 3 riders abandoned the race today. Now, if you think Armstrong's not counting every second at the moment, look at this. Before he got off his bike, he went straight to the nearest TV monitor, and there's his reaction when Ullrich picks up the bonus. Ullrich himself, meanwhile, seemed surprisingly happy when he got off his bike. Perhaps he was just bemused at yet another bizarre turn of events in a Tour that's been dishing them up daily. First, we had the prospect that the entire Tour might hinge on the handle of a spectator's food bag, as the defending champion, interpreting the racing line beyond the limits of personal safety, snagged his handlebars and hit the ground. Then, frantic seconds while he tried to get the chain of his bike back on, unaware that Jan Ullrich was doing the sporting thing and calling a halt to hostilities while his rival was down. Armstrong going crotch to crossbar as he pulled his foot out of the pedal and narrowly avoided going down again, and finally rejoining Ullrich's group and launching the attack that may in the end win him his 5th Tour de France. That's the bare bones of the story anyway. Here are the protagonists now to put some flesh on it, starting with Lance Armstrong explaining exactly what happened in that crash.
There was, must have been, a spectator had something, probably like a bag or, it's like, let me say a musette, the feed bag. And the handle was just swinging around and caught my handlebar, and when something like that happens, the spectator holds on to it, and it holds onto your handlebar, and you know, immediately you go down, as we saw. So scared the hell out of me. But I was lucky that the bike wasn't messed up, because I got up and I thought, you know, if I have to change a bike or change a wheel, then it's going to take some time. But the only problem was the chain came off, put the chain on, and we go.
Ja gut, heute war richtig, also war wieder extrem schwer. Ich denke mal die absolute Königsetappe. Und ich bin erstmal glücklich, dass es so gelaufen ist. Lenz ein Sturz, er ist attackieren gegangen, Mayo hinterher. Ich war auch wieder dran und dann ist er so dicht an den Zuschauer gefahren. War er selbst ein bisschen schuld. Und ja, denke ich, hat sich nichts getan, so wie er danach gefahren ist. Und ich habe dann auch nicht weiter attackiert. Und ja, Fairness ist, denke ich, alles auch im Radsport. Und ja gut, Lenz war heute der Stärkste. Aber ich habe gekämpft und alle Register gezogen, die ich hatte heute. Habe auch am Tourmalet probiert, wegzukommen. Aber ja gut, also die Tour ist noch nicht vorbei.
It's the way that it should be. You know, it's when somebody, and in my opinion, when somebody crashes, whether they're in the yellow jersey or whether they're one of the favorites, you don't attack. And then, you know, if we remember, 2 years ago, Jan Ullrich had a big crash on the descent of the Pierre Sword, went off the road, looked awful. And I told everybody at the time, you know, only 3 or 4 guys left. I said, look, we have to wait for him, because we don't know if he's okay. We don't know if he's coming back. So the race is neutralized until he gets back. And so, you know, Jan was perhaps had that in mind today, and that was my payback, and I appreciate it.
Nein, was heißt geärgert? Ich meine, wer attackieren kann, der geht attackieren. Und Lenz hat sich sicher für heute alles aufgehoben und wollte heute wirklich alles klar machen. Und ich finde, das ist ihm nicht gelungen, weil, ja gut, es waren nicht seine gewohnten 2 Minuten Vorsprung, die er sonst rausfährt, die letzten vergangenen Jahre, sondern doch nur knappe 40 Sekunden, glaube ich. Und ja, was mich ein bisschen ärgert, dass ich halt Dritter anstatt Zweiter geworden bin wegen Bonifikation, aber da war nicht mehr drin gewesen für mich.
I think Jan probably still thinks he has a chance, and he may in fact have a chance. He's riding very strong. He can time trial very fast, so it's not over.
Well, it's not, but it's looking better for the defending champion than it has for some time. And having attacked today, all he has to do is defend between now and the final time trial. And at the end of another astonishing day, this is how the standings look. Armstrong leads the race by 1 minute and 7 seconds from Jan Ullrich. Alexander Vinokourov remains third, but he's now 2 minutes 45 behind. In fact, the order of the top 7 remains the same, with just the gaps opening up, down to Tyler Hamilton, who's now 9 minutes back. David Miller is 39th now, an hour and 24 minutes behind. The next 3 stages were all flat finishes as the race came down out of the Pyrenees and started to head north. And with just the final time trial and the showpiece stage in Paris to come, these were the last chance for the opportunists to break away and take a stage win.
Tyler Hamilton has done the ride of his life as a professional cyclist today. One of the greatest escapes we've seen in years in the Tour de France. 142 kilometres out front, and well, 141, but when he gets under the arch, it's 142.
He'll almost feel as if it's a local win for him as well, because he's not too far away. He lives during the racing season not too far away from him, just over the border in Spain. So the crowd are getting completely and utterly behind him right now. This is a brilliant solo effort like you do not see very often in the Tour de France these years. He's just getting himself dressed up for the final victory salute, but he's still about 750 metres from the line.
Well, this has been one of the great escapes of any Tour de France. It just adds to the annals of the Centennial Tour de France. We have had so many things that have happened in this race that have been so unpredictable, and all Tyler has done is cause even more confusion. He is going to win his first stage of the Tour de France. He's pointing back at his team manager and said, "It worked. Your idea worked." There's Bjarne Riis, thumbs up from the car. They discussed this, they worked it out. He has delivered with a breakaway of 142 kilometres. He becomes only the 6th American to win a stage of the Tour de France. It's his first in 7 tours, and what's more, he is still heading for a very high finish in Paris. He has beaten all of the brains of the peloton today, and he's thanking his teammates because of it. I've never seen this before either, Paul. We thought he'd race for the seconds, but he's throwing them away and enjoying the moment as he comes up to the line.
He's still keeping the pressure on. Look at that smile. It goes almost across the Atlantic right now as he comes into the last 200 metres. This has been a magnificent performance, Phil. You very rarely see a performance like this for a man so high in the overall classification, and it's paid off.
He claps, he believes in himself. He broke his collarbone on day 2 of the Tour de France on stage 16. He is the day's winner, and now how high up the overall classification will he climb? Well, our cameras will probably stay with the race, but I would dearly love to see Bjarne Riis leaping out of that car now and just getting hold of Tyler, and I hope he doesn't squeeze him too hard.
It's hard to believe this, because on stage 2, nobody knew that this man was actually going to come out and start the second stage of the Tour de France out on the open road, because he had such a bad accident at the end of stage 1. It really is an incredible performance that he's still in the Tour de France, and coming out with a stage win as well is remarkable. But what is important right now is the time as the clock stops on the finishing line, because it really has been a superb performance by this man. I would say they're about 1 minute and 15 seconds away from the finish line, because it's quite a tricky run-in over the last kilometre, and Alexander Vinokourov has come up to the front to make sure that he still keeps a bit of pressure, and they're trying to lead out Erik Zabel.
There's a few nasty little flicks there too. I think he'll cross the line with just about a 2-minute advantage here, as Georg Tocznik is on the wheel there of Alexander Vinokourov. That's a strange thing, isn't it? Vinokourov at the front now at the sprinter's domain, trying to save time so that he can keep the time limit decent before that last time trial. Watch out for Paolo Bettini. Zabel is mixing in the centre in the white jersey as well, as Stuart O'Grady's trying to get in onto the seam, but they're pushing him around a bit. And also there is Damian Nazon of the Brioche team. There's O'Grady with the yellow flashes now as the lead out is coming from Georg Tocznik. This is going to be a very tight sprint. Damian Nazon trying to. Oscar Freire off to the right of our picture. And it could also be Marcus Zerberg there as well, who is the rider from Gerolsteiner, who's trying to break in. Zerberg is now leading out. Now, can Zabel get through and continue his great Tour de France? Erik Zabel is coming to line, gets it on the line, just about. And he's going to be extremely annoyed that Tyler Hamilton stayed away. So is Paul Sherwin. He fancied Zabel for the win today.
And you can see from his look of utter disgust at winning what he knew should have been a sprint for the stage win, what Zabel thought about it. Well, 2.5 weeks ago, Tyler Hamilton was coming out of hospital with his arm in a sling and his tour apparently over on stage 1. But this is a man, remember, who had 11 teeth capped because he ground them down, riding to second place in the Giro d'Italia with a broken collarbone. And today, he and his double fracture crossed the line for his first ever Tour stage win. A phenomenal turn of events in a race where the phenomenal has long since become commonplace. Afterwards came perhaps the most serious threat to his collarbone since he broke it. A grueling sequence of congratulations from the boss, the wife, and the yellow jersey. He survived, though, just like he had all day. 1 minute 55 ahead of Erik Zabel, whose telecom team seriously mistimed the chase, with Yuri Krivtsov, Jean de la Tour's Ukrainian rider, taking third.
The advantage now is tipped completely and utterly towards this man. Servais Knaven, 1,000 metres to go.
Well, he's going to feel pretty good. He's looking over his shoulder underneath his arm there. He doesn't want to make the mistake of losing it now in the last 900 metres as he races towards the line here in Bordeaux. A man who has denied the sprinters their day because the breakaway has been in the lead for 181 kilometres, the exact distance of the day's race. No one was ready for the attack from the gun except these 10 men, and this man has finished it off. Servais Knaven, who is now riding his 7th Tour de France, just as Tyler Hamilton was yesterday, and like Tyler, he is now getting his first ever stage win. And Paul, he's going to enjoy this. This is a great win for it's a Belgian team, but he's very much a Dutchman, and it's going to be a great relief too to Holland because they now have a victory in the Tour de France. He is thoroughly delighted. He's won some wonderful races. It's his 22nd win as a professional. He's 32 years of age. Until today, his biggest win was the classic race from Paris to Roubaix. Now he's in Bordeaux and he's going to enjoy the moment. Time on this occasion is not important to Servais Knaven.
Very clever tactical move. He attacked before anybody else, and it's Médéric Klein here in the middle leading them home, but watch out for Salvatore Commesso.
Bassoni is going on the far right of our picture here. Has looked to have got the edge perhaps here. Médéric Klein trying to get through. He's shut out. Manjon is coming through. A little bit of a movement there. Manjon or Bassoni? I think Bassoni.
I think Bassoni just got it in the lime green jersey in the middle there.
He did, and he probably would have won the stage if that group had worked together to bring Knaven back. As it was, the Dutchman won by 17 seconds from Bassoni, with Christophe Mongean third.
David Cañada is holding off, and I really thought that group was going to come up to them, but no, he is hanging on in there. It's a long straight run down the main National Highway N11 here. This is the second ever Tour for David, and in the year 2000, the last time he rode it, by the way, he was amongst the riders for a high finish. He finished, in fact, in 33rd place, fairly nondescript, never looked like winning a stage, but today, I think he might.
Well, he's still got a bit of power in those legs. You can see his legs almost knocking against the bike right now as Pablo Lastras from ibernesto.com comes through. These guys are looking over their shoulder. Daniele Nardello is thinking about the stage victory if he can just pull it back to the man who leads the race at the moment. They're around about 75 metres behind him, but it just is an interminable effort for these riders just to try and catch him, and they are still not closing it down quickly enough.
There's got to be a huge effort. They're saying it's 6 seconds, that's all, but they are so committed. 6 seconds, you know, can be wiped out in the last kilometre, especially when it is downhill, and those boys have got some big gears on the bike now, but the trouble is they've got to take a move, and psychologically they know the first man to chase him won't win the stage.
He's just found a bit more extra energy from somewhere. He looked over his shoulders and he knew he's still got the 75 metres advantage. He will have his chain right across to the right-hand side at the moment, trying to get all of the last big energy he can.
The last desperate effort here by Carlos de Cruz. He's been close before. He's going across to try and get some slipstream. 100 metres to go. De Cruz has been beaten. An incredible ride by David Cañada. De Cruz will get second, Nardello third, but it's a long way to go. Oh no, he's come round him on the outside and gone like an express train. The last desperate effort in sight of the line, and De Cruz is himself now beginning to fade, as here comes Pablo Lastras, and on the inside he tried to take him, he never got it. On the line, Lastras has got it. We are being treated to a Tour de France that does never exist. It is incredible. Lastras in his first Tour de France now adds 2 stage victories in the Tour of Spain, a stage victory in the Giro. He's now got a stage win in the Tour de France. Here is the sprint from the rest here, taken out by Massimiliano Lelli, I think it was there. He gains most from the day at the big time gains. We don't know what they are yet, of course. Here comes Fabrizio Guidi as he tries now from Milojevic. Milojevic is the rider going to take him. No, Guidi got him. He'll be kicking himself because he was the best sprinter in the group.
Well, Pablo Lastras rode that last kilometre in 57 seconds, which is the fastest final K of the race so far. And overall today, it was the second fastest stage in Tour history, 49.938 kilometres an hour. There's the result, Lastras taking it from Carlos de Cruz and Daniele Nardello, with all 3 of them passing David Cañada in the final straight. Now, nobody expected a change at the top today, but it's only 2 seconds, but who knows how important they might turn out to be. Jan Ullrich's deficit on Lance Armstrong is now down to 105, and here's why. In the kind of nip-and-tuck racing we haven't seen for perhaps 20 years on the Tour, he jumped Lance Armstrong at the first sprint of the day, picked up a time bonus, and who knows, perhaps a little psychological edge on the race leader. Armstrong against Ullrich, against the clock, with overall victory on the line. The sequel we'd all been waiting for. And as if the final time trial wasn't going to be dramatic enough in its own right, the Centenary Tour had decided to throw in a twist of its own in the form of a rain-soaked road surface. So who was going to be able to cut through the conditions better, the fuel-injected Ford or the Volkswagen diesel? Armstrong with his small gear, high revs approach, or Ullrich glued to the saddle and grinding out the kilometres on pure power? Well, Armstrong, of course, had a head start, the 65 seconds by which he led Ullrich in the standings, but it was Ullrich who set off first, with the defending champion 3 minutes behind him. 49 kilometres, 2 more than the last time trial, but much flatter and, of course, much cooler and wetter. Well, with the riders going in reverse order of their overall placings, David Miller left 56 from the end and set the best time at the 2nd and 3rd checkpoints.
We are seeing the arrival now of David Miller. He has set the best times at the 2nd and 3rd checks. He's one of the few men to defy the rain today and not fall down as they approach the line. There's the other rider waving him through. He knows now that Miller is on a great run for a time here. As Miller comes, it will be the best time, and David Miller will then have to sit and wait. 54.05, Miller number 1.
So David in with a very impressive time, and after he'd finished, Ned Boulting caught up with him.
David, well done, you got the best time.
Yeah.
26 seconds, how is it out there?
Well, I fell off once. It's absolutely an ice rink the last 15 Ks.
How did you fall?
Just the wheel slid. I mean, I was going so slow.
Okay. Did you do any damage when you fell, David, do you think?
No, I think I just cut my leg up. Oh, yeah. No, nothing. But it's incredibly dangerous. Just stupid.
Do you think it's safe to ride in these conditions?
No, not that those last 15 Ks. It's not. I was taking 0 risks. I mean, going around so slowly, like upright, and the wheels just boom, slide away. There's nothing you can do. You have to literally come to a standstill. It's ridiculous.
So you think they should actually call it off at this point?
They should neutralise. They should put the finish like 15 Ks before we come into Nantes. It's just stupid. For guys like Lance and Jan, they shouldn't have to take risks like that.
Well, here comes Lance Armstrong. There's the time to beat at 32 kilometres, leaving him just 17 kilometres to ride to the finish. Just about 10 miles to go, and the speed he's going, he'll do that 10 miles in round about 16 minutes. Armstrong heading up. It's going to be close, but I tell you what, this is a most incredible time trial. The fastest ever time trial, 55.152 kilometres an hour. Ullrich has gone through with a 56.91 kilometres an hour average speed. Now, what is Lance going to do? As he races up now, searching to beat the time of 35.19. He goes around the corner. He's got 10 seconds to hit the line. He's getting desperately close. One thing's for sure, they are still virtually identical in this time trial as we enter the last few kilometres. And the clock stops at 35:21. It is incredible, Paul. It is just over a second difference.
Only just over a second difference between Armstrong and Ullrich. It really is an unbelievable battle. Look at the concentration, though, on the face of Armstrong. The time trial result, Phil, is going to be decided on the run into Nantes and who has got the ability to take the most risks going round the corners in the outskirts of this very dangerous last 10 kilometres.
Well, there is Lance Armstrong riding like a dream at the moment.
Ullrich looking for that little bit of extra energy there. He's a huge, big bike rider.
Now, David Miller, the British rider, is in 54.05. Hamilton is not going to beat that, but if he can just squeeze out a sprint, he should hold second.
Oh, Ullrich's gone down.
Ullrich has crashed. Well, we can't see Hamilton finish because this is what everybody is worried about. Ullrich has gone down, and he was in the lead by about 6 seconds when he fell. We can look at this now. These are the grease on the roundabouts, and they saw the sparks flying.
Unbelievable. It is a very dangerous time trial. He's gone into the bales. Thank goodness there were bales at the side of the road. And it was just the front wheel that was lost. The team manager was there very quickly indeed. The mechanic was up alongside.
Now, that's the same place where Uwe Peschel crashed, Paul, and broke his rib. So Ullrich is up and away.
Ullrich's up and away. He doesn't seem to be injured, but what that will do, Phil, that will make him very nervous coming into the next few corners. He was going so well. He was 2 seconds ahead of Armstrong. These roads are becoming very slick as we get closer to the finish line here in Nantes. There are so many riders have gone down in this time trial, and it is quite rare to see a time trial with so many crashes.
He's got to take it carefully. Well, he's got to take it carefully. You can see the glacier now. Now, David Miller said it was unfair, these last 15 kilometres, far too dangerous, far too slippery, and he thinks they shouldn't have subjected them to this course towards the end of the course.
He will lose his nerve right now. A crash like that completely takes the nerves away from you for 4 or 5 kilometres because you're always looking down at the bike wondering if there's a problem with it. He needs now to get back up into his aerodynamic position. This is drama on the Tour de France, and it is so sad that he has gone down because this man was winning the individual time trial, and in a couple of minutes time Lance Armstrong is going to come into that very same corner.
Well, I can tell you in the drama there that as Ullrich crashed, Hamilton finished with the second best time, 9 seconds slower than David Miller, 54.14. But you know, as he fell, the computer for the race for yellow was indicating he was to the good by 6 seconds on the course. He'll have lost all of that, and quite clearly now he's got to show respect to these roundabouts.
Well, it's very dangerous, so we haven't even got into the real centre of Nantes, and that's where it is even more dangerous because there are so many of these white pieces of paint on the road which are crossings for pedestrians, and those crossings are unbelievably treacherous. Every bike rider who races in Europe knows what they're like, but there's nothing you can do. You can't lift them up. It really is quite remarkable. He's got to find something now, and he's coming into these corners, Phil. You saw him looking over his shoulders. He's lost his nerve completely right now because of that crash.
Well, he's no choice but to take those corners carefully.
There's a problem. He's waving to the team manager.
I think he's saying stay further back from me. He's worried about the proximity of the team car in the event of a fall, because the team car will slide as well. He's into the last 10 kilometres now. Jan Ullrich, I think, was 6 seconds quicker than Lance at this point, but that'll be swept away. And Lance Armstrong, too, has still to enter this corridor of great danger.
It's unbelievable right now as he's pricking his way around this course very precariously indeed. It is such a shame for the organisation that the rain has come down over these last few kilometres. It's only in the last 24 hours that the weather has changed as dramatically as this. Going through the 42-kilometre check, Armstrong is picking his way through. He's fine, he kept upright, but did you see how slow he had to go around that corner? He realises how dangerous this race is turning out to be. That crash of Jan Ullrich reminded me very much of a crash by Abraham Alano some time ago. And I have a feeling the team manager is driving much too close to him, and I think the team manager is probably making him nervous going around these corners right now.
Well, here comes Vinokourov. He's made the city of Nantes, as far as we know, without falling off. He's sprinting for his third place finish. 58.04 is what he doesn't want, and he's well in. 56.01. He gets his third place confirmed with 1 day to go.
Great ride by Vinokourov. He will be third tomorrow on the Champs-Élysées as the battle continues now between the last two men to come onto the finishing straight. Inside of 1,000 metres for Jan Ullrich, and this has been an incredible battle. At the moment, the overall classification, if we stop the race right now, would be Armstrong, Ullrich, Vinokourov, Hamilton and Zubeldia, but these two men still have to finish.
You know, when Greg LeMond won the Tour de France in '86, Andy Hampson got the 4th place.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing how history repeats itself on so many occasions. Armstrong is not taking any risks at all right now. He's listened to the warnings of his teammates who started earlier on in the day.
Well, there's no doubt that Jan Ullrich will be a very, very disappointed rider at the finish because he hasn't closed the gap. In fact, when we may find out very shortly, the opposite has in fact happened. He did seem to be getting into his rhythm. He did seem to be pulling away very slightly from Armstrong. Not enough to win the Tour de France, but maybe to have won the day. But he hasn't recovered from that rather nasty fall and slide. He's coming now towards the finishing line. There's a big applause already started in the home straight. You can see the crowd for yourself. Well, one thing's for sure, Jan is back and he'll be here to fight another Tour de France in the future years. Only 3rd on the line, though, 54.30. He never recovered from the crash.
Well, you know what? We've kind of forgotten about the man who's leading the race at the moment, David Miller, because everybody else seems to have slowed down dramatically over the final few kilometres, and David Miller looks set right now to get himself the stage victory, because I think Armstrong is just going to cruise over the last few metres.
Well, Ullrich even slowed down and fell behind Tyler Hamilton there.
His skin suit ripped open as well.
Yeah, well, I'm not surprised. He burned off his back as he skidded across the road. We saw the sparks off the back end of his bicycle. Now 1 man left out on course. His time, everybody wants to see. We all feel it must be good enough to confirm him now as the winner of the Tour de France tomorrow when we go to Paris. And boy, are there some celebrations for the Tour de France tomorrow on the famous Champs-Élysées.
No, he didn't want to take any risks at all, but he is actually a much better bike handler on situations like this than Jan Ullrich. In the past, we've seen him go downhill very fast on stages of the Tour, but look at him picking his way precariously around these corners. These white bands that you can see here right now are unbelievably lethal on weather conditions like this. Armstrong again accelerating out of the saddle. He knows the time to beat is that of David Miller of Great Britain, 54 minutes and 5 seconds. But that's not important for him. What's important is the time of Jan Ullrich, which is 54 minutes and 30 seconds.
That's what he's aiming at. He started the day with that advantage of 1 minute and 5 seconds. 1 kilometre to go. Should take him about 1 minute and 5 seconds right now at the way he's riding the final kilometre of this race. Through that little bit of flood water there, the USA flag flying off his left shoulder, indicating the tail to crosswind that's blown for much of the day. It was tail for most of it. We've swung round a little bit now towards Nantes. It's become a crosswind. Lance Armstrong, who looked very shaky in the early days of this year's Tour de France, is now sure of making it 5 in a row tomorrow in Paris. It has been exactly what he hoped it would be. In his own words, he can walk in the hotel tonight, he can look his team straight in the eye, because tomorrow he will go to Paris in yellow. And David Miller, by the way, will be only the 24th British rider to win a stage of the Tour de France. But this is the man that this Tour now is confirming in the 100th year. And even in this last 500 metres, he is taking absolutely no chances, even freewheeling on the slightest of bends to make sure he doesn't slide. Goodness knows how many riders fell off today, including Jan Ullrich, but Armstrong comes home. It looks like a 3rd place finish, and he knows it's nothing. He's won the Tour de France with 54.19.66.
Rarely do you see Armstrong show that kind of emotion, Phil, at the end of a time trial. He looked up at the clock, he knew the time that Jan Ullrich had come in, but watch this once more, the concentration and the power on this man's face. Look at the smile appearing. He's looking up at the finishing clock, which every rider can see as they come into the finish line. The joy is there, and the moment that he comes up to the line, rarely do you see him just show this kind of emotion. That's for him, and that's for the team.
Yes, indeed. Just look at those eyes. He's still concentrating, though, because he wants to make sure those brakes work. Here is his wife, Kirsten, as Lance Armstrong is ushered into the camper there, ready now for a quick wash and brush up. And this is the yellow jersey, Paul, he really wanted, because he knows now he's going to win the Tour.
David Miller, however, won the stage exactly 3 weeks after his chain stopped him doing the same in the prologue. He'd had a long wait in the team campervan too, watching everyone else fail to beat him. Matt Rendell nabbed him on the walk to the podium.
This was the Centenary Tour. It's a race that's had absolutely everything, and now it's got a David Miller stage win. You must be delighted.
I'm in the clouds. I'm not walking there, I'm floating. I'm just, thank you. I don't know if it makes up for it all. It's just, I'm just happy. I'm a happy man.
All right, let's have a look at the stage result. David Miller first, 9 seconds ahead of Tyler Hamilton. And thank goodness he didn't go down on his broken collarbone. Armstrong third, another 5 seconds back. And Ullrich, who had been fastest at the time check before he crashed, 11 seconds behind Armstrong in fourth. Alexander Vinokurov's 16th place was enough to hold on to third overall, but both Aimar Zubeldia and Iban Mayo conceded the best part of 2 minutes to Tyler Hamilton. Well, he's had a miserable last 10 days or so, David Miller, but he was back at the Tour's top table tonight. Congratulations from the race leader, the race organiser, Jean-Marie Leblanc, and then onto the podium to make sure his underwear sponsors got their airtime. Having softened him up with Matt, we sent Ned in for a second go.
So we need to know how fast you can go when your chain doesn't fall off and when you don't come off your bike, because I mean that today was the second fastest time trial in Tour history.
Yeah, I know. And it was raining and wet, and we had lots of corners. Yeah, I was like, but we had an incredibly strong tailwind. But yeah, I'm happy. It's pretty cool, huh?
It's pretty cool. And just a word on that man who I saw embracing you there, Lance Armstrong. It looks like today was decisive. He's a friend of yours, someone you respect, but what about his achievement?
He's a friend, and I love the guy. I think he's great, and I think what he's done this Tour de France is probably his greatest Tour de France. You know, it's like people have doubted him. He's had moments of weakness. He keeps coming back. He's just goes to show that not only physically but tactically he's the best. I mean, head and shoulders above the rest. You know, I mean, I sent him a message after Les Ardennes saying, "You're an inspiration." I mean, that was inspirational. What he did in Les Ardennes was inspirational.
Well, David's win doesn't do much to his position overall, but it confirms him as one of the big talents in the free agent market at the end of the season, and he'll have teams queuing up for him. The big story in the general classification, of course, is at the top, where Lance Armstrong is confirmed as the unassailable leader of this race now, with just the final stage in Paris to come. And his winning margin will be 1 minute 16 seconds over Jan Ullrich. Tyler Hamilton's excellent ride today moves him past Zubeldia and Mayo, and he will finish the Tour an astonishing fourth behind Alexander Vinokurov in third. Well, they were separated for a spell earlier in the year, but they looked the picture of happiness in the rain outside the US Postal Team van. Let's hear from Mr. and Mrs. Armstrong. Lance first, and he's with his old teammate Frankie Andreu.
I don't think I've ever been that nervous before a bike race. I was nervous because of not such an advantage on Jan, and also the weather. You know, the difference between you know, winning and losing with a crash is just so fine. So I just tried to take it easy. When I heard he crashed, then I just basically just sat up and said, I'm not taking any risks.
Your strategy today, was it to take a little bit easier? Because it seemed like you were dead even at the start, and then maybe later on it looked like, at least your expression on your face, you seemed to be going harder.
Yeah. Johan told me after 1.5 kilometers I lost 6 seconds. And then I brought it back to 3, and then 2, and then even, and then went up by 6 or 7 or 8 or 10 seconds. And then at that point I just said I'll just go my pace, and then I heard he crashed. And from then on I just a little tour of Nantes.
It's been so stressful and exciting, but I'm so proud of him and so happy and excited.
Been at his side, you know, all throughout this. He's really had to dig deep, hasn't he?
Yeah, it's been the hardest year yet, but I think probably the victory is the sweetest as well.
And knowing him, what's he going to do now? Do you think will he find it in himself to put his feet up and relax, or will he straight back out training and thinking of the next thing?
I think the kids will tackle him and pin him down, so I don't think he's going to have much choice.
So you having some ice cream or beers tonight?
Come on. I'm definitely having beer. I don't know about ice cream, but I mean, you all know how much I like beer. So I told the boys last night, I said, if I make it through tomorrow, I said, we're gonna have some beers tomorrow night. So beers are on me.
All right, bottoms up. Thanks. Lance.
Thanks.
I suspect Jan Ullrich might have a couple too, along with a handful of painkillers. All credit to Lance Armstrong for winning, but without an opponent like Ullrich, he would never have been pushed to win it in the manner he did.
Ich habe eigentlich kein großes Risiko eingegangen. Ja gut, es war nass und es hat lange nicht geregnet gehabt. Es war Öl wahrscheinlich auch, also so wie ich weggerutscht bin, das war ruckzuck, und bis dahin habe ich super Moral gehabt und habe auch immer die Zwischenzeiten angeführt. Bin natürlich, um Gesamtsieg ging es wahrscheinlich nicht mehr, aber ich hätte gerne das Zeitfahren gewonnen, und ja gut, so bin ich bis jetzt heil durchgekommen, habe mir nichts gebrochen, nur ein paar Schürfwunden, und Zweiter in der Gesamtwertung bin ich auch noch. Bin natürlich ein bisschen traurig, klar.
The only real sadness for the rest of us is that the epic battle between the two of them is over, but it is, and in Armstrong's favour. There's one stage still to come, but he'll ride it as the latest member of the club, which up until now has had 4 members: Anquetil, Merckx, Eno and Indurain, the 5-time winners of the Tour.
Okay. We'll do it now, we'll do it here. Yeah. Better that way. Look like we're in prison. Hello, welcome to Guantanamo.
Robin, what about this man? You've seen him ride often enough, but the things he's achieved over this tour and today, what do you make?
This whole tour has been the toughest, I think. The best, the toughest. I mean, with full of accidents and, you know, ups and downs and great moments. I mean, it's been the best. I've been to 4 of them. You know, I haven't seen all 100, but I think this one sure ranks as the best of the 4 I've seen.
And he's had to dig deep, hasn't he? He's had
everything. Yeah, I mean, there's also been great moments of, you know, great sporting moments, like when Jan waited for him after the fall. I mean, he's waited for Jan a couple of times, so, you know, it's been payback, bro. But it's been astonishing to watch. And the great thing to watch it, you know, I was watching a lot of it from Vancouver. I was doing a movie, then coming here and seeing it in person, it's the best. It's got everything. It's got, you know, down to seconds and, you know, curves and, you know, falls and getting back up, and it's all of it.
After 3 weeks of sort of sunshine, how about the drama of today's?
It's all of a sudden, you know, 110-degree heat, and now rain and cold. It's God having fun with everyone. But it makes it part of the race, you know. It makes, and like the one guy says, sport, c'est toujours sport. It's like a French thing, a guy with a galloise going, oui, c'est le sport maintenant, la fortune, la bonne fortune, la mal fortune, hein? And who are you, Jacques Chirac?
So has your man got a 6th Tour win in him?
Ah, j'espère. Je crois que oui. Je crois que c'est le seul homme qui a gagné 6. The one man who's ever won 6. I think if anyone, he can. He's got it. He wants to keep going. But, you know, it'd be nice if it wasn't as crazy as this, but it probably will. They'll keep trying to make it harder and harder. Le trop dur. Lance proof it, but he keeps coming back with meta. It's a good day. Oh, thanks.
Cheers.
Thanks for covering it. Thanks for showing it all.
Heading on to the Champs-Élysées, the stage when most riders usually have their Monopoly sets out, celebrating the last day of school, this Tour was still hard at work making history. The average speed coming into the final day was 40.9 kilometres an hour, which meant unless the riders slowed down significantly, we're on course for the fastest Tour ever. And weather permitting, they weren't likely to slow down because the green jersey points competition race between Baden Cook and Robbie McEwen was still so close, it looked like it was going to come down to the final sprint on the Champs-Élysées.
Just look how they're massing across the road there, Paul. Now they're waiting for a change of guard at the front here. 1.5 laps to go to the finish. Armstrong has stayed away from the action now. He's called his team off to look after him in the centre of the peloton. There he is. In fact, he's nearly at the back of the peloton here. He's a wise old owl, isn't he? He's keeping away from the sharp end now.
Well, you know, it's one of the rare occasions throughout this last 3 weeks and 1 day that we've seen him near the rear end of the main peloton, because he's always ridden this Tour in the first 15 to 20 places. He's not too worried about anything right now. He wants to stay in the peloton. He doesn't want to get involved in any of the argy-bargy on the run in towards the finish, because he has to keep upright. Let's not forget that the clock actually stops when the riders cross the line. There has been no need to use that special rule this afternoon. The sun has been the order of the day, has blown away all the rain clouds that dampened everybody's thoughts yesterday on the road between Pornic and Nantes, and we have had a great showdown here in Paris.
And it's not quite over yet, but these 8 riders are down to 14 seconds now. It is very, very close. There they are, and still the charge is coming after them. They are going to time this catch, and I think they will catch them, because they won't control that big pack when they go towards the final lap. Not with the pressure that's on the shoulders of Baden Cook and Robbie McEwen. And the third intruder is Eric Zabel, because Zabel wants to win a stage for Germany. Well, this is a nice look at the 8 boys who are clear. Now they're saying it's 11 seconds, so the gap is coming down rapidly. They're going to go past our commentary box. There's a look of concern on their faces. It is Vincenti Garcia Acosta. Thank you, Paul. I got dead lost in that one. As we now see the main field try to pulling them back in here now as they go out across the Place de la Concorde.
It's not very far, is it, when you look from this position? It's not very much more than 100 meters difference between the 8 men at the front and the whole of the rest of the main field here at the Tour de France. They will certainly pull them back in. It is down to 10 seconds. Team Telecom are on the front, so they're trying to set this up to be a first win on the Champs-Élysées for Erik Zabel. He would certainly love to win here, but the speed is unbelievable.
Paul, as we're watching the head of the race here, there's a call at the back for a problem for the teammates of Robbie McEwen. A Lotto rider has had a flat tyre. It's a front wheel. I don't think it's for McEwen. Our cameras, of course, are right here on the front. We'll have to take our word for it just now, but whatever the problem is at the rear of the peloton. There he is.
Well, that's not Robbie McEwen, it's one of his teammates. It may well be one of the lead-out men, but we haven't seen a lot of the Lotto Domo riders on the front end of the peloton here. But it's almost certainly going to come back together inside of the last lap. It's going to be a dramatic finish.
Well, the German flag is flying high there, just about over the head of Jan Ullrich as the bunch comes underneath. These are the 8 escapers. The gap is still there. They are now swinging down underneath the tunnel again. Then they will go past the carousel. They'll go under what is the kilometre, but there's still one full lap to go. 10 seconds. Paul, they're going to come together as we hear the bell.
As they hear the bell, I hope everybody hears that bell, because sometimes with the roar of the crowd you don't get a chance to hear it, but that will indicate there's just 6.5 kilometres to go here on the final stage of the Tour de France. And what a stage it's going to be. These guys, somebody in a short while I think may well try and surprise the rest. This is Vicente Garcia Acosta looking over his shoulder just to see what the gap is between the 8 men at the front and the main field behind. But you can see the pressure is coming into the main field right now, because they are scrambling one by one in a huge long snake-like line. And there is the red kite, but it's not for this lap, by the way. Let's not get too excited, because we still haven't heard that bell.
Must have been a clever man that climbed up there last time around, put the kite up, but it's not quite the right lap yet. There's the gap with the 8 men. They made a real race of it here. There was a moment when they pushed it out to 45 seconds. It is now just 8 seconds to the peloton. They know that they are going to get caught on the slope up towards the Arc de Triomphe this time. Once they are caught, there will be a flurry of attacks from that peloton. This is the psychological moment now where they don't really want to form the gap, don't want to catch up, because they know the counter moves will come. And look at that, Stuart O'Grady now, the champion of Australia, moving up, looking like he might be looking to go out of this Tour de France with a victory as well. There's so many riders now want to win. O'Grady's not a bad bunch finisher, but they've got to bring this group back first. They'll swing onto the Champs-Élysées now. They'll see the finishing line. They're going to see one to go. They're going to hear the bell as they go by.
They are all so nervous right now in that group. They know they're not going to survive. You see the nervousness in their heads. They're looking over their shoulders. They know the main field is coming. I've got the clock starting right now as they go by the commentary position, and the main field is about 12 seconds in arrears, but you know, they've just slowed down a fraction before they pick it up for the final charge.
So the field are out on the final lap. Lance Armstrong is going to find these the fastest 6 kilometres and the most pleasant. He will win the Tour de France for a 5th time, but he won't take part in the sprint that is about to be enacted, because this is for the race for the green jersey. This has been an incredible competition this past 3 or 4 years, and all because it's been animated by Australians that have suddenly broken in to what has been a European competition. Mario Oert sets the pace there. Now it's the teammates of Baden Cook. Also there for Oscar Freire, the 3rd man in line, is a Rabobank rider.
Well, they're all lining up right now. The field are just waiting to nail back the final 7 seconds deficit they have on the leading group of 8, but they seem to have slowed down just a little bit too much. They need to keep the pressure. They need the organisation on the front end of the main field if they're going to pull these men back. Mikel Astroloza feels the panic now. He wants to slip the coupe, but he hasn't done, because the reaction came immediately from CSC, Michael Blaudsen.
Blaudsen jumps on Astroloza. Bram de Groot gets on top of those two, and they're all together again now in the breakaway. Telecom are looking for more help from other riders now. They seem to have given their all, and they haven't got a lot left. This is going to be a desperate finish here now.
Team Bianchi have come to the front, the team of Jan Ullrich, but they're not riding for Ullrich at the moment. They're riding for Fabrizio Guidi. He's a very good finisher. He was in the breakaway 2 days ago on the road to Maix-en-l'École, and he was hoping that we'd get the win, but in fact somebody slipped off the front before the finish. The group has split. Vincenti Garcia Acosta has gone clear right now, covered by Bram de Groot, and of course CSC always present, always looking for the move. Michael Blautzen in third place.
Well, Garcia Acosta's gone off our screen to the right. De Groot is in centre left. Now Blautzen gives it a little kick himself. They've had a great team, a great tour, 3 stage wins for CSC, a 4th place finish for Tyler Hamilton. They're winning the race on team. Blautzen first around. He's taken a look over his shoulder at the top of the Arc de Triomphe, half a lap to go. They know that they're all there, but they've still got to trap them, and they're going again.
There are 5 riders left at the front from the original 8, and they're only 3 seconds off the front end of the main field. This move coming now from Sébastien Hinault. No relation at all to Bernard Hinault, the 5-time winner of the Tour de France. Look how he's hugging the barriers. That's the smoothest part of the Champs-Élysées there. There's no cobblestones at all. He's pushing it up to 60 kilometers an hour.
Well, the name Hinault has scored twice here on the Champs-Élysées. Maybe there will be a third one after all with the same name, just a different guy. But they've moved up. There are 5 riders still there. De Groot, Mikel Astolosa is there, Blautzen, and then the rider at the back is Garcia Acosta. They're the men who stayed up at the front, but I think now it is all coming to an end. And it's coming to an end with just 4 kilometers to go to the finish. Lance Armstrong sitting near the back of the race now. He doesn't want an accident to spoil his brilliant day. He has been a fantastic winner of this race, always on the defensive, and yet he's coming out for the 5th time, yes, with his smallest winning margin, but the first American to win 5 times. He's watching now it all enact and unfold in front of him. This now is a battle of the sprinters, and we have some great sprinters here.
Well, in fact, David Miller had moved himself up into 5th place there. This gives you an idea of just how fast we're going on the final lap. We are touching 65 kilometers an hour on the downhill slopes. It is all together. They've picked up all of the breakaways. The whole of the main field is one charging pack right now. Let's not forget, after the second sprint, McEwen led Baden Cook in the points competition by 2 mere points, and they all led Eric Zabel by about 17. But it's all going to go down to the sprint on the line. It's all going to be for 35 points and the glory of winning on the Champs-Élysées.
Now the winner gets 35, the second place gets 30. There's 5 points difference, so if either of them wins, finishing second is no good to either of them. So Cook or McEwen for the stage victory. That's about what it comes down to, I think, just now.
It's going to be very complicated to keep an eye on this. Looking over the shoulders, this is Alexander Vinokourov. He's in 3rd place in the overall classification. He's not riding for his position right now. He's looking over his shoulder.
He's totally dedicated to his team captain Zabel, and he's finishing 3rd in the Tour de France.
He's done this before. He's looked after Eric Zabel. They don't want anybody. Brochard there trying a last-minute burst, but they're not going to get off the front of the main field here this afternoon. Stewie O'Grady there in the Australian National Champions jersey is up into 4th position. He's all over the front of this, and he's all over the back wheel of Eric Zabel. They're great mates, Zabel and Stewie O'Grady, but in the middle of there somewhere, I can't see the green jersey of Robbie McEwen.
Well, you never can. Robbie McEwen he's a great artist at hiding till it matters. Believe me, he will be there. As we look now at Alexander Vinokourov taking 2nd wheel here now. Looks like Michael Rogers going around in 3rd place. Luca Paolini is not very far away from the action, about 4th or 5th place. He's also a good sprinter now, more so because some of the sprinters are out of this race. Underground we go briefly.
There at the back of the pack, Jan Ullrich not far away from the yellow jersey of Lance Armstrong. They will not get involved in any of this fighting at all. They don't want to go down inside the last kilometre. They've fought it out over the last 3 weeks at the Tour de France. It's the sprinters, the madmen, the men who will take risks, the men who have absolutely no fear when it comes down to the last charge for the line. Alexander Vinokourov has been crowned the most aggressive bike rider of the Tour de France this year, and this is one of the reasons why. This is now David Bramati from Quick-Step trying to take up the pace. He's looking under his shoulder. Where is his teammate? They're inside the last kilometre now of the Tour de France this year. There is Paolo Bettini moving up as well.
The champion of Italy, centre-left with the green top to his jersey. The green jersey all of a sudden is right there of Robbie McEwen, about fifth wheel down. This could be a perfect approach to the line, though, for Eric Zabel. Baden Cook is also there, too. Stuart O'Grady. Everybody is in the mix for what is going to be an incredible ride to the line. The man giving them the ride is Alexander Vinokurov. O'Grady is locked in behind Baden Cook. As we McEwen is locked in behind Baden Cook. Now the crucial right turn to the finish. Now McEwen has won here twice. He knows it well. Bradley McGee brings them around the corner into the home straight. He's got the lead out. Cook is on the right. McEwen is on his wheel. O'Grady goes on the left with Zabel on his wheel. Damien Lazon is coming towards us now, and Thor Hushovd is leading through. Hushovd is going. Here comes Cookie with his gritting of his teeth, and McEwen is going with him. And McEwen is coming on the right. McEwen is going to get win number 3, beaten on the line. Jean-Patrick Nazon. Jean-Patrick Nazon gets it, but I think, Paul, it will go to McEwen because he was right on the side of Cook, and I think there'll be nothing in it. It's on countback.
It is going to be on the countback. The difference between second and third is 4 points at this level, but that man, Patrick Nazon, came right up through the middle. And I have to tell you that we have to count back to see just exactly what position. Let's have a look from the top here. This is Nazon here, who's charging up to the line. Thor Hushovd is leading the sprint out. There you've got Baden Cook coming around the outside, then all of a sudden it's Robbie McEwen. And look at this charge for the line here, right up through the middle. The pink jersey is Jean-Patrick Nazon. Whoa. And you know, oh, Phil, it's photo. We have to look at it from the side. It's going to go between Baden Cook and Robbie McEwen. If Baden Cook is second, Robbie McEwen's third, then the result of the king of the sprints is going to go to Baden Cook.
Well, when the race jury had studied the photo, they did eventually give second place to Baden Cook, which gave him first place in the points competition and this year's green jersey. There's the confirmed result. Jean-Patrick Nazon getting the win of his life on the Champs-Élysées, Baden Cook getting the second place of his life, and Robbie McEwen a desperately disappointed third. Incidentally, Stuart O'Grady's sixth place was enough to clinch him the special centenary prize as the most consistent finisher in all 6 of the Tour's original 1903 stage finish towns, of which Paris, of course, was the last. Then here's a strange thing, the yellow jersey losing 15 seconds on the final stage. Usually, of course, the riders in the main bunch all get the same time. But today, there was a split in the bunch, with Jan Ullrich in the front half and Armstrong in the back. Meaningless, of course, in the grand scheme of things, unlike Baden Cook's second place. This is only his second Tour de France, and he was seen as very much the junior entrant in the points competition. But with the help of his team, he's taken it off Robbie McEwen, which will be a great battle again between the pair of them next year. Here he is with Ned.
You didn't expect that, did you, perhaps?
Oh, I thought it was going to be close, but I thought, you know, Robbie's been so good over the last 3 days. He's beaten me most times we've lined up, and I just was going to go out there with no pressure today. The team told me they didn't care if I won or lost. They said I've already had a good tour. I could see Robbie was stressed. Lotto hadn't had a win, and I think it played into my hands that I just took it easy.
Now, let's quickly wrap up all the competitions within the race for you. The King of the Mountains was decided long ago. Richard Virenque had that tied up well before the race left the Pyrenees. Russia's Denis Menchov won the white jersey for the best rider in the race under 26. And the team prize went to CSC, whose tour looked over on stage 1 when Tyler Hamilton broke his collarbone. They bounced back with 3 stage wins for Carlos Sastre, Jakob Piel and Hamilton himself. The final overall standings look like this. Lance Armstrong first, 1 minute and 1 second ahead of Jan Ullrich. And while Armstrong racks up his 5th Tour win, Ullrich is coming to terms with his 5th second place. Alexander Vinokurov rode a great race to finish 3rd, and of course Tyler Hamilton was never expected to finish, let alone place 4th. Behind him come Euskaltel's 2 Spanish riders, Aymar Zubeldia and Diban Mayo. Italy's Ivan Basso was 7th, and Christophe Moreau was the top place Frenchman in this year's Tour. He finished 8th. There's why CSC won the team prize. It's taken on the times of the 3 best placed riders in your team. And as well as Hamilton in 4th, they placed Carlos Sastre 9th and Peter Luttenberger 13th. David Miller finished 55th with a superb time trial win to his credit. And the last man in the race, of whom 147 of the original 198 made it to Paris, was Hans de Klerk of Belgium. He came in over 4 hours and 48 minutes behind Lance Armstrong. And there's the final standings graphic come to life. Armstrong, Ullrich and Vinokourov. And between them, they helped drive the race to a new record speed. 40.940 was the average speed for the 3,427 kilometres. And as Armstrong headed off the podium and into Tour history as the latest member of the 5-time Winners' Club, Ned grabbed a word with him.
Lance, how does it feel? Number 5?
Oh, excellent. Tiring, but excellent.
That's about as good as it gets, surely. That was a tough one.
It was tough. And when it's close and tough, it feels better in the end.
You gonna have holiday now?
Definitely.
So the Centenary Tour is now history, and a much bigger part of it than anyone could have imagined beforehand. Lance Armstrong has already declared his intention to go for 6, but however many he eventually wins in his career, it would take a phenomenal race to prevent his 5th going down as his finest ever.